हेलो फ्रेंड्स, वेलकम बैक टू माय चैनल। तो आज मैं एक नया स्टोरी चालू करने वाला हूँ। तो ये स्टोरी भी आपको अच्छा लगेगा, तो स्टार्ट करते हैं।
Chapter 1. Ning Rongrong comes to the door. The first merchandise is a Pokeball. Soto City. The afterglow of the setting sun gradually faded, and the entire street was quickly shrouded in the darkness of night. At this moment, a young girl suddenly stopped in her tracks, raising her eyes to look at the small shop by the roadside. On the signboard, the words, "Strange Treasure Shop," were written in bold, instantly piquing her curiosity. However, when she drew closer, she discovered there was only a young man inside, around 20 years old, lying leisurely on a chair. Aside from him, there wasn't even the shadow of another customer. What puzzled her the most was that there were only a few simple daily necessities inside, with absolutely no merchandise on display. "Boss, what does your shop sell?" Hearing the voice from outside, the man slowly opened his eyes and stretched lazily. A moment later, he raised his eyes to look at the girl before him. Her long white dress gave off a very clean impression, and her skin was like mud and fat fried jade. With delicate features, a perfectly proportioned figure, and a noble, ethereal temperament, she looked like a highly educated noble young lady. Obviously, this person was the eldest miss of the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile School, Ning Rongrong. "She's finally here," the man sighed inwardly. His name was Luzon, a transmigrator from the Blue Star. 20 years ago, he had been sent to this world by a big truck. Ever since his spirit awakened, he had been training diligently. Before having enough strength, keeping a low profile and developing steadily was the way to go. It wasn't until a few days ago, when he passed through Soto City, that the golden finger he had anticipated for so many years finally arrived. This golden finger was rather bizarre, actually requiring him to change careers and become a merchant. Simply put, as long as he sold 3 items, he would obtain a chance to draw a prize. Thus, he temporarily stayed in Soto City, planning to try his luck here first. Although Soto City couldn't compare to Heavendo City, it could barely be considered a relatively bustling large city. Most importantly, it was safe enough that he hardly had to worry about risks. As the saying goes, an ordinary man is innocent, but harboring a treasure makes him guilty. Currently, he did not possess enough ability to protect himself. If those major powers found out about the things he sold, it would definitely bring no small amount of trouble. Seeing that the other party had not replied for a long time, a trace of dissatisfaction appeared on Ning Rongrong's face. Crossing her arms over her chest, she said, "Hey, are you even listening to me?" Not long ago, she had just been scolded by Flender, and her heart was already filled with pent-up anger. What she found hardest to accept was that Flender took the students to the Great Spirit Arena, but left her out. This was the first time she had ever been targeted like this. Now, being ignored by a small shop owner, it felt as if the entire world was against her. "You want to buy something? Let me warn you beforehand, the things I sell are quite expensive, so you had better be mentally prepared." Luzon did not take Ning Rongrong's petty temper to heart. For a spoiled eldest miss like Ning Rongrong, having a bit of a temper was perfectly normal. Compared to her bad temper, Ning Rongrong's ungrateful persona was even less appealing. In the original work, after the Shrek 7 devils became gods, Ning Rongrong did not leave the 9 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda spirit to her sect, which led to the 9 Treasure Glazed Tile School being a school in name only 10,000 years later. Of course, it was also possible that Ning Rongrong did not have this ability, or perhaps she could not violate the rules of the god realm. After all, she was only a second-tier god. "In this shabby shop of yours, is there really something this young lady can't afford?" As she said this, Ning Rongrong raised her fair chin, showing a look of disdain. As the eldest miss of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School, Ning Rongrong had always held herself in high regard. Even though her views had changed slightly after being scolded by Flender, when it came to wealth alone, she possessed absolute confidence. In response, Luzon smiled faintly and said nothing more, lightly snapping his fingers. The next moment, a fist-sized ball appeared out of thin air in his hand. Half red and half white, with a black dividing line around the middle, and a white circular button in the center. "Ordinary Pokeball, contains an unknown Pokemon inside. Fixed price, 100,000 gold coins. A storage spirit tool." Seeing Luzon take out a strange ball, Ning Rongrong's beautiful eyes flashed with a hint of interest. Storage spirit tools were extremely rare. Even one with only a single cubic meter of storage space was often worth a fortune, and only a tiny fraction of spirit masters could afford to use them. Crucially, Luzon's storage spirit tool was definitely no ordinary item, or else he wouldn't have kept all his merchandise inside it. After filling in the blanks in her mind, Ning Rongrong looked at Luzon with a bit more respect in her eyes. This guy was definitely no ordinary merchant. Thus, Ning Rongrong carefully sized up the Pokeball in Luzon's hand, but did not find anything special about it. This instead made her more and more curious. "How much do you plan to sell it for?" 100,000 gold coins, no bargaining accepted, Luzon said, his expression completely normal. Although it was unclear what was inside the Pokeball, it was certain that no matter which Pokemon it was, 100,000 gold coins was definitely a bargain. "What?" Hearing this exorbitant price, Ning Rongrong's eyes instantly went wide, her face filled with shock and disbelief. Even if the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School was as wealthy as an empire, it was impossible for them to spend 100,000 gold coins on a toy. Moreover, she had snuck away from the sect this time and hadn't brought much money with her. 100,000 gold coins was already a huge expense. After a moment, Ning Rongrong finally recovered her wits. She stared at Luzon with eyes full of disdain, as if looking at a fool. "Are you insane? For such a little trinket, you actually dare to charge 100,000 gold coins? Do you really think this young lady is that easy to fool?" Ning Rongrong felt her anger rising. To her, merchandise worth 100,000 gold coins was not particularly expensive. But in her eyes, this thing wasn't even worth a single gold coin, let alone 100,000 gold coins. Luzon was not surprised by Ning Rongrong's reaction. He said calmly and composedly, "Although the price is a bit high, it is absolutely worth every penny. Besides, I'm not forcing you to buy it." Hearing this, Ning Rongrong suddenly calmed down. Since the other party had no intention of forcing a sale, it meant this wasn't the scam shop she had imagined. However, the price was ridiculously high, making it virtually impossible for anyone to buy. This practice was clearly unreasonable, leaving her completely baffled. Suddenly, Ning Rongrong thought of something and immediately summoned her 7 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda. As the #1 support spirit in the world, besides its powerful amplification abilities, the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda also possessed the function of identifying treasures. This was also one of the main reasons why the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School was as wealthy as an empire. Through the appraisal function of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda, Ning Rongrong already knew that this spherical item was indeed extraordinary. At this point, Ning Rongrong recalled her attitude just now, and her cheeks couldn't help but flush red. Feeling slightly embarrassed, she asked, "Boss, what exactly is so special about this thing?" "This is a Pokeball. It can summon a spirit beast that will obey your commands and protect your safety. For a support system spirit master, it is equivalent to having an extra personal bodyguard." Chapter 2, The Lecherous Psyduck. Summoning a spirit beast. Hearing Luzon's introduction, Ning Rongrong's face was filled with disbelief. She had never heard of such a thing. Could it be some rare spirit tool? If it truly possessed the function of summoning a spirit beast, then the price of 100,000 gold coins was not expensive. For a spirit master of the support system, this was equivalent to having an extra personal bodyguard, greatly improving their ability to protect themselves. The 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School had a rule passed down to this day: the future partner of a sect member must be a battle spirit master, which was also to stabilize the sect's foundation. A moment later, Ning Rongrong tried her best to suppress the excitement in her heart, put on a calm appearance, and asked, "Boss, what kind of spirit beast is inside this? Can you let it out for me to see?" "Sorry, I cannot disclose that. As for what kind of spirit beast it is, you will know once you buy it." Luzon shook his head, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. Upon hearing this, Ning Rongrong frowned slightly. What kind of trick was this guy playing? Could the spirit beast inside this orb not be powerful? Even so, the fact that this orb could hold a living creature meant it was an extremely rare spirit tool, with a value far exceeding 100,000 gold coins. Even if it were just an ordinary 100-year spirit beast, the price of 100,000 gold coins would still be worth it. There was one more thing that Ning Rongrong had been brooding over. That was Splendor reprimanding her in front of everyone, not only belittling her as useless but also saying she couldn't find a teammate she could trust with her back. If she had an obedient spirit beast, she could slap Splendor in the face. Thinking of that scene, Ning Rongrong felt much better instantly. She immediately took out a black card and handed it to Luzon, placing her hands on her hips and saying, "If you dare to lie to me, you're dead." Looking at Ning Rongrong's fierce expression, Luzon couldn't help but chuckle. A mere second-ring spirit master of the support system actually dared to threaten him like that. This temper was truly not something an average person could handle. However, judging by the background of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School, there should be experts secretly protecting Ning Rongrong nearby. After submitting the 100,000 gold coins, Luzon tossed the Pokeball in his hand to Ning Rongrong and said, "You just need to press the circular button in the center to release the spirit beast inside." Hearing this, Ning Rongrong was both excited and thrilled, yet also a bit nervous, much like the feeling of opening a blind box. Taking a deep breath, Ning Rongrong quickly found the button and pressed it gently. Accompanied by a flash of white light, a somewhat silly-looking yellow duck appeared. It's actually a Psyduck. A flash of surprise passed through Luzon's eyes. He had expected it to be a Pokemon with no combat power, but he hadn't expected it to be a Psyduck. Trading 100,000 gold coins for a Psyduck was undoubtedly a huge bargain. Quack, quack tilde. The Psyduck that had just been released held its head with both hands, looking completely dazed and silly. However, when it looked up at Ning Rongrong, it immediately revealed a lecherous gaze and hugged Ning Rongrong's thigh tightly. Although Ning Rongrong was only 12 years old, spirit masters always developed quickly, and she was already a budding young beauty. Looking at this strange yellow duck, Ning Rongrong's face instantly sank. In her expectations, the worst case would have been a 100-year spirit beast, not a duck with zero combat power. Sure enough, there were no such bargains in the world. Ning Rongrong shook her head in disappointment. She would just consider these 100,000 gold coins as the price for a lesson. Although it didn't meet her expectations, Ning Rongrong did not blame Luzon. After all, the other party had not deceived her. This Pokeball could indeed capture spirit beasts. If she took it to the sect for research, perhaps they could mass-produce them. "Boss, what is this spirit beast called? Why have I never heard of it? And how do I take it back?" Ning Rongrong looked at the yellow duck hugging her thigh, not caring at all about being taken advantage of by a duck. On the contrary, she was very curious about why this duck possessed such high intelligence. Generally speaking, the higher a spirit beast's intelligence, the stronger its power. However, this yellow duck only reached her thigh and didn't even look as good as a 10-year spirit beast, with basically no combat power. Its name is Psyduck, and it is an extremely rare spirit beast. You've really made a huge profit. After a pause, Luzon pointed to the Pokeball in Ning Rongrong's hand and continued, "As for how to take it back, just aim the Pokeball at it and press the center button." Hearing this method, Ning Rongrong was immediately eager to try and attempted to take the Psyduck back. The moment she pressed the button, a red beam shot toward the Psyduck, quickly wrapping around it, and finally turning into a stream of light that returned into the Pokeball. Seeing this scene, a satisfied smile appeared on Ning Rongrong's face. Such a powerful function alone was already worth more than 100,000 gold coins. "Boss, I'm going back now. I'll come to see you again later." After saying this, Ning Rongrong left the shop without looking back and walked toward Shrek Academy. Although Flender's attitude made her very unhappy, she did not want to give up just like that. Watching Ning Rongrong's departing figure, the corners of Luzon's mouth curled up slightly, revealing a meaningful smile. In Ning Rongrong's eyes, the Psyduck could at most be considered a pet, possessing almost no combat power. However, Luzon knew very well what the Psyduck's strength was like. At the very least, dealing with a spirit elder would be no problem. Meanwhile, on the other side, Daimubai and the others had just finished their spirit fight competition. Due to Ma Hongjun's loose tongue, Daimubai's image as a lecherous tiger was completely exposed, causing Zhu Zuqing's disgust. In all fairness, Daimubai's choice to escape was understandable. After all, the gap between him and Dai Wuxi was too large, and he could barely see any hope. The succession rules of the Douluo Empire royal family were extremely cruel, similar to the Xuanwu Gate succession system. Once Daimubai failed in the competition, the best-case scenario would be to have his cultivation crippled and then be sent to a remote place to be imprisoned for the rest of his life. Besides that, there was one other possibility, dying at the hands of Dai Wuxi. Under such disparate circumstances, it was not strange that Daimubai chose to give up. As long as he gave up early enough, he could enjoy himself for a few more years. For this reason, Daimubai decisively gave up everything and fled from the Douluo Empire to the Heavendo Empire. Although escaping was his freedom, he was unwilling to let go of his fiancée, Zhu Zuqing. He didn't want to take responsibility, yet he wanted the benefits, a typical case of wanting to have his cake and eat it too. Clearly indulging in debauchery, yet pretending to be self-disciplined. From this, it could be seen that Daimubai was not even as good as Ma Hongjun. After all, Ma Hongjun needed to vent his evil fire. Of course, Zhu Zuqing also had significant issues. Although there had been some conflicts between them at the beginning, these conflicts soon vanished into thin air. Actually, thinking about it carefully, it was also very normal. After all, at Shrek Academy, visiting brothels could be said to be the most insignificant of flaws. That such a trash academy could actually be passed down for tens of thousands of years on the continent was simply turning the world upside down. Chapter 3. Daimubai utterly defeated by a duck. After a while, Daimubai and his group returned to Shrek Academy and happened to run into Ning Rongrong outside the main gate. Why are you here? A glint flashed in Daimubai's evil eyes as he coldly questioned her. Before Ning Rongrong could reply, Zhu Zuqing had already bypassed the group and walked toward the female dormitory without looking back. Seeing this, Ning Rongrong seemed to realize something. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly as she said, I went out to buy a few things. Hearing this, Daimubai frowned slightly and continued to ask, have you made up your mind? Are you staying or leaving? Of course I'm staying. How could I just leave such a fun place? Your face looks so terrible. Could it be that you got rebuffed by Zuqing? As she spoke, Ning Rongrong looked at Daimubai with disdain, her little witch personality fully exposed. Facing Ning Rongrong's mockery, the just rebuffed Daimubai was instantly enraged. Ning Rongrong, do not challenge my patience. Others might fear your 7-treasure glazed tile school, but I, Daimubai, do not. If you provoke me, be careful or I might rape and kill you. As a prince of the Douluo Empire, Daimubai had always been arrogant. Coupled with the school rules of Shrek Academy, he had long since developed a lawless and unbridled personality. Ning Rongrong did not take Daimubai's threat seriously. She did not believe he would actually dare to make a move, so she giggled and said, I'm so scared. Under Ning Rongrong's repeated provocations, Daimubai could no longer suppress his anger. In an instant, a powerful aura erupted from Daimubai, knocking Ning Rongrong back several meters. Although there was only a 10-level difference in spirit power between them, Ning Rongrong was only a support system spirit master. How could she withstand the spirit power explosion of a spirit elder? Just then, the Pokeball in Ning Rongrong's hand fell to the ground. The next moment, accompanied by a flash of white light, the figure of Psyduck appeared before everyone's eyes. What is this thing? Due to Psyduck's sudden appearance, everyone's attention was drawn to it, and Daimubai was no exception. Even Tang San, who had read many books, had never seen this kind of spirit beast. Most importantly, this type of spirit tool that could store spirit beasts was beyond their understanding. After all, they had never heard of a spirit tool capable of capturing spirit beasts. Quack, quack tilde tilde. Psyduck circled around, finally found Ning Rongrong sitting on the ground, and immediately ran over. What a cute duck. Looking at this silly Psyduck, Xiao Wu's eyes instantly lit up. Having lived in the Stardew Great Forest for so many years, she had never seen such a spirit beast. It was just as cute as a soft-bones rabbit. Psyduck, hurry and help me take revenge. Ning Rongrong wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes, looked at the Psyduck running toward her, and issued her first command. At this moment, her rationality had been submerged by anger. She didn't even consider whether Psyduck possessed combat capabilities, as it was the only thing she could rely on. Quack. Psyduck tilted its head and looked back at Daimubai. Seeing this, Daimubai sneered disdainfully. With just a mere duck, what kind of combat power could it possibly have? This Ning Rongrong must be crazy. But the next second, he could no longer laugh. Psyduck held its head with both hands, its eyes suddenly turned blue, and a pale blue light enveloped Daimubai. In an instant, Daimubai felt stiff and unable to move, and his body floated up uncontrollably. This scene was too sudden and completely exceeded everyone's expectations. Even Ning Rongrong was shocked and incredulous. How can it be this strong? Daimubai could not accept this result. He had actually been utterly defeated by a duck. It was simply a great humiliation. However, Psyduck didn't care about his thoughts and directly flung him more than 10 meters away, causing him to crash heavily onto the ground from the air. Even though Daimubai's physical strength was not bad, this fall still made him spit out a mouthful of blood. Quack, quack tilde tilde. After dealing with the enemy, Psyduck immediately hugged Ning Rongrong's thigh, clearly looking like it was asking for credit from its master. At this moment, having witnessed Psyduck's prowess firsthand, Ning Rongrong finally understood why Luzon had said she was lucky. Psyduck was simply too strong. Now, in her eyes, the silly and dazed Psyduck was absolutely adorable. If it hadn't been for Psyduck showing off its power, she likely would have suffered humiliation again. This time, she had finally vented her anger. Not long after, Flender and Zhao Wuji returned to the academy. When they saw the heavily injured Daimubai, they were greatly shocked. In their view, Daimubai rarely had opponents among his peers, so they feared that a powerhouse above the spirit ancestor level had attacked him. But after some questioning, they learned that it was Ning Rongrong who had done it. Precisely because he understood the sequence of events, Flender dared not do anything to Ning Rongrong. After all, it was just a conflict between students. He had no reason to punish Ning Rongrong and could only turn a blind eye. If he chose to intervene, he would inevitably offend the 7-treasure glazed tile school. Although he held a letter from Ning Fengji, this did not mean he could act recklessly. If he chose to favor Daimubai, Ning Fengji would be the first to not let him off. After all, it was Daimubai who had initiated the attack this time. If the 7-treasure glazed tile school learned what had happened, Daimubai would definitely not have an easy time. Although the 7-treasure glazed tile school could not directly kill Daimubai, they could send him to Daiwisi. Therefore, not only could Flender not punish Ning Rongrong, but he also had to try his best to appease her to prevent the 7-treasure glazed tile school from coming to demand an explanation. Inside the female dormitory, Psyduck was surrounded by 3 beautiful girls, enjoying a life that countless men dreamed of. Rongrong, where did you get this Pokeball? Zhu Zuqing asked with a curious expression. Although Psyduck looked very ordinary, even a bit silly, it had easily defeated Daimubai. If she also had a Pokeball, perhaps she could change her fate. I bought it for 100,000 gold coins, Ning Rongrong said nonchalantly. The function of the Pokeball alone was worth 100,000 gold coins, not to mention Psyduck's strength, let alone 100,000 gold coins, even 1 million gold coins would be worth it. 100,000 gold coins. Xiao Wu's eyes widened in shock. She had never seen so much money, and a single gold coin was already enough for her to buy many carrots. Compared to Xiao Wu, Zhu Zuqing was relatively calm. Although the Zhu family could not compare to the 7-treasure glazed tile school, it was still a large family, and she had seen many valuable treasures. However, Zhu Zuqing had fled from her family alone and hadn't brought much money with her, let alone 100,000 gold coins. She couldn't even produce 1,000 gold coins. If you are interested, I can take you there tomorrow. Ning Rongrong held Psyduck in her arms and said to the two with a smile. Hearing this, Zhu Zuqing and Xiao Wu nodded one after another. Although they didn't have that much money, they could go and take a look. Perhaps there were other cheaper treasures. Chapter 4, Martial God Body and the 5 Tiger Generals. Elsewhere, Luzon was cultivating in his room on the 2nd floor. So many years have passed, yet my lord still cultivates with such diligence, it truly commands respect. The speaker was a young general clad in silver armor. Handsome and gallant, imposing and majestic, just standing there, he exuded an aura of lethal intent. However, this silver-armored general did not have a physical body, he was a form of energy. Lu Xan's spirit was quite unique, named Martial God Body. It barely fell into the category of body spirit, possessing a special ability, summoning guardian spirits. For instance, the silver-armored general guarding Lu Xan's side was the renowned ever-victorious general, Zhao Zilong. After over a decade of cultivation, Lu Xan had long since reached the Spirit Emperor realm and could already summon all 5 of the 5 tiger generals. Of course, summoning all 5 guardian spirits at once consumed too much spirit power, and he could not maintain it for very long. In addition to summoning guardian spirits, the martial god body also enhanced Lu Xan's physical constitution. To deal with most Spirit Emperor powerhouses, Lu Xan didn't even need to summon his guardian spirits, he could defeat them with his physical body alone. To date, Lu Xan had not encountered any major crises. Even when facing troublesome enemies, summoning just one guardian spirit was usually enough to resolve it. If he summoned all 5 of the 5 tiger generals at once, he might even be able to deal with Spirit Douluo level powerhouses. Of course, this was only Lu Xan's estimation. Whether he could actually deal with a Spirit Douluo level powerhouse was something only a fight would reveal. After cultivating for a while, Lu Xan slowly opened his eyes and sighed inwardly, finally broke through to level 68. Just 2 more levels of spirit power until I reach Spirit Saint. Among Spirit Master ranks, the Spirit Saint level is a huge watershed. Although there is only 1 Spirit ring difference between a Spirit Emperor and a Spirit Saint, the difference in strength is immense. Because the 7th Spirit ability is the Martial Soul Avatar or the Tool Spirit Avatar, which can greatly enhance combat power. Generally speaking, before a Spirit Saint uses their 7th Spirit ability, their strength is not much greater than a Spirit Emperor's, but once the 7th Spirit ability is used, their stats in all aspects will completely crush a Spirit Emperor. I wonder what my 7th Spirit ability will be. Lu Xan's eyes flickered as he pondered to himself. He couldn't help it, his spirit was just too unique. It was neither a beast spirit nor a tool spirit, and it wasn't even entirely a body spirit. The next day. Inside Shrek Academy, after Tang San and the others finished breakfast, they immediately gathered on the playground. After waiting for a full quarter of an hour, Flender finally appeared slowly before everyone. Flender's gaze first landed on Ning Rongrong. Because Ning Rongrong had been too ruthless, Daimubai was still recuperating. This Ning Rongrong was simply a huge headache. Even so, as long as Ning Rongrong didn't leave on her own, Flender couldn't force her to leave. Moreover, Ning Rongrong's 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda was a top-tier support system spirit, which was crucial for the team and far beyond what Oscar could compare to. Although Oscar had innate full spirit power, it didn't have much use in the early stages. In fact, most of what Flender had said earlier to belittle Ning Rongrong was just sophistry, but Ning Rongrong was inexperienced in the world and had immediately broken down. Flender's gaze swept over the others, but he didn't find Oscar. Where is Oscar? Is he sleeping in again? When I came out this morning, he was still cultivating. Perhaps he entered a deep meditation and couldn't wake up in time, Tang San hurriedly explained. Hearing this, Flender frowned. Today's class cannot be held without him. Tang San, go call him. Just then, Oscar rushed over from the direction of the dorms, looking excited. Dean, I've broken through to level 30. What? Everyone, including Flender, showed expressions of surprise. Reaching level 30 spirit power at 14 years old was undoubtedly a sign of a top-tier genius. Moreover, food system spirits were the hardest type to cultivate. This speed of cultivation was already quite exaggerated. After some congratulations, Flender began to announce today's lesson, consuming the sausages made by Oscar. To put it nicely, this was to train the students' psychological resilience. To put it bluntly, Shrek Academy didn't have any proper curriculum at all. They claimed to only recruit monster students, but in reality, there was no decent training environment. It was purely a free-range style of teaching. As for whether one could become a powerhouse, that depended entirely on one's individual talent. To put it bluntly, these students would receive key training at any high-level Spirit Master Academy, and staying at Shrek Academy was a total waste of talent. Even Zhu Zuqing, who had the least talent, had cultivated to level 27 before the age of 12. In terms of cultivation speed alone, she was even superior to Yu Tianong. It was strange, though, as the most outstanding young Spirit Master of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan, Yu Tianong had at least innate level 7 spirit power, yet his cultivation speed was abysmal. At 20 years old, his spirit power was only level 39, which really didn't befit such a powerful spirit as the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon. Back to the main topic. A Bush League Academy like Shrek Academy, which had nothing and could not provide any resources to students, did not deserve to claim it only recruited monster students. After all, a genius can shine anywhere, while Bush League Academies can only rely on geniuses to increase their reputation. From this point of view, Flender was essentially the same as Yu Xiaogang. Soon, Oscar chanted 2 spirit incantations and summoned a thick and a thin sausage, then chuckled and said, "Who's first?" Everyone looked at each other. Finally, Ning Rongrong took a step forward and took the 2 sausages. Seeing Ning Rongrong step forward voluntarily, Flender was a bit surprised. Could he have misjudged her? However, Ning Rongrong did not follow his instructions. Instead, she fed both sausages to Psyduck. Seeing this scene, Oscar felt a strange sense of frustration. Seeing this, Flender frowned deeply and said with dissatisfaction, "Ning Rongrong, I told you to consume them yourself, not to feed them to your pet. Psyduck is my partner. What's the problem with giving it food?" Regarding Flender's accusation, Ning Rongrong looked indifferent, and even retorted righteously. Hearing this, Flender's face darkened, but he couldn't find a reason to refute her. After all, the combat power of this duck was indeed not low, even Daimubai was no match for it. With no other choice, Flender could only turn his focus to the others. Under his urging, Tang San and the others successfully ate the sausages. After everyone finished eating the sausages, today's class was over. Since Oscar had broken through to level 30, the matter of helping him hunt for a spirit ring was scheduled for tomorrow, with Zhao Wuji in charge of leading the team. "Little San, I'm going shopping with Rongrong and Zuqing, so I'll be leaving first," Xiao Wu said with a giggle. Hearing this, Tang San frowned, but didn't say much, just nodded. After all, it was just best friends going shopping. As a man, it wasn't appropriate for him to stop them. After saying goodbye to Tang San, Xiao Wu immediately caught up with Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing, and the 3 of them left the academy together. Chapter 5. Treasure sufficient to subvert the Spirit Master's world. After leaving Shrek Academy, Ning Rongrong brought Zhu Zuqing and Xiao Wu through several streets and finally arrived in front of the strange treasure shop. At this moment, Lu Xan had just opened the shop, and when he saw the 3 young girls walking towards him, he couldn't help but show a look of astonishment. Besides Ning Rongrong, whom he had seen yesterday, the appearances and clothing of the other two were also very striking. One of them was wearing tight black leather clothing, with a figure that was astonishingly developed, definitely at the level where she couldn't see her own toes when looking down, and her cold, beautiful face carried a hint of aloofness. Without a doubt, she was Zhu Zuqing. The other one had a long scorpion braid, a tall figure, and even at such a young age, she already had a pair of long legs. Her identity was self-evident. She was the 100,000-year-old hooligan rabbit, Xiao Wu. Lu Zhan felt a trace of surprise in his heart, not expecting Ning Rongrong to bring them along. Boss, I'm back again. Ning Rongrong walked into the shop with a grin, her face filled with undisguised excitement. Thanks to the Pokeball you sold me, I vented my anger last night, and I feel much better now. Hearing this, a faint, wicked smile curled the corners of Lu Zhan's mouth. He could roughly guess what had happened. Given Dai Mubai's unscrupulous personality, it wasn't strange that he dared to make a move on Ning Rongrong. However, now that Ning Rongrong had Psyduck, she was no longer a weak support system spirit master who couldn't even trust a chicken. Although Psyduck looked silly, its petrification and telekinesis were simply unsolvable existences for a spirit elder. Therefore, Dai Mubai had most likely been given a harsh lesson. That was just your good luck, it doesn't have much to do with me. Lu Zhan said in a flat tone, if you really want to thank me, why not buy 2 more? As long as he sold 3 items, he could get a chance at a lucky draw. Hearing this, Ning Rongrong lowered her head and thought for a moment, then nodded earnestly, I did indeed intend to buy another Pokeball this time. Although 100,000 gold coins was not a small amount, compared to the value of the Pokeball, it was completely worth it. With Psyduck, she was no longer that support system spirit master who needed to be protected at all times. This feeling of possessing power was simply too wonderful. Lu Zhan nodded slightly, then looked at Zhu Zuqing and Xiao Wu, and asked, and you too? Actually, he knew without asking that they certainly couldn't afford that much money, but as the boss, he still had to ask. Sure enough, both of them shook their heads. We just came to take a look. As soon as she finished speaking, a look of embarrassment appeared on Zhu Zuqing's cold, beautiful face. Xiao Wu, on the other hand, was completely indifferent. She was a 100,000-year spirit beast in human form and didn't have much concept of money, having followed along purely out of curiosity. At this moment, Ning Rongrong suddenly thought of something, her eyes lit up, and she immediately leaned in front of Lu Zhan, her breath like orchids. Boss, besides the Pokeball, do you have any other things? Of course, the Pokeball is just the cheapest type. As soon as these words were spoken, the 3 of them were instantly stunned. If even the cheapest one cost 100,000 gold coins, wouldn't the more expensive ones cost millions of gold coins? After recovering, Ning Rongrong asked impatiently, can you show them to us? Zhu Zuqing and Xiao Wu on the side also cast expectant gazes. Seeing this, Lu Zhan didn't say much and simply snapped his fingers. The next moment, 3 items appeared out of thin air on the counter, a medicinal pill, a card, and a scroll. Under their gaze, Lu Zhan introduced, this pill is called the Soul Power Pill. After a spirit master below level 60 consumes it, they can increase their spirit power by 1 to 2 levels, and it is worth 300,000 gold coins. The second item is called the Martial Soul Enhancement Scroll. After using it, one can enhance their spirit once, and there is a chance it could cause the spirit to evolve. It is worth 1 million gold coins. The third is a skill book. After using it, one can learn a skill, which is what is known as a self-created spirit ability. It is worth 2 million gold coins. Upon hearing this introduction, the minds of Ning Rongrong and the others went blank, and they were unable to speak for a long time. What shocked them was not just the price, but more so the effects of these treasures. If the effects were all true, if any one of these items were taken out, it would probably cause the entire Spirit Master's world to go crazy with competition. For Ning Rongrong, this price was actually somewhat cheap. Especially the enhancement scroll that could make a spirit evolve. If her 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda spirit evolved into a 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda, then her cultivation limit would cease to exist. Never mind 1 million gold coins, even if it cost 10 times that, it would be worth it. However, she didn't have that much money on her right now. This was the most painful part. The treasures were right in front of her, yet she could only watch them. This feeling was simply agonizing. After a moment, Ning Rongrong bit her red lips, suddenly stepped forward, hugged Lu Zhan's arm, and said coquettishly in a voice so sweet it was cloying, "Boss, can you give me a discount?" For a spirit master, the temptation of these 3 treasures was simply too great, enough to make the proud Ning Rongrong set aside all her reserve. Besides, Lu Zhan's appearance wasn't bad either, with regular features and sharp, well-defined contours. He was definitely a handsome man, so she wasn't being taken advantage of. Seeing this scene, Zhu Zuqing and Xiao Wu looked at each other. Was this still the little witch from before? Actually, they also wanted these treasures, but the problem was, they couldn't afford them at all. Even with a discount, they couldn't afford them. Zhu Zuqing gently pursed her red lips, her gaze fixed tightly on the 3 treasures on the counter, her beautiful eyes rarely revealing a hint of burning desire. If she could obtain these 3 treasures, her strength would definitely increase significantly. Facing Ning Rongrong's pestering, Lu Zhan remained unmoved, saying firmly, "This is already the lowest price, it might even go up in a few days." Seeing Lu Zhan being so unyielding, Ning Rongrong was furious, let go of his arm, and stomped her foot. She was the eldest young lady of the 7 treasure glazed tile school, and in terms of looks, she was a 1 in a million beautiful girl. This guy wasn't moved at all. Could it be that this guy doesn't like women? Since this path wouldn't work, she only had one option left, which was to ask her family for money. Moreover, for such shocking treasures, she had to inform her sect. She believed her father would definitely be interested. At this moment, Ning Rongrong suddenly remembered that they still had to go hunt for a spirit ring tomorrow, and said earnestly, "Boss, we might be leaving for a few days, don't secretly raise the prices." "That depends on my mood." Lu Zhan shrugged, giving an ambiguous answer. Hearing this perfunctory reply, Ning Rongrong was instantly furious. This guy was definitely doing it on purpose. Ning Rongrong glared fiercely at Lu Zhan, took a deep breath, and immediately took out her black card from her spirit tool, saying, "I want all 3 of these treasures, this 100,000 gold coins is the deposit." Before coming, Ning Rongrong had originally planned to buy another Pokeball, but after seeing these more precious treasures, she temporarily gave up on that idea. As long as she didn't encounter a very powerful enemy, Psyduck was already enough to protect her. "Fine, I'll hold them for you for at most half a month." Lu Zhan agreed reluctantly. Seeing Ning Rongrong's intention to buy everything, Zhu Zuqing felt incredibly envious, her gaze unable to help but look at the 3 treasures on the counter, her cold, beautiful eyes filled with longing. Chapter 6, Dai Mubai's Powerless Rage, the Crafty Flender. It was not until the afternoon that Ning Rongrong and the other 2 returned to Shrek Academy. Shortly after they returned to the academy, a figure hurried up to meet them. It was Tang San, who had been waiting for a long time. Seeing that the three of them had finally returned, he first breathed a sigh of relief, then his gaze fell on Xiao Wu, and he asked, "Where did you go? Why are you back so late?" Xiao Wu's face still retained an excited flush. Hearing this, she said with a grin, "We went to a great place. It was truly eye-opening, so we spent a little extra time there." A great place. Tang San frowned slightly. This didn't seem like Xiao Wu's style. He had lived with Xiao Wu for 6 years and knew her preferences all too well. Xiao Wu did indeed like shopping, but she was only ever interested in two things, delicious food and beautiful clothes. As for anything else, it was hard to get her this excited. Moreover, Tang San rarely saw that look of awe and longing in Xiao Wu's eyes. It couldn't be some strange place, could it? Thinking of this, an inexplicable sense of unease welled up in Tang San's heart. He did not want to see Xiao Wu having intimate contact with other men. After all, Xiao Wu was simple-minded. If she encountered some smooth-talking guy, she might be led around by the nose, and the possibility of her being lured away could not be ruled out. Once this thought popped up, Tang San could no longer suppress it. He took a deep breath and tried to remain calm as he said, "Xiao Wu, if you go to that place again next time, let me accompany you." Okay. Xiao Wu did not know that Tang San had thought so much and agreed without hesitation. Just at this moment, the door to the boys' dormitory balcony was suddenly pushed open, and Dai Mubai walked out of the room. After a day of recuperation, his injuries had basically recovered. Dai Mubai had originally wanted to catch some fresh air, but he saw the group chatting and laughing not far away, and Zhu Zuqing happened to be standing next to Ning Rongrong. Seeing this scene, Dai Mubai felt the nameless anger shoot up instantly. Last night, he had been completely crushed by that damn duck, which was simply a huge humiliation. He had thought that Ning Rongrong would be punished, but he hadn't expected the dean and the others to turn a blind eye to the matter, with no intention of standing up for him at all. As a dignified prince of the Star Luo Empire, when had he ever suffered such stifling anger? That might have been fine, but what he couldn't tolerate most was that Zhu Zuqing was clearly his fiancée, yet she was so close to Ning Rongrong. How was that any different from betraying him? In an instant, Dai Mubai could no longer suppress the anger in his heart and roared, "Zhu Zuqing, you had better recognize your own status." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present was stunned. Was this guy in a powerless rage? Regarding Dai Mubai's sudden reaction, Ning Rongrong blinked, and a playful arc slowly curled at the corner of her lips. Facing Dai Mubai's rebuke, there was not the slightest fluctuation on Zhu Zuqing's face, as if Dai Mubai's words had nothing to do with her. She returned to the girls' dormitory without saying a word. Seeing this, Dai Mubai was so angry that his whole body trembled, and the veins on his clenched fists bulged. "Zhu Zuqing, you just wait." Watching the conflict between the two intensify, a flash of cunning light passed through Ning Rongrong's eyes. She seemed to have thought of a good idea. Immediately, Ning Rongrong turned and walked toward the girls' dormitory. After this commotion by Dai Mubai, the others also lost their mood and dispersed. Early the next morning, led by Zhao Wuji, the group set off for the Stardo Great Forest. Although there were quite a few conflicts within the team, on the surface, it was relatively harmonious. After being taught a lesson by the Psyduck, Dai Mubai had restrained himself a lot. Meanwhile, a thin, gaunt figure quietly appeared outside the strange treasure shop. The person who arrived was none other than Flender. Yesterday, when Ning Rongrong and the other two left the academy, he had quietly followed behind. If he hadn't guessed wrong, the fact that Ning Rongrong suddenly had an extra powerful pet was likely related to this shop. A moment later, Flender strode in. After examining the furnishings in the shop, his gaze turned to the young man lying on the wooden chair, and he asked, "Boss, what do you sell here?" Hearing the voice, Lu Zhan looked up. Standing outside the counter was a middle-aged man with a thin, gaunt build, a somewhat protruding chin, and a hooked nose, giving him a very crafty appearance. If there were no surprises, this guy should be the dean of Shrek Academy, Flender. Famous classic quote, "A spirit master who dares not cause trouble is not a good spirit master." Although he didn't have a good impression of him, Lu Zhan still stood up and casually reminded him, "The cheapest thing I sell costs 100,000 gold coins. Are you sure you want to buy 100,000 gold coins?" Flender's eye twitched, and he couldn't help but curse inwardly. "Good fellow, you're even more unscrupulous than me." Although he was a spirit saint powerhouse and also the dean of an academy, in reality, he was dirt poor, struggling even to maintain daily expenses. Never mind 100,000 gold coins, he couldn't even come up with 10,000 gold coins. Even though he couldn't afford it, Flender still feigned a calm appearance and said nonchalantly, "Take it out and let me see it first, then I'll decide whether to buy it or not." Hearing this, Lu Zhan frowned slightly, but he was too lazy to say anything and produced a Pokeball out of thin air. Seeing this item, Flender's pupils shrank violently, and a storm surged in his heart. Indeed. It was exactly the same as that thing in Ning Rongrong's hands. It was bought from here. Such a small thing could actually subdue a spirit beast whose strength crushed a spirit elder. This was definitely a top-tier spirit tool never seen before. The price of 100,000 gold coins was actually reasonable. If this thing were taken to an auction house, the price would probably multiply several times over. But the problem was, he simply couldn't come up with that much money. A moment later, Flender feigned a knowledgeable appearance and said righteously, "Boss, I've heard of this spirit tool of yours. Although it's rarely seen on the market, selling it for 100,000 gold coins is a bit too unscrupulous, isn't it?" Hearing this, Lu Zhan was taken aback, but he quickly reacted. This profiteer was trying to scam him. A mocking arc curled at the corner of Lu Zhan's mouth, and he sneered, "If you can't afford it, then get lost. Don't puff yourself up just to look like a big shot here. You." Facing the mockery of a young man, Flender's face turned as red as pig's liver. He was a dignified spirit saint powerhouse, one of the former Golden Triangle, the Flying Horn, and he was being humiliated like this by a mere brat. This brat, he simply didn't know whether he was courting death. Although the anger in his heart was blazing, Flender did not lose his rationality. As a seasoned veteran who had spent many years in the Jianggu, he would not make a move casually. Moreover, he hadn't figured out this guy's background yet. From the moment he entered the shop until now, he had been probing the other party's cultivation, but he had never been able to discern the specific cultivation level. But one thing was certain, the other party had at least the cultivation of a spirit king. A spirit king around 20 years old was undoubtedly a top-tier genius, a rarity across the entire continent, even Dai Mubai couldn't compare. Furthermore, the other party dared to take out such a treasure for sale, how could he not have a background? Chapter 7, Attracting the Attention of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. Boss, business is all about harmony and making money. If you do business like this, no matter how good your items are, they won't sell. After a pause, Flender's eyes darted around, and he immediately put on a smiling face, suggesting, I understand business better than you do. Why don't you let me help you sell them? Just give me 30% of the profits. Hearing Flender's shameless statement, Luzon couldn't help but laugh out loud, looking at him as if he were a fool. He opened his mouth and immediately wanted a share of the pie. His hide was thicker than a city wall. Luzon waved his hand and said impatiently, Get lost, don't waste my time. Hearing this, Flender's face turned ashen. Since the other party had spoken to this extent without leaving any room for negotiation, if he didn't leave, he would just be asking for humiliation. However, as a profiteer who only saw money, how could he be willing to miss out on such treasures? With just a little manipulation, this Pokeball could definitely be sold at an astronomical price. People would even scramble to buy it for hundreds of thousands of gold coins. However, this guy remained completely indifferent, as if he had no interest in money at all. In reality, Luzon was very clear about the value of the Pokeball and knew it could definitely be sold for an even higher price. Just the technology of capturing spirit beasts alone would be enough to cause a huge sensation. However, with the current technological level of the continent, it was impossible to develop a Pokeball. Even taking a step back, even if one were lucky enough to develop one, it would only be the most ordinary Pokeball, and it would be extremely difficult to use it to capture spirit beasts. After all, spirit beasts are different from Pokemon and have great hostility towards humans. Because of this, it was reasonable to trade 100,000 gold coins for a Pokeball. One might draw a powerful Pokemon, or it might be a weakling with no combat ability. Looking at the calm and composed young boss in front of him, Flender's expression shifted uncertainly. He had thought about using force, but since he hadn't figured out the other party's background yet, it was better to be cautious. Boss, this is a business with huge profits for a small investment. I can cooperate with you at any time. Dropping this sentence, Flender turned and strode away. Watching that thin, gaunt back disappear at the end of the street, Luzon sneered and lay back down on his chair. Inside the main hall of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. Ning Fengji quickly finished reading the letter sent by Ning Rongrong, his expression shifting from indifference to shocking disbelief. Mainly because the content was too shocking. A Pokeball that captures spirit beasts, a soul power pill that increases levels, a martial soul enhancement scroll that has a chance to evolve a spirit, and a skill book that allows the user to master a self-created spirit ability. No matter which treasure was made public, it would cause a huge sensation. Even though Ning Fengji was knowledgeable, he had never heard of these treasures, and he even suspected that his daughter was joking with him. However, Ning Fengji knew his daughter's personality very well. If she hadn't encountered something truly important, how could she have written back so quickly? From this, it was evident that the content of the letter was likely true. A moment later, Ning Fengji suppressed the tumultuous waves in his heart, slowly raised his head, and looked at the 2 old men on his left and right. Uncle Sword, Uncle Bone, what do you think? These 2 old men were the pillars of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School, Sword Douluo Chenshin and Bone Douluo Jiyurong. One was level 96, the other level 95. This was the foundation of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School as the second greatest sect on the entire continent. Fengji, if the treasures Rongrong mentioned are all true, we must buy them first, Sword Douluo said without hesitation. The old sword man is right. These treasures are too precious. If other forces get to them first, it will be a huge loss, Bone Douluo said in a deep voice. Hearing this, Ning Fengji nodded slightly, a sharp light flashing in his eyes. Actually, what I care about most is that martial soul enhancement scroll. Once these words were spoken, Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo looked at each other. They naturally understood what Ning Fengji meant. The 7 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda is known as the world's #1 support system spirit, but it has a fatal flaw. It can only be cultivated to a 7-ring spirit saint at most, and it can never break through to an 8-ring spirit Douluo. Many years ago, Ning Fengji's cultivation had already stagnated at level 79, and he had been unable to break through the bottleneck until now. This is the shackle of the spirit itself, which simply cannot be broken. Now, an opportunity that might break this shackle was right in front of him. How could Ning Fengji not be excited? As long as the defect of the spirit is resolved, he will definitely be able to break through to level 80. By then, his support capabilities will be greatly improved. With his amplification, the strength of Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo will increase significantly, and the sect will usher in a qualitative leap. Fengji, why don't I accompany you on a trip to Soto City? Sword Douluo proactively suggested. However, Ning Fengji slowly shook his head and said solemnly, no, according to the letter, Rongrong has already made an agreement with that shop owner and even paid 100,000 gold coins as a deposit. If we visit rashly, it might instead cause the shop owner to feel resentment. After a pause, Ning Fengji said in a calm and firm tone, let's leave this matter to Rongrong. It is more appropriate for her to handle it than us. Hearing this, Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo nodded one after another. This was indeed the safest way to do it. After discussing this matter securely, Sword Douluo changed the subject and said, that Shrek Academy is clearly a backyard school. Fengji, are you really at ease leaving Rongrong there to study? Before Ning Fengji could reply, Bone Douluo, who was on the side, also spoke up. The spirit saint previously sent to secretly protect Rongrong has already sent word that Rongrong has been bullied at the academy and someone even laid hands on her. Rongrong is just a support system spirit master. By the end, there was already a clear hint of anger in Bone Douluo's voice. A level 37 attack system battle spirit elder actually laid hands on a support system spirit grandmaster. This was clearly bullying others by relying on one's power, and it also showed no regard for the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. Hearing the statements of the 2 elders, Ning Fengji was silent for a moment, a trace of helplessness appearing on his face. Of course he knew about these things. But if one had to say it, these were just conflicts between students, and what's more, Ning Rongrong hadn't suffered any losses. In the sect, Ning Rongrong was the little princess. She had whatever she wanted, and no one dared to defy her will, which was how she developed the personality of a little witch. A few days ago, when Ning Rongrong snuck out of the sect, he didn't stop her because he wanted to use this opportunity to temper Ning Rongrong's character. Moreover, with a spirit saint secretly protecting her, Ning Rongrong would not be in any danger at all. Uncle Sword, Uncle Bone, this is just a minor conflict. If she had really encountered trouble, Rongrong would have complained in the letter long ago. Ning Fengji said in a gentle tone. Hearing this, Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo were instantly speechless. Actually, thinking about it again, Ning Rongrong staying in Soto City also had one advantage, that was to get closer to that shop owner, and perhaps she could buy more shocking treasures. Fine, fine. Sword Douluo waved his hand, his sharpness exposed in an instant, and he said in a deep voice, but I'll say the ugly words first. If Rongrong gets bullied again in the future, I will be the first one to go and tear down Shrek Academy. Bone Douluo on the side was equally unwilling to be outdone. I am not one to be trifled with either. Looking at the two elders' protective behavior, Ning Fengji was amused and helpless and could only nod and agree. Chapter 8. The astonishing effect of the soul power pill. A few days later, Zhao Wuji and his group returned to Shrek Academy. After traveling for a full day, everyone was exhausted and returned to their dorms to rest. Only Ning Rongrong looked excited, her beautiful eyes sparkling with impatience. There was not a trace of exhaustion on her face. As soon as she returned to Soto City, she had already received the money her father had sent. A total of 3.2 million gold coins. This amount was already quite exaggerated, enough to drive countless spirit masters crazy. However, for the immensely wealthy 7 treasure glazed tile school, this amount of money was nothing. It was just enough for Ning Fengji to buy a few fewer furry maids. After getting the money, Ning Rongrong didn't want to wait a single moment longer. However, just as she was about to go to the strange treasure shop alone, she was stopped by Zhu Zuqing and Xiao Wu, who were also interested in those treasures. Besides them, Tang San also followed along. Just then, Ma Hongjun was preparing to go to the brothel to vent his evil fire, when he suddenly saw the 4 of them leaving the academy together, and a trace of doubt arose in his heart. What are they doing in the city? Ma Hongjun frowned, turned around, and ran toward the boys' dormitory to tell Dai Mubai about this. Dai Mubai, who had originally been planning something, sat up from his bed immediately upon hearing this news. Because of Ning Rongrong's interference, his relationship with Zhu Zuqing had not only failed to improve but had instead become even worse. On the way to the Stardew Great Forest this time, he had tried several times to find Zhu Zuqing to clear things up. But the result was that every time, Ning Rongrong ruined it. Yet he could do nothing about Ning Rongrong. That brat's abilities were simply unfathomable, actually able to control his body from a distance, making it impossible to defend against. Let's go, follow them. Without time to think, Dai Mubai grabbed his jacket and hurriedly chased after them with Ma Hongjun. Inside the strange treasure shop, Lu Zan was still lying leisurely on the wooden chair, looking like a hermit who had no desire for worldly things. Boss. A crisp voice broke the tranquility. Ning Rongrong rushed forward, grabbed Lu Zan's arm, and pulled him up from the chair, saying urgently. Where are the 3 treasures I asked you to keep for me? They're still here, right? Her voice was clearly filled with worry, and her beautiful eyes were fixed tightly on Lu Zan, fearing she might hear bad news from him. Those 3 items were rare treasures that one could encounter but not seek. If someone else bought them first, she would probably regret it for the rest of her life. Lu Zan was shaken dizzy, opened his sleepy eyes, and glared at her irritably. Let go. Ning Rongrong realized she had been too excited, her pretty face flushed slightly, and she hurriedly let go, but her gaze remained fixed on him. Seeing Ning Rongrong's eager appearance, a trace of doubt arose in Tang San's heart. What exactly was it that could make Ning Rongrong care so much? Lu Zan stretched, snapped his fingers lightly, and the 3 treasures suddenly appeared on the counter. At the same time, Xiao Wu carefully introduced the information about the 3 treasures to Tang San. After hearing this, Tang San could no longer remain calm, his face was full of shock and disbelief. There was actually such a magical treasure. If this shopkeeper wasn't faking it, the effects of this level of treasure were absolutely not inferior to an immortal herb. However, the minimum price of 100,000 gold coins was simply not something an ordinary person could afford. With his current savings, he couldn't even afford the cheapest one. At this moment, Ning Rongrong quickly took out a black card, handed it to Lu Zan, and said seriously, there are 3.2 million in this card. Including the 100,000 deposit I gave you before, it's enough to buy them all. 3.2 million gold coins. Hearing this number, even Tang San, who had lived 2 lifetimes, couldn't help but gasp. Xiao Wu, standing to the side, also widened her eyes, counted on her fingers for a long time, and finally muttered, how many carats could this buy? Which one do you want to use first? Lu Zan said calmly. Hearing this, Ning Rongrong swept her gaze across the counter and finally landed on the soul power pill. Let's try this pill first. As she finished speaking, she took the soul power pill in her hand, a trace of hesitation flashing in her beautiful eyes. This pill looked unremarkable. What if this guy was trying to fool her with an inferior pill? This thought had just appeared before she extinguished it. For some reason, she believed from the bottom of her heart that Lu Zan was not that kind of person. After all, Lu Zan had helped her last time. Moreover, she had the 7 treasure glazed tile school behind her, and Lu Zan shouldn't dare to offend the 7 treasure glazed tile school. After taking a deep breath, Ning Rongrong put the soul power pill into her mouth. The pill melted as soon as it entered her mouth, turning into a warm stream of energy that surged into her body. Immediately afterward, that energy burst open, spreading along her meridians to her limbs and bones. The spirit power in her whole body seemed to be ignited, circulating crazily. In just a few breaths, Ning Rongrong felt the spirit power within her rising steadily. Level 27. Level 28. She actually broke through 2 levels of spirit power at once. When she opened her eyes again, her beautiful eyes were filled with disbelief, and she was completely stunned. I broke through to level 28. After a long while, Ning Rongrong finally came back to her senses, looking at her hands, her voice trembling. This is too fast. It saved over half a year of time. Zhu Zuqing and Xiao Wu, standing to the side, watched with envy, and even the usually steady Tang San couldn't help but be moved. Previously, he had been skeptical about the effects of the treasures, but after seeing Ning Rongrong's breakthrough with his own eyes, his heart suddenly became heated. Although he didn't really need a soul power pill, his teacher did. If his teacher took a soul power pill, perhaps he could break through the bottleneck that had plagued him for many years and reach level 30 in one go, solving a long-standing illness of the heart. Thinking of this, Tang San couldn't help but ask, Boss, do you still have any soul power pills? Lu Zan glanced at Tang San, a hint of playfulness in his gaze. In all fairness, his impression of Tang San was not good. After all, this guy had many bizarre actions in the original work. Once something went against his principles, it was directly already on the path to death. But then again, the current Tang San was not too outrageous. At most, he was a bit double standard. After all, Tang San came from the Tang sect, and his way of conducting himself was naturally different from normal people. Plus, with the influence of Yu Xiaogang and Shrek Academy, it was normal for him to go more and more astray. That said, Tang San was for now a customer with great potential, and Lu Zan would not insist on going against him. I do indeed have a little stock left, Lu Zan replied with a normal expression. Hearing this, a flash of joy crossed Tang San's eyes, and he hurriedly asked, Boss, can I reserve a soul power pill? Yes, but you need to pay a deposit of 3,000 gold coins. Hearing this amount, Tang San's expression froze on his face instantly, and he coughed lightly in embarrassment. His savings amounted to only a few hundred gold coins at most, and he simply couldn't come up with that much money. It looked like he had to get his hands on a sum of money as soon as possible. For Tang San, making money was not difficult. After all, he held the technology to manufacture hidden weapons, and as long as he manufactured a batch of hidden weapons, selling them for 1,000,000 gold coins would not be a problem. Chapter 9. Evolution of the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda into the 8 treasures glazed pagoda. Shortly after, Ning Rongrong stood up from the ground, a heartfelt smile appearing on her face. Soon, she suppressed the excitement in her heart and turned her gaze to another item, the martial soul enhancement scroll. Compared to the soul power pill in the skill book, what she cared about most was whether the martial soul enhancement scroll was effective. If the martial soul enhancement scroll could truly allow her spirit to evolve, it would naturally resolve the flaws of the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda spirit. In this way, her future achievements would not be limited to level 79. However, there was only one martial soul enhancement scroll. If she used it now, what would happen to her father? Ning Rongrong's eyes rolled, and she looked up at Lu Zan, asking, "Boss, you should still have stock of this martial soul enhancement scroll, right?" Lu Zan did not answer, but instead conjured 2 martial soul enhancement scrolls out of thin air, placing them on the counter. They were identical to the previous one. Seeing this, Ning Rongrong instantly had an idea and said without hesitation, "Then I won't take the skill book, swap it for 2 martial soul enhancement scrolls instead." For her, the martial soul enhancement scroll was more important than the skill book. At the end of the day, she was just a spirit master of the support system. Even if she learned a self-created spirit ability, it wouldn't increase her strength much, so it was more practical to trade for 2 martial soul enhancement scrolls. Moreover, their 7 treasure glazed tile school already possessed heart separation control, so there was no need to put the cart before the horse. Alright, Lu Zan agreed readily. Next, Ning Rongrong asked how to use the martial soul enhancement scroll. Under Lu Zan's guidance, she immediately summoned her 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda spirit and then placed the martial soul enhancement scroll on it. The moment the scroll touched the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda, a soft white light suddenly bloomed, turning into specks of starlight that merged into the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda. As the white light gradually dissipated, Ning Rongrong watched with her own eyes as her spirit underwent a change. 1 layer, 2 layers, 3 layers. Ning Rongrong held her breath and focused as she counted how many layers there were. When she reached the 8th layer, her pupils suddenly widened, and a crazed, joyful smile bloomed on her face. Although it was only 1 extra layer, this proved that the martial soul enhancement scroll was indeed effective. Since the limit of the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda was level 79, the limit of the 8 treasures glazed pagoda naturally became level 89. Congratulations, Rongrong. Xiao Wu was the first to pounce over, hugging Ning Rongrong's arm. As for Tang San and Zhu Zuqing, they looked at Ning Rongrong with envy, their hearts filled with mixed feelings. Before, they didn't think money was that important. But now, they had changed this thought and felt from the bottom of their hearts that it was truly good to have money. Ning Rongrong was not carried away by joy. She steadied herself, looked up at Lu Zan, and asked, "Boss, can this thing be used repeatedly?" "It can." Upon hearing this, Ning Rongrong hesitated for a moment, then picked up another martial soul enhancement scroll and placed it on the 8 treasures glazed pagoda again. Since the first time had evolved the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda into the 8 treasures glazed pagoda, the second time should be able to evolve it into the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda, completely resolving the spirit's flaw. However, this time did not fulfill Ning Rongrong's wish. The spirit remained the 8 treasures glazed pagoda and had not evolved into the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda. Did it fail? Ning Rongrong looked at Lu Zan with a blank expression, her eyes filled with confusion and disappointment. Lu Zan shook his head and explained, "The enhancement was successful, but it did not reach the point of evolution. A second evolution is a bit difficult, it will likely require a few more enhancements." "So that's how it is." Ning Rongrong breathed a sigh of relief, and the disappointment on her face vanished instantly. Looking at the only remaining martial soul enhancement scroll in her hand, she hesitated for a moment before choosing to put it into her storage spirit tool, intending to give it to her father to use. After all, enhancing it one more time might not necessarily allow the spirit to evolve. Once her father's spirit evolved, he should be able to break through to level 80 in one go, and he would surely give her more money when he was happy. Thinking of this, Ning Rongrong looked up at Lu Zan, her beautiful eyes sparkling with curiosity, and said with a smile, "Boss, I've bought so many things from you, shouldn't you tell me your name? And why are you selling these treasures?" As her voice fell, the gazes of Tang San and Xiao Wu were also cast in unison toward Lu Zan. This question also aroused their curiosity. Even the usually cold Zhu Zuqing looked straight at Lu Zan at this moment, a hint of an unusual expression appearing in her beautiful eyes. This strange treasure shop might just be the opportunity to change her destiny. Facing the 4 people's gaze, Lu Zan pondered for a moment, then said in a calm tone, "My name is Lu Zan, and like you, I am also a spirit master. As for why I'm selling these things, it's naturally to make money." This was not a lie, doing this was indeed to make money, but Lu Zan could only be considered an employee, and it wasn't that he needed the money. However, he also had corresponding benefits. Now that he had sold 5 items, selling 1 more would grant him 2 lottery chances. "You are a spirit master." Ning Rongrong was stunned for a moment, but quickly recovered, she had vaguely guessed this before. If Lu Zan were just an ordinary person, how could he possibly obtain these shocking treasures? At this time, Tang San was secretly sizing up Lu Zan. He quietly activated his purple demon eye, attempting to peek at the other party's cultivation. However, no matter how he probed, he could not see Lu Zan's specific cultivation level, but he could be certain that the other party's cultivation was far above his own. By the looks of it, Lu Zan should be a few years older than them, at most in his early 20s. If nothing unexpected happened, this person was at least a strong practitioner above the level of a spirit ancestor, perhaps even higher. Just as everyone was curious about Lu Zan's cultivation, 2 figures rushed over from the distance. They were none other than Dai Mubai and Ma Hongjun. "What are you doing here?" Dai Mubai said aggressively. When saying this, his gaze fell right on Zhu Zuqing, as if venting his dissatisfaction toward her. Immediately after, his gaze fell on Lu Zan behind the counter. Who was this guy? Just looking at his appearance, he was a handsome guy, but there was not a trace of spirit power fluctuation on his body. He was clearly an ordinary person without cultivation. An ordinary person opening a shop actually made Ning Rongrong and the others so interested. Ning Rongrong had not gotten along with Dai Mubai before, and now hearing his interrogative tone, a bit of anger instantly rose in her heart. She crossed her arms and said coldly, "Dai Mubai, are you stalking us?" "I am not stalking you." Dai Mubai snorted coldly, reached out to point at Zhu Zuqing, and said righteously, "I came for her, it has nothing to do with any of you." Hearing this, Zhu Zuqing's willow leaf eyebrows furrowed slightly, and a hint of dissatisfaction that was hard to conceal appeared on her cold, beautiful face. In this guy's eyes, she seemed more like an object. Thinking back several years ago, Daimubai had fled to the Heaven Do Empire alone, spending his days there indulging in debauchery and seeking pleasure. He had clearly chosen to give up. Now, he was putting on a high and mighty attitude again, coming over to interfere with her freedom. Was there anything more ridiculous than this in the world? Chapter 10, a 20-year-old six-ring spirit emperor, kicking Daimubai away. Sensing the escalating conflict between Daimubai and Zuqing, Ning Rongrong's eyes flickered. She strode over to stand in front of Zuqing, shielding her behind her back. Daimubai, you listen to me carefully. Ning Rongrong puffed out her chest and glared fiercely at Daimubai, her tone firm. Zuqing is my good sister, don't you even think about bullying her. Looking at Ning Rongrong's slender yet firm back, Zuqing was slightly stunned. A warmth she had never felt before quietly welled up in her heart. Apart from her third sister, no one had ever treated her this well, and Ning Rongrong was the second. Seeing this scene, Daimubai's eyes turned bloodshot, his breathing heavy like an ox, and the anger in his chest had almost reached its peak. There was no way Ning Rongrong was being kind. Her reason for protecting Zuqing was clearly to deliberately oppose him. Coupled with the humiliation of being crushed by a duck earlier, Daimubai could no longer suppress his rage. Ning Rongrong. Daimubai roared, his spirit power began to fluctuate violently, and 3 spirit rings appeared, clearly ready to fight at the slightest disagreement. I'm so scared. Watching Daimubai fly into a rage, Ning Rongrong pretended to be very scared, but her face was full of mockery. Just as the atmosphere between the two sides was tense, a calm voice came from inside the shop. A reminder to you all, don't fight in my place. Lu Zan leaned against the counter, clearly not intending to intervene, as long as they didn't damage his little shop. Hearing this, Daimubai was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect an ordinary person without even a hint of spirit power fluctuation to dare meddle in his affairs. What are you, daring to order me around? Daimubai sneered, his tone full of contempt. As a senior student of Shrek Academy, Daimubai carried out the dean's motto to the end. A spirit master who doesn't dare to cause trouble is not a good spirit master, and besides, he had the dean to back him up. Is that so? Lu Zan raised an eyebrow, his gaze suddenly becoming sharp. The next moment, a majestic aura suddenly erupted from his body, and then one spirit ring after another slowly rose from beneath his feet. Yellow, purple, purple, black, black, black. A full 6 spirit rings were floating around Lu Zan, emitting a suffocating sense of oppression. This scene exceeded everyone's expectations. Lu Zan, who wasn't much older than them, was actually a genuine 6-ring spirit emperor. In an instant, the surroundings fell silent. Everyone stared at Lu Zan and the 6 extremely conspicuous spirit rings at his feet, dumbfounded, unable to recover for a long time. Reaching the spirit emperor level at this age was simply beyond their imagination. Generally speaking, being able to cultivate to the spirit ancestor level around the age of 20 was already considered a top genius, cultivating to the spirit king level was rare, and cultivating to the spirit emperor level was completely unheard of. Most importantly, Lu Zan not only had high cultivation, but his spirit ring configuration was also staggering. As everyone knew, the best configuration for the first 6 spirit rings was 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 2 black. However, Lu Zan's second spirit ring was surprisingly 1,000-year one, and his 4th spirit ring had even reached the 10,000-year level, which completely subverted their understanding. Any genius in the past would pale in comparison to him. After a long time, Daimubai finally recovered from his shock. A layer of fine cold sweat had seeped out on his forehead, and his once arrogant face was now filled only with fear and disbelief. Although the dean encouraged them to cause trouble, who could have expected to hit an iron plate this time? As the saying goes, if you walk by the river often enough, you're bound to get your shoes wet. Running into Lu Zan meant Daimubai had used up all his luck. Say, senior. Daimubai swallowed hard, his legs uncontrollably starting to go weak, and he said with a trembling voice, I just now, didn't know, you were a spirit emperor expert. Oh. Lu Zan stared sharply at Daimubai, mocking him slightly. According to you, if I didn't have such high cultivation, you would be free to bully others. As his words fell, an aura as heavy as a mountain slammed down towards Daimubai. Suddenly, Daimubai felt an invisible and terrifying force pressing on his shoulders, and even if he tried his best, he could hardly support it. Bang. With a loud noise, Daimubai knelt heavily on the ground. Lu Zan looked coldly at the kneeling Daimubai, his eyes devoid of any pity. He knew the atmosphere of Shrek Academy clearly. From teachers to students, they all had some faults to varying degrees, and bullying the weak while fearing the strong was carved into their bones. This time, they actually dared to bully him. If it had been a spirit master with lower cultivation, or an ordinary person without cultivation, they would probably have had to let Daimubai bully them. Before obtaining the system, Lu Zan had traveled across the continent for many years. Along the way, he had seen too many spirit masters bullying others, and even villains who robbed and looted. He never went soft when dealing with such people. Boss die. Ma Hongjun exclaimed. His first reaction was to go help, but when he thought about the opponent being a spirit emperor expert, he hesitated again. In the end, he was only a spirit grandmaster, so going over wouldn't help much. Seeing this scene, Tang San showed a hesitant expression, debating whether to step in and help. Although Daimubai caused this trouble, they were classmates after all, and seeing him get handled like this, Tang San felt somewhat unbearable. Moreover, Daimubai was quite straightforward and had helped him a little when he first enrolled. Gritting his teeth, Tang San immediately used Ghost Shadow Perplexing Track, and in the blink of an eye, blocked in front of Daimubai. Then, he cupped his hands at Lu Zan and said in a deep voice, Senior, he is my classmate. He offended you just now, and I apologize to you on his behalf. Lu Zan glanced at Tang San, unmoved, and said, if apologies were useful, what would we need fists for? Hearing this, Tang San was stunned. He didn't expect the other party's attitude to be so firm. After taking a deep breath, Tang San cupped his hands and saluted again, saying seriously, Senior, he was just talking. Hey, this guy is so arrogant and domineering, he must bully others often. After a pause, Lu Zan looked straight at Tang San and asked back, when you bully others, have you ever thought about how innocent they are? As soon as these words came out, Tang San was speechless. Daimubai had really hit an iron plate this time. He had done what he could, and he couldn't provoke a spirit emperor expert for the sake of this little bit of classmate sentiment. Besides, Daimubai had initiated the trouble this time and kicked an iron plate. When they provoked the Kanghui Academy before, the opponent's strength wasn't particularly strong, and with teacher Zhao backing them up, there hadn't been any problems. This time it was different. Lu Zan was by no means an ordinary spirit emperor, and dealing with them was too simple. A moment later, Tang San sighed helplessly and said, Senior, although he said a few offensive words, it's not a crime worthy of serious injury. Please, don't be too heavy-handed. Are you teaching me how to do things? Lu Zon's gaze grew colder. Like a flash of lightning passing by Tang San's side, he suddenly appeared in front of Dai Mubai and kicked him in the waist. Boom. With a loud explosion, Dai Mubai was sent flying like a cannonball, slamming heavily into a wall in the distance. Chapter 11, Ning Rongrong's proactive flattery. Bricks and stones shattered, and dust filled the air. Dai Mubai was almost embedded into the wall. It was unknown how many of his bones had been broken, blood sprayed wildly from his mouth, and his aura instantly withered. To deal with a guy like Dai Mubai, one must make him realize how formidable one is, otherwise, he would definitely push his luck. Previously, Lu Zon had not intended to be too heavy-handed, but since Tang San had provoked him repeatedly, he had used just a little more strength. Seeing this scene, Tang San could not help but sigh. The gap in strength between the two sides was simply too great. Under the premise that the opponent hadn't even used his spirit, Dai Mubai hadn't even managed to withstand a single move. This person's strength was perhaps not below that of Teacher Zhao. Most importantly, Lu Zon looked to be only around 20 years old, yet he had already cultivated to a spirit emperor and possessed such powerful strength. This was a true monster, far stronger than them. At this moment, Tang San felt a complex mix of emotions. At his current cultivation speed, even if he were given 8 years, it would be very difficult to cultivate to a spirit emperor. But then, he thought, if Lu Zon could cultivate so quickly, he had likely consumed quite a few soul power pills. On the other side, Ma Hongjun had just dragged Dai Mubai out from the wall and was intending to carry him back to the academy, but his fat body was truly struggling a bit. Seeing this, Tang San forcibly suppressed his thoughts and joined Ma Hongjun to bring Dai Mubai back. Watching the severely injured Dai Mubai, Ning Rongrong felt not a shred of sympathy, instead, she felt an unprecedented sense of relief. This guy relied on having a bit of strength to frequently cause trouble for others. This time, he had kicked an iron plate and deserved to be severely dealt with. Immediately, a bright smile appeared on Ning Rongrong's face. She walked quickly to Lu Zon and said in a soft voice. Boss, thank you so much for today. I didn't expect you to be so powerful, to actually be a 6-ring spirit emperor. We have never heard of a spirit emperor as young as you. Zhu Zuqing, who was on the side, nodded slightly, effectively agreeing with Ning Rongrong's statement. As for Xiao Wu, she had already been forcibly taken away by Tang San. After all, given that Lu Zon possessed such powerful strength, Tang San really couldn't rest easy leaving Xiao Wu here. If some accident were to happen, he would be too late to regret it. It was just a coincidence. Lu Zon waved his hand and returned to his wooden chair with a calm expression. Seeing this, Ning Rongrong moved with lotus-like steps and proactively came behind Lu Zon to massage him. In the past, when she was in the sect, Ning Rongrong had massaged her father and 2 grandfathers. This was her first time massaging an outsider. Lu Zon felt a trace of surprise at Ning Rongrong's flattery. His first reaction was that Ning Rongrong wanted to win him over. Even if you massage me, I won't give you a discount. Hearing this, Ning Rongrong pinched Lu Zon hard and said irritably, this young lady is personally massaging you, can't you think in a more positive direction? I can't. Seeing Lu Zon's unfeeling reaction, Ning Rongrong looked helpless. This guy was simply her nemesis. In the past, when she was in the sect, countless people wanted to curry favor with her, and no one had ever dared to be so cold to her. Yet, she had no way to deal with this guy. A moment later, Ning Rongrong changed the subject and asked, your talent is so outstanding, are you interested in joining a sect? Don't even think about it, it is impossible for me to join the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. Lu Zon looked up and swept a glance at Ning Rongrong. His tone carried an unprecedented firmness, leaving absolutely no room for negotiation. Hearing this, Ning Rongrong was instantly furious. She hadn't expected Lu Zon to refuse so decisively, her little schemes instantly shattered. By the way, let me give you a warning, Ardeen is a spirit saint expert, and he is rather petty. He might come to cause you trouble. After dropping this sentence, Ning Rongrong left without looking back. Seeing this, Zhu Zuqing quickly followed. Before leaving, she turned back to look at Lu Zon, who was resting with his eyes closed, a strange glint flashing in her beautiful eyes. Sometime later, Tang San and Ma Hongjun brought the unconscious Dai Mubai back to Shrek Academy, just in time to run into Zhao Wuji, who was out for a walk. The moment he saw the severely injured Dai Mubai, Zhao Wuji's expression changed drastically. He strode forward and asked anxiously, what is going on? How is Mubai injured so severely? Facing his teacher's inquiry, Tang San hesitated for a moment before recounting the sequence of events. However, Tang San did not stir up trouble, instead, he recounted it truthfully. Roughly, it was that Dai Mubai had caused a disturbance and was then dealt with by a spirit emperor. Upon hearing that it was a spirit emperor who had acted, Zhao Wuji was instantly enraged and shouted angrily, a mere spirit emperor, yet he dares to bully people from our Shrek Academy. In his view, since the other party was a spirit emperor expert, that was equivalent to being Dai Mubai's senior. To use such a heavy hand against a junior showed just how ruthless this person was. As Dai Mubai's teacher, Zhao Wuji naturally would not sit idly by. He clenched his fists and said sternly, Tang San, where is that shop? I'm going to deal with this guy. Hearing this, Tang San frowned slightly and quickly advised, Teacher Zhao, this person's background is not simple. We had better deliberate on this carefully. Although he had only met him once, he could be sure that the other party was definitely not simple, perhaps there was some large power behind him. If they escalated the conflict, they might provoke a huge problem. Shut up. Zhao Wuji glared fiercely at Tang San and scolded, you are inflating others' morale and extinguishing your own prestige. When has our Shrek Academy ever been afraid of trouble? If not for the consideration that Tang San's father was the clear sky Douluo, he would have really wanted to slap him. Seeing this, Ma Hongjun hurriedly changed the subject. Teacher Zhao, the most important thing right now is to treat Boss Day's injuries. If he is left with any hidden injuries, that would be bad. Hearing this, Zhao Wuji took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart. A moment later, he looked at Tang San and Ma Hongjun and instructed, you two help Mubai to the bed, I will go call Xiao Shen. Xiao Shen was a food system spirit saint. Although food system spirit masters were not good at healing, as a food system spirit saint, Xiao Shen still possessed 1 or 2 recovery type spirit abilities which were enough to treat Dai Mubai's injuries. However, judging by Dai Mubai's injuries, he would probably need to lie in bed for half a month. Not long after, Zhao Wuji hurried to the boys' dormitory with Xiao Shen, even Flender and Yu Xiaoging followed. Teacher, when did you arrive? The moment he saw Yu Xiaoging, Tang San's eyes lit up, and he went to greet him with a face full of surprise and joy. I said I would come here to find you. Yu Xiaoging smiled and patted Tang San's head, his eyes full of gratification, you have given me a surprise. I didn't expect you to be able to break through to level 30 so quickly. Facing his teacher's praise, Tang San could not feel happy at all. In his mind, he could not help but picture Lu Zon. This person was not much older than him, yet he had already cultivated to a 6-ring spirit emperor. His talent was far above his own. Chapter 12. Luzon, Shrek Academy is just a second-rate academy. Noticing that Tang San was a bit unusual, Yu Xiaobing frowned. Logically speaking, he should have been happy after just absorbing his 3rd spirit ring, yet Tang San looked as if he had suffered a blow. However, Yu Xiaobing did not take this matter to heart. Right now, he was more concerned about another matter, Tang San absorbing a spirit ring beyond his limit. As a master of spirit theory, Yu Xiaobing had absolute confidence in his own theories, even calculating the limits of a spirit master absorbing spirit rings down to the single digit. In fact, this conclusion was meaningless. Every spirit master's physique is different, and the quality of spirit rings varies, so it absolutely cannot be generalized. However, Yu Xiaobing was only a spirit grandmaster, how could he possibly know this? Instead, he remained deeply convinced of his own theories. If it weren't for Tang San breaking the spirit ring limit, Yu Xiaobing might very well have become angry out of shame. Fortunately, Tang San was his disciple. This way, he could attribute it to his own excellent teaching, having cultivated an unprecedented genius. Just as Yu Xiaobing was about to speak, Tang San beat him to it. Teacher, I have something to tell you. It is vital to you and might be able to help you break through to level 30, Tang San said with a serious expression. Upon hearing this, Yu Xiaobing froze on the spot. Ever since his spirit awakened, he had suffered countless cold shoulders and ridicules, and even his family had expelled him. In the past, he had tried reading books to find a solution, but no matter how hard he tried, he could never break through this shackle. Gradually, he buried this matter deep in his heart and turned to the path of researching spirit theory. Now that there was a chance to break through his bottleneck, how could he not be excited? Yu Xiaobing grabbed Tang San's shoulders abruptly, his voice trembling as he asked, Little San, what exactly is the method? Teacher, I only just found out about it recently. Tang San took a deep breath and explained earnestly, there is a pill called a soul power pill. After consuming it, a spirit master below level 60 can increase their spirit power by 1 to 2 levels. A soul power pill, why have I never heard of such a pill? Yu Xiaobing frowned, a skeptical expression appearing on his face as he continued, Little San, you haven't been deceived, have you? Even Spirit Hall did not possess a pill with such miraculous effects. Tang San was not at all surprised by his teacher's skepticism. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed that such a pill existed on the continent either. Teacher, I saw with my own eyes that after Ning Rongrong consumed the soul power pill, she increased her spirit power by 2 levels immediately. Tang San patted his chest to guarantee it. Upon hearing this, Yu Xiaobing's eyes lit up instantly. He had not expected that the shackle that had plagued him for many years would finally have a chance to be resolved. However, Tang San's next words were like a bucket of cold water poured over him. However, the price of this soul power pill is quite expensive. One soul power pill costs 300,000 gold coins. What? Yu Xiaobing's pupils contracted sharply, and he felt as if he had been struck by lightning. 300,000 gold coins, this price was simply an astronomical figure to him, it was not something he could afford at all. Even if he asked Flender for help, there would be no way to scrape together that much money. Unless he went to find Bibi Dong. But the events of that year remained a knot in Yu Xiaobing's heart, he did not want to beg Bibi Dong. Recalling everything from back then, Yu Xiaobing sighed deeply and said helplessly, let's talk about it later. In any case, there is no rush for now. Tang San nodded, secretly making up his mind to earn money as quickly as possible to help his teacher buy a soul power pill. Most importantly, he was very interested in that martial soul enhancement scroll. After all, his blue-silver grass spirit was too weak. If he could enhance it once or twice, his strength would definitely increase significantly. At this moment, with Xiao Xin's help, Daimubai's injuries had been brought under control. After confirming that Daimubai was alright, Flender walked quickly to Yu Xiaobing and said confidently, Xiaobing, that soul power pill. I will take care of it for you. Yu Xiaobing looked at Flender with a puzzled expression. A sly glint flashed in Flender's eyes, and he sneered, that guy dared to injure my student, I can use this as an excuse to ruthlessly extort a sum from him. Having said this, a smug smile appeared on Flender's face. Last time, he had taken the initiative to seek cooperation with Luzon, but was mercilessly kicked out by Luzon. Now that Daimubai had been severely injured by him, it provided the perfect, justifiable reason. Even if Luzon really had a power behind him, he was standing up for his student, which was completely justifiable. Yu Xiaobing was well aware of Flender's character. However, he did not speak to stop him, after all, he really did need a soul power pill. After making up his mind, Flender had Xiao Xin stay behind to take care of Daimubai, then immediately led the others toward the strange treasure shop. On the other side, seeing their aggressive appearance, Ning Rongrong could not help but feel a trace of worry. Although she had only met Luzon a few times, for some reason, she did not want to see Luzon get hurt, especially since this matter was caused by her. Ning Rongrong gritted her teeth and decisively chose to follow them. Sometime later, Flender's group marched imposingly to the outside of the strange treasure shop, aggressive as if a gang of robbers had come to loot the store. At the same time, Luzon, who was lying on a wooden chair, suddenly opened his eyes, a glimmer of sharp light seemingly shooting out from his pupils. He was not surprised in the slightest that Shrek Academy had come to his door to cause trouble. The ethos of Shrek Academy had always been this way, only they were allowed to bully others, and once the young ones were bullied, the old ones could not sit still. However, Luzon remained as calm as usual, slowly standing up from the chair. Just a short while ago, he had used his only available lottery opportunity. Unexpectedly, he drew the rabbit talisman, and an enhanced version at that. This meant that with this thing, even a titled Douluo would find it very difficult to catch up to him. Seeing Luzon's youthful face, Zhao Wuji's eyes widened instantly, an expression of shock and disbelief appearing on his face as he looked at Tang San and asked. Tang San, are you sure? This kid looks at most 20 years old, how could he be a spirit emperor? A 20-year-old spirit emperor? Looking across the entire continent, he had never heard of such an heaven-defying existence. You have to know that Qin Ming, known as the second youngest spirit emperor on the continent, had also only broken through to level 60 after the age of 30, the two were a full 10 years apart. Teacher Zhao, I saw with my own eyes that he has 6 spirit rings, Tang San said with a serious expression. Upon hearing this, Zhao Wuji's brows furrowed tightly. A genius of this level, as long as he did not die prematurely, would inevitably reach the rank of titled Douluo in the future. At this moment, Yu Xiaobing stood with his hands behind his back, slightly lifting his chin, putting on an appearance full of wisdom, and said indifferently. Perhaps it is because he has consumed a soul power pill. Hearing this explanation, Tang San nodded to himself. He also felt that Luzon had consumed soul power pills, likely more than one. Luzon, you attacked and severely injured a student of our Shrek Academy. What is your explanation? Flender walked with long strides to the front of the counter and asked haughtily. I just wanted to beat him up. Luzon's tone was flat, as if he were talking about a trivial matter. Immediately, he scanned Flender with cold eyes, his tone carrying undisguised mockery. Your Shrek Academy lets its students run wild. You are completely a second-rate academy. I am educating your students for you. You should be paying me. Once these words were spoken, everyone present was stunned. They had not expected Luzon to be so arrogant, calling Shrek Academy a second-rate academy right in front of two spirit saints, clearly not taking them seriously at all. Chapter 13. An unprecedented external spirit. Arrogant. Zhao Wuji roared, his vigorous Vajra bear spirit instantly possessing him, followed by 7 spirit rings spiraling up in succession. Just as he prepared to launch an attack, he was stopped by Flender. Old Zhao, don't be in such a hurry to make a move. Unlike the simple-minded Zhao Wuji, Flender would not lose his reason over a single sentence. He was very clear about the consequences of making a move. Once he chose to act, it meant completely offending Luzon, with almost no possibility of reconciliation. A spirit emperor around 20 years old. As long as he did not die prematurely, he would inevitably become a titled Douluo in the future. Any faction would scramble for such a genius, and once he grew up, he would definitely come to settle scores with Shrek Academy. If it really reached the point of fighting, they would have to kill him or cripple his cultivation. However, Flender did not consider himself a bandit, he only wanted to extort some medical expenses this time, not to kill for money. A moment later, Flender suppressed his anger and squeezed a smile onto his face. Luzon, it is true that Daimubai was at fault first this time, but isn't it a bit too cruel of you to beat him into such a serious condition? After a pause, a flash of light appeared in Flender's eyes as he adopted a magnanimous attitude. How about this, you provide a soul power pill as compensation and we will let this matter pass. As soon as he finished speaking, Flender suddenly thought of Oscar. As a food system spirit master, Oscar had almost no combat capability. If he could obtain a Pokeball, he would have some ability to protect himself. Thinking of this, Flender immediately added, +1 Pokeball. As long as you agree, we are willing to give our full support when you obtain your 7th spirit ring in the future. This sounded like a good deal, but in reality, it was just a blank check. After all, it often takes more than 10 years for a spirit emperor to cultivate to a spirit saint. By then, whether this promise would still count would be entirely up to them. Hearing Flender's exorbitant demands, Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing were stunned. Demanding compensation worth 400,000 gold coins in one breath, how could someone's skin be this thick? Are you done? Luzon picked his ear, looking at Flender as if he were an idiot, and sneered, I can't be bothered to reason with you, you don't deserve to listen. As soon as the words fell, Luzon's figure flashed, instantly disappearing from everyone's sight. So fast. Flender's pupils contracted suddenly, and a trace of horror flashed in his eyes. As an agility attack system battle spirit saint, his speed was not even inferior to a spirit Douluo, yet he could not see Luzon's movements at all. This meant that Luzon's speed was far above his. In an instant, Luzon appeared out of thin air in front of Flender, giving him no time to react at all, and punched him directly in the chest. Bang. A dull, loud noise exploded, and Flender flew backward like a kite with a broken string, crashing heavily onto the street more than 20 meters away. A moment later, Flender climbed up from the ground, a trace of blood oozing from the corner of his mouth, his face full of shock. This guy was clearly just a spirit emperor, yet he possessed both strength and speed, and both aspects were above a spirit saint. It was simply inconceivable. At this moment, Flender already felt a bit of regret. He had originally thought Luzon was a soft persimmon, but he hadn't expected Luzon's strength to be so terrifying that even a spirit saint couldn't get any advantage. Boss. Seeing Flender injured, Zhao Wuji could no longer control his anger and pounced toward Luzon like a beast. Seeing this, Luzon's figure flashed, easily avoiding his attack. Zhao Wuji was a strength-type spirit saint, speed was his weakness, and he had the blessing of the rabbit talisman, so his speed was far above his. In the face of absolute speed, any attack was futile. After avoiding Zhao Wuji's attack, Luzon did not continue to dodge, but instead smashed a punch toward Zhao Wuji's forehead. Looking for death. Zhao Wuji looked disdainful, his spirit was the vigorous Vajra bear, and his strength was not even inferior to a spirit Douluo. A mere spirit emperor dared to go head-to-head with him. Thus, he didn't hesitate to swing his fist to meet it, and the two fists collided violently in the air. Boom. A loud noise shook the street. Zhao Wuji took more than 10 steps back to barely steady himself, while Luzon only took 1 step back. The difference was clear at a glance. At this moment, the disdain on Zhao Wuji's face instantly froze, replaced by shock and disbelief. In a direct contest of strength, he had actually lost to a spirit emperor. Moreover, the opponent didn't seem to have even used his spirit. In fact, Luzon didn't need to intentionally use his spirit, the martial god body was a part of his body. Old Zhao, let's go together. Flender rushed over from the side, turning into an afterimage as he pounced on Luzon. Things had developed to this point, and it was too late to regret it. Hearing his boss's order, Zhao Wuji didn't hesitate at all and decisively pounced from the other side of Luzon. Facing the pincer attack of 2 spirit saints, any other spirit emperor would certainly not be able to cope. However, Luzon was prepared, his eyes instantly became sharp, and he said in a deep voice, Zilong, it's your turn to take the stage. As you command, my lord. A deep, resonant voice rang out from thin air. The next moment, a silver-armored general over a Zhongtal appeared before everyone's eyes. He was clad in bright silver armor, his face as handsome as jade, his posture as straight as a pine, holding a dragon bell bright silver spear. The tip of the spear glinted with cold light, and his whole body exuded an imposing aura of being able to withstand 10,000 enemies. It was none other than the ever-victorious general, Zhao Yun. What is this? Tang San's pupils contracted, and he looked at Yu Shaoqing beside him in a daze, seemingly wanting to seek an answer from his teacher. However, Yu Shaoqing was equally confused, this was clearly beyond his scope of knowledge. It looked a bit like a martial soul avatar, but it was different. Most importantly, Luzon was not a spirit saint and certainly couldn't display a martial soul avatar. In order to maintain his image in his disciple's heart, Yu Shaoqing forced an explanation, perhaps his spirit is relatively special. With the addition of Zhao Yun, Flender's plan instantly fell through. Luzon's own strength was already much stronger than an ordinary spirit emperor, and with the speed blessing of the rabbit talisman, beating a strength-type spirit saint was not difficult. And things were even simpler on Zhao Yun's side. As the silver spear danced, the spear shadows were like dragons, beating Flender into a continuous retreat, unable to find any chance to counterattack. If he used his martial soul avatar, he could perhaps handle it a little. But the problem was that the martial soul avatar had a drawback: it would enter a weak period afterward. Once they couldn't defeat the opponent, they would be fish on the chopping block. What Flender found most difficult to accept was that Luzon's speed was too fast. Even if he used his martial soul avatar, he couldn't catch up. After recognizing the situation, Flender decisively set aside his pride and shouted, "Luzon, let's talk this over properly. Why make such a big scene? I tried to reason with you before, but you wanted to extort me." After a pause, Luzon casually punched Zhao Wuji and said nonchalantly, "So I changed my mind. After I beat you into the ground, I'll let you listen to my reasoning." Chapter 14. Shrek Academy is a pile of shit. Seeing that Luzon did not intend to let them off, Flender felt extremely aggrieved. Two spirit saints could not beat one spirit emperor, and the opponent was only around 20 years old. To be handled like this by a junior was simply a massive loss of face. Meanwhile, Zhao Wuji had already been beaten black and blue by Luzon and had no chance to fight back at all. It was his first time feeling so aggrieved. He had already prepared himself to fight to the death. He looked up at Flender not far away and gritted his teeth, saying, "Boss, let's fight him with everything we've got. I don't believe he can block our martial soul avatar." Hearing this, Flender glared at him fiercely and retorted, "Old Zhao, you are not allowed to use your martial soul avatar. Do you want to make this known to everyone?" At this moment, Flender really wanted to complain, as this guy's brain filled with sawdust. As an agility attack system spirit saint, he knew very well how fast Luzon was. Even if he used his martial soul avatar, he would not be able to catch up, let alone Zhao Wuji. After all, speed was Zhao Wuji's weakness. He feared that even after his martial soul avatar ended, he would still struggle to touch Luzon. Zhao Wuji had already personally experienced Luzon's near teleportation speed. Even if he used his fourth spirit ability, positioning tracking, he could not lock onto Luzon's figure. However, having taken quite a few of Luzon's punches in succession, his rising anger was nearly drowning his reason. Under Flender's repeated warnings, Zhao Wuji barely managed to control the urge to use his seventh spirit ability. In fact, if Zhao Wuji had used his martial soul avatar, he might have been able to force out Luzon's second guardian spirit. After a while longer, following Luzon's continuous beating, Zhao Wuji had completely lost the strength to resist, lying on the ground like a pile of mud. Flender was no better off. His clothes were in tatters, and he was covered in bloodstains. In contrast, Luzon and Zhao Yun were completely unscathed. Luzon had the support of the rabbit talisman, making his speed close to teleportation. Dealing with a strength-type spirit saint like Zhao Wuji was completely one-sided bullying. Unlike Luzon, Zhao Yun relied on his own formidable strength. Although Luzon only had level 68 spirit power, Zhao Yun had reached the spirit saint level in all aspects. Coupled with his superb marksmanship, he was enough to deal with most spirit saints. Moreover, Zhao Yun did not have a physical body, instead, he was a type of spirit entity. Even if Flender's spirit ability hit Zhao Yun, it would not cause much damage, and he could even continue to recover. Of course, this recovery required consuming a significant amount of spirit power. How is this possible? Seeing the scene before him, Yu Shaogang had not yet recovered, his face filled with shock and disbelief. Two spirit saints were actually no match for one spirit emperor. Even the once world-renowned Clear Sky Douluo, when he only had spirit emperor cultivation, would have found it difficult to defeat two spirit saints. In reality, if Tang Hao used ring explosion, defeating two spirit saints would not be difficult. However, ring explosion had significant side effects. While Luzon was not only uninjured but even had energy to spare, he was clearly superior. Gaga tilde tilde. Psyduck waddled over, tilted its head to look at the disheveled Flender and Zhao Wuji, and let out a mocking cry. Soon, Ning Rongrong also could not help but laugh out loud. Originally, she had been worried that Luzon would be in danger, but she had not expected Flender's scheme to backfire. "My lord, how do you wish to deal with them?" Zhao Yun brought Flender before Luzon and said respectfully. Seeing this, Yu Shaogang's pupils shook, and a storm surged in his heart. Previously, he had guessed that the silver-armored general was Luzon's spirit. He had not expected it to actually possess independent consciousness, just like his Luo Sanpao, or perhaps even with a higher degree of intelligence. From the battle just now, it was clear that the silver-armored general could fight independently and even possessed extremely rich combat experience. What kind of spirit was this, exactly? He had studied spirit theory for so many years, yet he had never seen such a special spirit. At this time, Flender looked up at Luzon with a bitter expression and said, "Luzon, we do not wish to be at odds with you, we just wanted to ask you for an explanation." Compared to before, Flender had clearly softened his stance, and his tone no longer held the arrogance it had previously. Looking at the formerly haughty but now submissive Flender, Luzon swept a disdainful glance at him and mocked, "You aren't happy when people say your Shrek Academy is a backyard academy. You have no training grounds, no proper curriculum, and even if you have a few teachers with decent cultivation, they are all busy with their own affairs. Your hands-off teaching method relies entirely on the students' own talents. That's why you have the nerve to say, Shrek Academy only accepts monster students, it's simply laughable." Hearing these words, Flender was instantly speechless. He was not afraid of others deliberately smearing Shrek Academy, but Luzon had spoken nothing but the truth, leaving him with no room to retort. As the saying goes, lies do not hurt people, the truth is the sharp blade. This was not over yet. Luzon stepped forward, looked down at Flender, and said indifferently, "Your Shrek Academy seems to have a rule. A spirit master who doesn't dare to cause trouble is not a good spirit master. What, now that you've dared to initiate trouble, you aren't willing to bear the consequences? Could it be that in your eyes, only you are allowed to bully others, and others must be trampled under your feet? You beat the small one, and now the old one comes out. Is your academy training bandits?" Under this barrage of criticism, Flender felt bitter, but he could not utter a single word of rebuttal. After all, the opponent was reasonable and had strength above theirs. Taking a deep breath, Flender suppressed the emotions in his heart and said in a deep voice, "What will it take for you to let us go? I took action to educate you. Charging a little hardship fee isn't excessive, right?" Luzon looked at the two bruised individuals and said irritably, "Add in the mental distress compensation, and it will be 100,000 gold coins in total." Hearing this, Flender's eyes instantly widened. Even if he sold himself, he could not come up with that much money. Thinking back now, his previous demand for 400,000 in compensation from Luzon was indeed a lion's opening. But there was no medicine for regret in this world, especially since he had not known Luzon was this strong. In his view, even if Luzon was a spirit emperor, it was absolutely impossible for him to be a match for spirit saints, the advantage was clearly on their side. However, Luzon had used his strength to prove their ignorance. A moment later, Flender sighed and said, "This matter is indeed our fault, but we cannot come up with so much money for the time being. Rest assured, I am a very reasonable person. This 100,000 gold coins, you can pay it off in 10 monthly installments." After a pause, Luzon's eyes suddenly sharpened, and his tone changed. "However, if you fail to pay it off by the deadline, it will double, and so on." Hearing this, Flender's face turned as dark as the bottom of a pot. He had not expected Luzon to be even more ruthless than him. If they could not scrape together 100,000 gold coins within 10 months, the debt would continue to grow, eventually evolving into an unpayable massive debt. Chapter 15. A Spirit Grandmaster wants to instruct a Spirit Emperor in cultivation. Seeing Flender defeated at the hands of Luzon, a myriad of thoughts swirled in Yu Xiaobing's mind. He did not really want to interfere in this matter, but if he wanted to obtain the soul power pill as soon as possible, he could not do without Flender's help. If Flender were burdened with debt, he would have to rely on himself. After some consideration, Yu Xiaobing walked quickly to Luzon and said in a deep voice, "Luzon, it is true that we handled things improperly today, but your 2 attacks injuring people were also inappropriate." As he spoke, Yu Xiaobing stood with his hands behind his back, his gaze like a torch, constantly maintaining his image as the Grandmaster. However, Luzon did not take him seriously at all and forcibly interrupted. "Since when do pieces of trash dare to come out and interject?" Seeing the other party's disdainful attitude, Yu Xiaobing's face darkened. A mere Spirit Emperor actually dared to look down on him. It seemed he was another short-sighted person. At this moment, Flender looked up at Luzon and said proudly, "Luzon, he is a renowned theoretical Grandmaster in the Spirit Master's world, and even the Spirit Hall holds his theories in high regard." Hearing this, Luzon rolled his eyes. This Flender must have lost his mind, actually worshipping a Spirit Grandmaster. A mere Spirit Grandmaster who hadn't even figured out his own situation, how could he talk about instructing others in cultivation? Strictly speaking, Yu Xiaobing had merely organized the Spirit Hall's data and then published it under his own name. This behavior was clearly theft. The most ridiculous thing was that although Yu Xiaobing proposed many hypotheses based on this data, not a single one was correct. For example, the first time he met Tang San, Yu Xiaobing deduced that Tang San had twin spirits through a Spirit Master's handbook, and even concluded that one of the twin spirits was strong while the other was weak. Such antics were already commonplace. Seeing that Luzon remained silent for a long time, Yu Xiaobing immediately straightened his back, a look of full confidence on his face, and said calmly, "I have studied spirit theory for many years and have a thorough grasp of the characteristics of various spirits. In my opinion, your spirit is very special. It should be a mutated external spirit. I can give you some guidance to help you avoid many detours, which can serve as compensation." As his voice fell, Yu Xiaobing stood with his hands behind his back, slightly raised his chin, and assumed the arrogant posture of a theoretical Grandmaster. Although his cultivation level was not high, when it came to achievements in spirit theory, he claimed second place, and no one dared to claim first. "Are you finished?" Luzon looked at him expressionlessly, as if looking at a clown. Yu Xiaobing's smile stiffened. "If you're finished, get lost." Luzon waved his hand, his tone full of disgust. "You, a level 29 Spirit Grandmaster, have the nerve to come and instruct me in cultivation. Your skin is thicker than a city wall." "You." Humiliated repeatedly by a junior, Yu Xiaobing's cheeks turned as red as pig liver. However, Luzon didn't care about Yu Xiaobing's reaction at all. He turned to look at Flender and said indifferently, 10,000 gold coins every month, must be delivered on time. Don't force me to come and collect it myself." At Luzon's indifferent attitude, Yu Xiaobing was so angry he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Even the Spirit Hall in the upper 3 sects would give him some face, but Luzon truly looked down on him, without even pretending otherwise. Seeing his teacher suffer such humiliation, Tang San's eyes instantly turned blood red, he breathed heavily like an ox, and the anger in his heart climbed to its peak. Originally, he didn't dislike Luzon and even had a trace of admiration for the strong. However, Luzon actually dared to be disrespectful to his teacher, which made him change his mind. Luzon had impressive strength but did not know what humility was. Tang San secretly made up his mind that he must wash away this humiliation for his teacher in the future. Although Luzon could fight above his level, he possessed Tang sect hidden weapons. As long as he crafted top-ranked hidden weapons, he would certainly be able to deal with Luzon. "We will gather the 10,000 gold coins as soon as possible and bring them to you tomorrow," Flender said with a haggard expression. For Shrek Academy, 10,000 gold coins per month was not too difficult. After all, they had a food system spirit saint. As long as they worked together, they could even pay off the debt early. But the problem was, they were used to a free and easy life. If they were made to work to earn money, they would feel somewhat uncomfortable. Unfortunately, they had no power to choose and could only find ways to repay the debt as soon as possible. After confirming that Luzon was not a danger, Ning Rongrong finally felt relieved, but she still had one thing to complete, which was to send a letter to the sect. 2 days later. Inside the main hall of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School, Ning Fengji received a letter from a spirit saint, opened it, and quickly scanned it. Very quickly, his expression changed from calm to shock, and then to uncontrollable excitement. After a long while, Ning Fengji finally calmed his excited mood and immediately sent someone to invite Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo over. After a while, Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo arrived in the main hall one after another. "Fengji," has Rongrong replied. Sword Douluo asked eagerly. Ning Fengji nodded slightly, handed the letter in his hand to the 2 elders, and said solemnly, "Uncle Sword, Uncle Bone, the treasures Rongrong mentioned before are all real." Upon hearing this, Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo were startled. After they finished reading the letter, expressions of shock appeared on their faces, followed by indescribable excitement. In less than a month, not only had Ning Rongrong's spirit power increased to level 28, but her spirit had also evolved into the 8 Treasures Glazed Pagoda. This was simply tremendous news. Especially the latter, which meant breaking the curse that had plagued the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School for many years. As the world's #1 support system spirit, the amplification effect of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda was leading by a wide margin, and its spirit abilities could even strengthen as cultivation increased. However, the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda was not flawless, it had a fatal defect. No matter how high the innate spirit power was, one could only stop at level 79 in the end. Now, Ning Rongrong's 7 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda had evolved into the 8 Treasures Glazed Pagoda, which meant she would be able to cultivate to at least an 8-ring spirit Douluo in the future. Although the martial soul enhancement scroll was a bit expensive, it was at least real and effective. A moment later, Sword Douluo was the first to regain his composure and said with a worried face, "Fengji, could this soul power pill have any side effects?" "Uncle Sword, your worry is unnecessary. Even the martial soul enhancement scroll is real, so how could there be any problem with the soul power pill?" Ning Fengji shook his head and said very firmly. Although the effect of the soul power pill was very good, compared to the martial soul enhancement scroll, the soul power pill was nothing at all. Since the sect master had said so, Sword Douluo could only temporarily set aside his concerns. At this time, Bone Douluo, who was on the side, spoke. Fengji, Rongrong said in the letter that she bought a total of 3 martial soul enhancement scrolls and specifically sent one back for you. Did you receive it? It is right here. Ning Fengji took the martial soul enhancement scroll out of his spirit tool. It was a golden card that emitted a faint fluorescent light, and there was nothing particularly special about it. If he hadn't known its efficacy in advance, he would probably have just regarded it as an ornament. Ning Fengji looked at the treasure his daughter had sent back, an expression of gratification on his face. Although it was his money, he was still very happy. Rongrong, this child, has finally become sensible. Sword Douluo stroked his beard, his eyes full of affection. Yes, it seems that this time running away from home has made her grow up quite a bit, Bone Douluo agreed. The two of them exchanged words, wishing they could praise Ning Rongrong to the skies. Chapter 16, Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing's door-to-door service. Fengji, hurry up and use this martial soul enhancement scroll. Once your 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda evolves into an 8 treasures glazed pagoda, your spirit power should break through to level 80. Old Bone is right. Sword Douluo nodded, his eyes flashing with brilliance. After you absorb your 8th spirit ring, the sect will surely ascend to another level. We might even have a chance to contend for the position of the #1 sect in the world. Ever since Tang Hao severely injured the former Supreme Pontiff, the Clear Sky sect has been suppressed by Spirit Hall and has remained in a state of seclusion for these past years. As the second greatest sect in the world, how could they not have some ambitions? As long as Ning Fengji breaks through to the Spirit Douluo level, the sect's strength will increase significantly, perhaps even rivaling the former Clear Sky sect. Although he didn't know what his 8th spirit ability would be for the time being, he could at least be certain that his previous spirit abilities would be enhanced. Furthermore, his spirit power would also increase significantly, so he wouldn't need to worry about excessive spirit power consumption. Previously, supporting 2-titled Douluo with the cultivation of a spirit saint was inevitably taxing for Ning Fengji, but after breaking through to Spirit Douluo, it would naturally be much easier. Ning Fengji was quite moved by the title of the #1 sect in the world, but on the surface, he remained calm. The upper 3 sects are branches of the same tree. Do not speak words that are detrimental to our unity. In his view, such things should only be done, not spoken of. If they offended the Clear Sky sect because of this, it would be a complete loss. Although the Clear Sky sect had been in seclusion for many years, their foundation remained, and no one knew how strong they were now. Under the expectant gazes of Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo, Ning Fengji summoned his 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda, which was radiant and emitted a gentle light. Immediately after, he placed the martial soul enhancement scroll onto the pagoda. As the martial soul enhancement scroll completely merged into it, the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda burst forth with intense, precious light and gradually began to transform. 1 floor, 2 floors, 3 floors. Ning Fengji held his breath and counted the floors with utmost seriousness, counting all the way to the 8th floor. 8 treasures glazed pagoda. At the same time, a massive surge of spirit power erupted from within him. His cultivation, which had been stagnant for many years, finally loosened, and he broke through to level 80 in one go. At this moment, Ning Fengji stared blankly at the 8 treasures glazed pagoda. He had imagined this moment countless times, but when his dream finally came true, he felt a strange sense of loss and anxiety. Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo, standing to the side, did not make a sound to disturb him. As the saying goes, if one hears the way in the morning, one can die content in the evening. Although it might not have been that intense, it was close enough. After a long while, Ning Fengji finally came back to his senses and sighed. After so many years, only today have I finally resolved this knot in my heart. This is all thanks to Rongrong. Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo nodded one after another. If Ning Rongrong hadn't sent word back, they would never have believed that such a miraculous thing existed in the world. Compared to a martial soul evolution, 1 million gold coins was not much at all. Fengji, since you have broken through to level 80, you should absorb your 8th spirit ring as soon as possible. Have you thought about which spirit beast to choose? Bone Douluo asked with a serious expression. Upon hearing this, Ning Fengji pondered for a moment, then looked up at Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo and smiled. Uncle Sword, Uncle Bone, I would like to go to Soto City first. I will think about the 8th spirit ring slowly on the way. I will accompany you. It just so happens that Soto City is very close to the Stardew Great Forest. Sword Douluo agreed first, as he also wanted to take the opportunity to visit Rongrong and that mysterious shopkeeper. Seeing this, Bone Douluo glared fiercely at Sword Douluo and retorted, Old Sword Man, I was the one guarding the sect last time, it should be your turn this time. HMPH, this concerns Fengji's 8th spirit ring, how can we treat this as child's play? Unless you are confident you can beat me. Sword Douluo said righteously. Hearing this, Bone Douluo was furious and, without another word, wanted to spar with Sword Douluo. Watching the two elders bickering, Ning Fengji sighed and hurriedly stopped them. This time, Uncle Sword will accompany me, I must trouble Uncle Bone to stay behind and guard the sect. Upon hearing this, although Bone Douluo was somewhat reluctant, he still nodded in agreement. A few days later. Inside the strange treasure shop, Luzon was lying on a wooden chair, enjoying the massage service from Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing. Ever since he defeated Flender and Zhao Wuji, Ning Rongrong had been running over here every few days, ignoring even Yu Xiaoging's training. Mainly because the running training assigned by Yu Xiaoging was too trashy. If Flender hadn't been beaten up, Ning Rongrong might have succumbed to his tyranny and gone running with weights like the others. However, Flender was already a defeated opponent of Luzon, and his dignity as a dean had vanished completely. How could Ning Rongrong be foolish enough to go running? Yu Xiaoging couldn't do anything about Ning Rongrong, so he could only find Flender and ask him to expel her. But the problem was that Flender didn't dare to expel Ning Rongrong at all. If Daimubai hadn't laid a hand on Ning Rongrong earlier, he might have been able to forcibly expel her, but now he could only turn a blind eye. At first, only Ning Rongrong had skipped training, but later, she even dragged Zhu Zuqing along. For Zhu Zuqing, as long as she could become stronger, she would do whatever it took. Consequently, Ning Rongrong said one thing to Zhu Zuqing. As long as you maintain a good relationship with Luzon, becoming stronger is a simple matter. In reality, Zhu Zuqing had already had a similar idea before, and with Ning Rongrong's instigation, this idea had already taken root and sprouted in her heart. Compared to Yu Xiaoging's running training, this method was more reliable. Boss, how is this pressure? Ning Rongrong stood behind Luzon, her small hands kneading his shoulders, the pressure just right. It's okay, Luzon replied indifferently, his eyes closed. Zhu Zuqing was crouching to the side, pounding Luzon's legs, although her face remained cold, her movements were very serious. She had been a bit reserved at first, but under Ning Rongrong's encouragement, she gradually got used to it. Lu Zan would never refuse the massage service from these two young ladies. After working so hard in cultivation for so many years, couldn't he enjoy himself a little? Although their technique wasn't skilled, the experience was wonderful. Suddenly, a massive long sword flew across the sky above Soto City and finally landed steadily in front of the strange treasure shop. Standing on it were two people, none other than the arriving Ningfengji and Sword Douluo. Just as the two were about to walk forward, they suddenly saw an unbelievable scene. Their 7 treasure glazed tile school's little princess was actually giving a young man a massage. At this moment, a surge of anger rose in Sword Douluo's heart. Back at the sect, the little princess would only occasionally pound his back, and only for a short while each time. Now, she was being ordered around like a servant girl by an outsider. How could he endure this? Seeing Sword Douluo preparing to take action, Ningfengji hurriedly stopped him and whispered, "Uncle Sword, calm down. This young man should be the Lu Zan that Rongrong mentioned. Looking at Rongrong, she doesn't seem to be forced." Although he said this with his mouth, he also felt a bit stifled in his heart. It was just like a cabbage that had been raised for many years being stolen by an outsider. Chapter 17. Does Ningfengji want to mass-produce 8 treasures glazed pagoda spirit masters? That won't do. Sword Douluo gave a cold snort, his gaze piercing toward Lu Zan like a sharp sword. In his view, even if Lu Zan had outstanding talent, he had no qualifications to order around the little princess of their 7 treasure glazed tile school. At this moment, Ning Rongrong noticed the two people outside, startled for a moment, and then ran over with a look of pleasant surprise. "Grandpa Sword, Rongrong missed you so much." Ning Rongrong threw herself into Sword Douluo's arms. At this moment, the anger on Sword Douluo's face instantly dissipated, replaced by boundless affection. He gently patted Ning Rongrong's back and said softly, "Grandpa Sword missed you too. Did you suffer any grievances outside? Did anyone bully you?" As soon as he finished speaking, Sword Douluo's gaze locked onto Lu Zan. He did not believe that Ning Rongrong would take the initiative to massage an outsider. Perhaps Lu Zan had used some underhanded tricks. "Grandpa Sword, someone did try to make a move on me before, but I taught them a harsh lesson," Ning Rongrong said, slightly lifting her chin with a proud expression. As a support system spirit master, being able to beat down an attack system spirit elder was undoubtedly something worth being proud of. Psyduck happened to run out of the shop, tilting its head to look at Sword Douluo and Ningfengji, still looking silly and dazed. In daily life, Ning Rongrong rarely put Psyduck into its Pokeball, instead keeping it by her side like a pet. Besides Ning Rongrong, Psyduck was closest to Zhu Zuqing. After all, it was common knowledge that Psyduck liked beautiful women, not to mention a beautiful girl like Zhu Zuqing who possessed such generous assets. "I have never seen this kind of spirit beast before." Sword Douluo's eyes flashed with solemnity. He was actually unable to determine the age of this spirit beast. Perhaps it was a rare spirit beast possessing some ancient bloodline. At this time, Ningfengji, who had been ignored on the side, walked over and smiled. "Little girl, did you miss me?" "I didn't." Ning Rongrong turned her head away with a haughty expression. Seeing this, the corners of Ningfengji's mouth twitched. He had thought Ning Rongrong's personality had improved a little, but he didn't expect it to be the same towards him. "I originally intended to give you some pocket money, but looking at you, I suppose you don't want it." Ningfengji shook his head, preparing to put the black card he had taken out back away. However, Ning Rongrong snatched the black card first and said joyfully, "Thank you, Dad." Ningfengji felt very helpless regarding his daughter's attitude of seeing money and opening her eyes. This wasn't raising a daughter, it was clearly raising an ancestor. What made him feel most uncomfortable was that Ning Rongrong was only like this to him, but had a completely different attitude toward Lu Zan. Sure enough, a grown daughter cannot be kept. A moment later, Ningfengji's gaze fell on the strange treasure shop, and he walked forward quickly, with Ning Rongrong and Sword Douluo following closely behind. As the three walked into the shop, Lu Zan stood up unhurriedly. In fact, Lu Zan had already sensed it as soon as Sword Douluo arrived in the sky above Soto City. It was mainly because Sword Douluo's aura was too sharp. Sword Douluo Chen, a level 96 titled Douluo, whose spirit, the 7-kill sword, was the #1 attack spirit in the world. If one counted Ningfengji's amplification, he could probably contend with a level 98 peak Douluo. However, Lu Zan had the blessing of the rabbit talisman, and his speed was even above that of an agility attack system titled Douluo, so it would not be difficult to escape. "I am Ningfengji, having come due to your reputation." Ningfengji stepped forward a few steps again, bowed slightly, and cupped his hands to Lu Zan, which was giving him enough face. Looking at the elegant and gentle Ningfengji, Lu Zan felt a bit more favorable, and he also cupped his hands in return, saying neither humbly nor arrogantly, "Schoolmaster Ning, if you have anything to say, please speak directly." In all fairness, Lu Zan was more willing to deal with people like Ningfengji. Although it was only superficial, it at least gave people a feeling of being bathed in a spring breeze. If it were other high-ranking spirit masters, they would probably use their power to suppress others, or even start a fight without a word. As for whether it was hypocritical, that was a matter of opinion. "Little friend, I would like to invite you to join the 7 treasure glazed tile school. Would you be willing?" Ningfengji asked straightforwardly. According to the letter, Lu Zan had not only cultivated to become a spirit emperor at a young age but had also defeated 2 spirit saints alone. Such a rare genius in a century was at least material for a titled Douluo. As long as he was cultivated slightly, his achievements would inevitably surpass Sword Douluo. Furthermore, Lu Zan looked to be only about 20 years old. Perhaps he was suitable as a partner for Ning Rongrong. At this moment, Ning Rongrong noticed that her father was addressing Lu Zan as an equal, and a look of dissatisfaction immediately appeared on her face. In this way, wouldn't she be a generation lower than Lu Zan? "Sorry, I don't have any thoughts in that regard for the time being." Lu Zan refused without hesitation. From his spirit awakening until now, he had been used to being a free spirit master. Although joining a sect would allow him to obtain a lot of resources, the corresponding price was to work for the sect. Moreover, for him, the sect's resources were of little use. Unlike 10,000 years later, nowadays there were almost no pills to assist cultivation. Most spirit masters joined the sect, often to hunt for spirit rings and gain status. However, Lu Zan was different from ordinary spirit masters. His strength was far beyond the same rank, and he could completely hunt for spirit rings alone. As for status, Lu Zan cared about it even less. To put it nicely, one was a sect disciple, to put it bluntly, one was a dog. When the sect was in danger, one would be the first cannon fodder to be abandoned. Ningfengji was not surprised by this result. If Lu Zan wanted to join a certain force, how could he have stayed until now? It doesn't matter. The smile on Ningfengji's face did not diminish at all, and he said in a gentle tone, "The door of the 7 treasure glazed tile school is always open to you. If you ever change your mind, little friend, you can come to find me at any time." This was said very decently, giving Lu Zhan face while also showing sincerity. In this regard, Lu Zhan did not say much, nodding slightly to acknowledge it. After some small talk, Ning Fengji finally remembered the main business, changed his form of address, and said, "Boss, how many martial soul enhancement scrolls do you have here?" Regarding this question, Lu Zhan did not answer directly, but asked instead, "How many do you want to buy?" Seeing that his probing was fruitless, Ning Fengji didn't care and directly placed a black card on the counter. "There are 10 million gold coins in this card. I want to buy 10 martial soul enhancement scrolls." 10 million gold coins. Hearing this number, Zhu Zuqing was stunned. As a young lady of the Zhu family, she had never seen so much money. The Zhu family would probably have difficulty producing so much money in a short time. Yet Ning Fengji took it out casually, without even frowning. Worthy of being a sect as wealthy as a nation. Seeing Ning Fengji's grand gesture, Lu Zhan felt a trace of surprise as well. If nothing unexpected happened, Ning Fengji should know the effect of the martial soul enhancement scroll. In his eyes, the value of a martial soul enhancement scroll was far more than 1 million gold coins. This was a profitable business. If he could create a few more 8 treasures glazed pagoda spirit masters, or even 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda spirit masters, becoming the #1 sect in the world would be just around the corner. Chapter 18. The Lucky Ning Rongrong, 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda. After confirming the amount was correct, Lu Zhan snapped his fingers, and 10 martial soul enhancement scrolls appeared out of thin air on the counter. Each one emitted a faint fluorescent glow, exactly the same as the previous martial soul enhancement scrolls. Seeing this, a flash of burning intensity crossed Ning Fengji's eyes. With so many martial soul enhancement scrolls, he would definitely be able to evolve it into the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda. A moment later, Ning Fengji separated 5 of them and handed them to Ning Rongrong without hesitation, saying in a gentle tone, "Rongrong, you try first." Previously, Ning Rongrong had already used the martial soul enhancement scroll twice. Perhaps by using another 2 or 3 martial soul enhancement scrolls, her spirit would be able to evolve into the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda. Moreover, Ning Rongrong's talent was extremely high. If her spirit evolved again, the probability of her cultivating to become a title Douluo in the future would be very high. "Thank you, father." Ning Rongrong did not decline, taking the martial soul enhancement scrolls with a joyful look, her face full of anticipation. "Rongrong, Grandpa Sword believes you will definitely succeed," Sword Douluo said with a smile on his face. He had not been this excited for a long time. If he could witness with his own eyes the little princess's spirit transform into the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda, he would be able to show off properly in front of that old bag of bones. Ning Rongrong took a deep breath and summoned her 8 treasures glazed pagoda spirit. Immediately after, she skillfully placed the martial soul enhancement scroll on top of it. Accompanied by a flash of light, the 8 treasures glazed pagoda seemed to become a bit more translucent, yet it did not undergo evolution. Seeing this, both Ning Fengji and Sword Douluo frowned. It seemed that 2 martial soul enhancement scrolls were not enough to make the 8 treasures glazed pagoda evolve into the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda. However, they were already mentally prepared. If it were that easy to evolve successfully, this martial soul enhancement scroll wouldn't be sold so cheaply. Under everyone's gaze, Ning Rongrong continued to use the second one. As the martial soul enhancement scroll scattered into specks of starlight, the 8 treasures glazed pagoda once again bloomed with brilliant light, which seemed even more intense than the last time. However, after the light faded, the 8 treasures glazed pagoda still had not evolved. The third martial soul enhancement scroll was the same. At this moment, Ning Fengji's expression was obviously a bit more solemn. A total of 4 martial soul enhancement scrolls had actually failed to evolve the 8 treasures glazed pagoda. Could it be that the effect of the martial soul enhancement scroll gradually weakens? Although there were a few more concerns, Ning Fengji did not speak up to stop her. Anyway, since they had already used so many martial soul enhancement scrolls, it didn't hurt to use the last 2. Looking at the 2 remaining martial soul enhancement scrolls, a flash of hesitation crossed Ning Rongrong's eyes. If these 2 were also useless, wouldn't she have wasted millions of gold coins in vain? Was this really worth it? After hesitating for a moment, Ning Rongrong's eyes suddenly became firm. Although the 8 treasures glazed pagoda raised her spirit power limit to level 89, there was still a shackle, and she was always unable to reach the title Douluo realm. In order to completely break the curse, she had to continue enhancing. After making up her mind, Ning Rongrong looked up at Lu Zhan, and immediately used the 4th martial soul enhancement scroll. This time, the 8 treasures glazed pagoda finally changed. The pagoda body trembled violently, blooming with sacred 9-colored radiance, and the 9th level of the pagoda body gradually condensed. 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda. Success. Looking at the dreamlike 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda, Ning Rongrong did not come back to her senses for a long time. A moment later, Ning Rongrong excitedly threw herself into Lu Zhan's arms, her face full of excited blushes. Ahem. Lu Zhan coughed twice, looking slightly embarrassed at Sword Douluo and Ning Fengji on the side. Seeing this scene, the smiles on Sword Douluo and Ning Fengji's faces instantly froze. In their expectations, Ning Rongrong should have first shared her joy with them. They didn't expect her to find an outsider, and a young man at that. But on second thought, if it weren't for Lu Zhan selling the martial soul enhancement scrolls, all of this would be wishful thinking. Because of this, Sword Douluo forcibly suppressed the dissatisfaction in his heart. Unlike Sword Douluo, Ning Fengji did not take this matter to heart. He cared more about another matter. It seems that as long as I use 5 martial soul enhancement scrolls, I can let the 8 treasures glazed pagoda evolve into the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda. Ning Fengji calculated in his heart. For him, compared to the value of the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda, a mere 5 million gold coins counted for nothing. Fengji, you should hurry up and use them too, Sword Douluo said with an eager look. Hearing this, Ning Fengji nodded, immediately summoned his 8 treasures glazed pagoda, and then picked up a martial soul enhancement scroll and placed it on top. After the first enhancement, the 8 treasures glazed pagoda glowed slightly, but there was no obvious change. Ning Fengji was already mentally prepared and calmly continued to use the second one. Compared to the first time, the light was slightly more intense this time, but there was still no change. Seeing this, Ning Fengji used the third one without hesitation. This time, there was no light at all, but a crisp shattering sound rang out. Crack. An obvious crack appeared on the 8 treasures glazed pagoda, and before Ning Fengji could react, the 8 treasures glazed pagoda had already regressed into the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda. Looking at the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda that had been knocked back to its original form, Ning Fengji was completely dumbfounded. You have failed the enhancement. Lu Zhan walked forward slowly and explained, the martial soul enhancement scroll is guaranteed to succeed only the first time. Every time you use it afterwards, the success rate will decrease. Once it fails, all previous efforts are wasted. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present was stunned. Why didn't you say so earlier? Sword Douluo's gaze instantly became sharp, as if he would take action against Luzon the next second. Hearing this, Luzon shrugged and said with an indifferent look, even if I had told you in advance, you still would have used it. In his past life on Blue Star, how many people went bankrupt because of enhancing equipment? And enhancing a spirit is even more addictive. After all, once the enhancement succeeds, it means defying the heavens and changing one's fate. Hearing Luzon's explanation, Ning Fengji sighed helplessly. He certainly understood what Luzon meant. That was the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda, so even if he knew there was a possibility of failure, he would still gamble for that glimmer of possibility. Regardless, at least Rongrong succeeded. Ning Fengji looked at Ning Rongrong with immense relief. Just based on Ning Rongrong's 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda, its value far exceeded 10 million gold coins. Moreover, he was already quite old. Even if his spirit evolved into the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda, there was no guarantee he could definitely cultivate to the titled Douluo realm. A moment later, Ning Fengji looked up at Luzon and said in a deep voice, if I use the martial soul enhancement scroll again now, is there a possibility of failure? You don't need to worry about that. Once the enhancement fails, the enhancement rate returns to its initial state. So that's how it is. Ning Fengji was immediately relieved. For the time being, he dared not trust his luck again. The next moment, Ning Fengji decisively used another martial soul enhancement scroll, enhancing his spirit back to the 8 treasures glazed pagoda. As for the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda, that would have to wait for the future. For now, he needed to hunt for his 8th spirit ring first. As for the titled Douluo realm, he wasn't thinking that far ahead for the time being. After all, as a spirit master cultivates to later stages, every increase in spirit power level consumes a significant amount of time, sometimes years or even over a decade. He didn't know how much time it would take to cultivate to level 89. However, Ning Fengji was very curious about one question. After he obtained his 8th spirit ring, if he failed the enhancement again, would his spirit regress back to the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda? Chapter 19. Zhu Zuqing's Ambition. Next, Ning Fengji placed the 2 martial soul enhancement scrolls into his storage spirit tool. For now, he had temporarily abandoned the idea of continuing to use the enhancement scrolls. Rather than gambling with luck, it was better to use them to cultivate direct descendants of the sect. One had to know that 2 martial soul enhancement scrolls meant 2 8 treasures glazed pagoda spirit masters. With every additional 8 treasures glazed pagoda spirit master, the sect's foundation grew deeper. As for the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda, having Ning Rongrong was already enough. Generally speaking, it was far more difficult for a support system spirit master to cultivate to the titled Douluo realm than it was for a battle spirit master. In the vast 7 treasure glazed tile school, Ning Rongrong had the most hope of cultivating to the titled Douluo realm. Originally, Ning Fengji also had some hope, but having been stuck at level 79 for many years, his original potential had been depleted significantly. At this moment, Ning Fengji suddenly thought of an important matter. He looked at Luzon with a serious expression and said, Boss, regarding the evolution of the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda, I ask that you do not speak of it to outsiders. Luzon was not at all surprised by Ning Fengji's caution. Even with the defects of the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda, it could firmly sit on the throne of the continent's #1 support spirit. It went without saying what would happen after it evolved. Once word spread, it would easily incite the hostility of other factions. Especially Spirit Hall. Although the continent had been relatively peaceful in recent years, Ning Fengji knew very well that Spirit Hall was definitely plotting something. To prevent being targeted by Spirit Hall, the 7 treasure glazed tile school absolutely could not be high profile. Regarding Ning Fengji's request, Luzon shook his head and said indifferently, it's meaningless. Unless you restrict Ning Rongrong from using her spirit in public, it will be exposed sooner or later. Furthermore, Shrek Academy already knows about this. Upon hearing this, Ning Fengji frowned, his expression instantly becoming a bit more solemn. This was indeed a thorny problem. The safest method right now was to take Ning Rongrong back to the sect, thereby preventing the outside world from knowing about the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda, but based on his understanding of his daughter, Ning Rongrong would definitely not agree. Moreover, there was also a benefit to Ning Rongrong staying behind. That was to build a good relationship with Luzon. As the master of a sect, Ning Fengji had always had a sharp eye for people, and he could see that Luzon possessed great potential. Judging by his talent of cultivating to a spirit emperor by the age of 20, it was likely that within 20 years, Luzon would be able to cultivate to the titled Douluo realm, breaking Tang Hao's record for the youngest titled Douluo. Such a peerless genius was completely worth their 7 treasure glazed tile school's full effort to recruit. In addition to his powerful talent, Luzon also possessed so many shocking treasures, being on good terms with him would only bring benefits, not harm. After careful consideration, Ning Fengji looked up at Luzon and said in a deep voice, I have decided. Rongrong does not need to deliberately hide the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda, we will just treat it as having evolved by chance. As for Shrek Academy, I will find a way to handle it. Is that so? Luzon's eyes flickered, and he secretly began to calculate in his mind. In the original story, after Ning Rongrong exposed the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda, Spirit Hall still did not take her seriously. In the end, Ning Rongrong had not yet grown up, she was just a little support spirit master with a treasure, posing no real threat to Spirit Hall. Comparatively speaking, Spirit Hall was more worried about Ning Fengji breaking through to level 80. Once Ning Fengji reached the Spirit Douluo level, he could provide buffs to both Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo simultaneously, which was enough to deal with multiple titled Douluos. Therefore, even if Ning Rongrong exposed the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda, Spirit Hall would not pay too much attention to it. A moment later, Ning Fengji pulled Ning Rongrong to his side, looked at Luzon with a solemn expression, and pleaded, Boss, Uncle Sword and I still need to go hunt for an 8th spirit ring, but I am not at ease leaving Rongrong here alone. Could I trouble you to look after her? Hearing this request, Luzon was stunned for a moment. Why did this sound like he was handing off his daughter? He kept calling him, little brother, to his face, but in his heart, he wanted to be his father-in-law. This was truly ulterior motives. Before he could answer, Ning Rongrong put her hands on her hips and spoke first, I don't need him to look after me. I can take care of myself. Although she said that, a faint, imperceptible blush appeared on her face. Seeing this, Ning Fengji smiled helplessly and once again cast a pleading gaze at Luzon. Only after seeing Luzon nod with his own eyes did Ning Fengji finally feel relieved. Although Luzon was only a spirit emperor, judging from Ning Rongrong's description, his strength was already not inferior to that of a spirit Douluo, enough to protect Ning Rongrong's safety. Next, Ning Fengji and Sword Douluo each gave Ning Rongrong a few words of advice. Before leaving, Sword Douluo took a deep look at Luzon. He was not at ease with Luzon, but unfortunately, Ning Fengji valued Luzon highly, as if looking at a son-in-law. As the two flew away on their swords toward Shrek Academy, Luzon returned to his chair and lay down. At this time, Zhu Zuqing walked up quietly, suddenly crouched beside Lu Zan, and took the initiative to massage his legs. Seeing Ning Rongrong's spirit evolve, Zhu Zuqing felt envious. Her Hellsivit spirit was not a top-tier spirit, it was just relatively fast, and in other aspects, it was much worse than top-tier spirits. Previously, Ning Rongrong was no better off than her. Although the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda was a top-tier support system spirit, it had huge flaws. Now, Ning Rongrong's 7 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda had evolved into the 9 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda. Not only had the flaws disappeared, but the amplification effect had also been enhanced, making it far more powerful than ordinary top-tier spirits. If her Hellsivit could be enhanced once or twice, perhaps it could evolve into a top-tier spirit. However, she had no way to come up with that much money. In order to become stronger, she had no choice but to start with Lu Zan. For her, as long as she could become stronger, she was willing to accept anything. Seeing Zhu Zuqing's actions, Ning Rongrong frowned slightly. Before, she had only felt bored, which was why she thought about dragging Zhu Zuqing into this. Now, she regretted it a little. Most importantly, Zhu Zuqing had been enticed by her, which was equivalent to finding a potential threat for herself. Since things had come to this, Ning Rongrong could only accept it all. She walked quickly behind Lu Zan and continued to knead his shoulders and massage his back. Thus, Lu Zan enjoyed the massage from the 2 beautiful girls while focusing his attention on the semi-transparent panel in front of him. This panel was projected onto his retina, and only he could see it. This time, a total of 10 martial soul enhancement scrolls were sold. Counting the previous ones, there were 4 random draws remaining. The first draw had yielded the enhanced version of the rabbit talisman, so he had gotten a taste of the sweetness. Therefore, he planned to use all 4 draws this time to see what treasures he could get. As Lu Zan moved his mind, a huge turntable appeared before his eyes. The items on it were all-encompassing, including but not limited to Pokeballs, medicinal pills, cultivation techniques, spirit rings, spirit bones, and various precious treasures. It could be said that everything one could wish for was there. In fact, from another perspective, Lu Zan was more like a salesman. It was just that the bonuses had been replaced by a lucky draw, and as for what could be drawn, it all depended on luck. Chapter 20. 4 consecutive draws, 9 Yang Divine Art and God Bestowed Spirit Ring. I hope I can draw something useful. Lu Zan took a deep breath and immediately consumed 1 draw. The indicator spun rapidly, eventually stopping on a Pokeball. Butterfree, bug-type Pokemon, possesses abilities such as Sleep Powder, Stun Spore, Poison Powder, Quiver Dance, etc. Seeing this, a trace of disappointment appeared on Lu Zan's face. Although Butterfree's strength wasn't weak, it was almost useless to him. Especially since the last draw yielded the enhanced rabbit talisman, which had raised his expectations quite a bit. The psychological gap from drawing only a Butterfree this time was too large. However, Butterfree was a relatively good-looking Pokemon, so keeping it as a pet wouldn't be bad. After adjusting his mindset, Lu Zan spun the indicator again. After a while, the indicator's speed gradually slowed down and steadily stopped on God Bestowed Spirit Ring. God Bestowed Spirit Ring grants the most suitable Spirit Ring skill based on the Spirit Master's physical characteristics and endurance limit. The final quality is determined by the physical limit the Spirit Master can reach during absorption. Lu Zan was very satisfied with this item. He was not far from level 70 and was worried about which Spirit Beast to choose. Now that he had this God Bestowed Spirit Ring, he didn't need to worry about his 7th Spirit Ring anymore. With his physical strength, his 7th Spirit Ring should be able to reach the 100,000 year level. If he didn't have the God Bestowed Spirit Ring, Lu Zan could only choose to hunt a Spirit Beast of around 70,000 years. On one hand, a 100,000 year Spirit Beast was not something he could deal with. On the other hand, the mental shock brought by absorbing a 100,000 year Spirit Ring was hard to endure. Lu Zan forcibly suppressed the excitement in his heart and began the 3rd draw. After the indicator spun a few times, it finally stopped on an ancient book. 9 Yang Divine Art, primarily based on rigidity and yang, it allows internal energy to circulate and regenerate on its own, rebound external attacks, and also possesses the efficacy of healing wounds, dispelling toxins, and preventing all illnesses. Lu Zan's eyes lit up. He didn't expect to draw a cultivation technique, and it was the famous 9 Yang Divine Art at that. This technique was much stronger than Tang San's mysterious heaven skill. Once he switched to cultivating this technique, his cultivation speed should be able to increase significantly, not to mention that the 9 Yang Divine Art had far more uses than that. Moreover, the quality of spirit power was higher than internal energy, which would greatly enhance the efficacy of the 9 Yang Divine Art. Tang San's mysterious heaven skill was an example. If it were replaced by an immortal cultivation technique, it could only absorb spirit power, and the effect would also drop off a cliff. If he had obtained the 9 Yang Divine Art 10 years earlier, he would at least be a spirit Saint powerhouse now. However, this also meant that the age of his 7th spirit ring would not be very high. It was a trade-off. After a sigh, Lu Zan used his last draw. Not long after, the indicator stopped on a Pokemon icon again. Chansey, known as the strongest team doctor, it possesses the ability to heal injuries, restore physical strength, and remove abnormal status conditions. Another Pokemon. Lu Zan shook his head. It seemed that Pokemon belonged to the most common rewards. However, Chansey's healing ability was still quite useful. It was equivalent to having a built-in healing type Spirit Master, and its healing ability was not inferior to a Jade Swan or even superior in some aspects. After the 4 draws were finished, Lu Zan took out the 2 Pokeballs. The next moment, he released the 2 Pokemon. Accompanied by 2 flashes of white light, Butterfree and Chansey appeared in the shop. The moment they were released, Butterfree flapped its gorgeous wings, circling gracefully in the air, its purple scales shimmering with a dreamlike luster under the sunlight. Chansey landed unsteadily on the ground, its round body looking adorable, with a deep pink pocket on its abdomen containing a white egg. This egg had extremely high nutritional value and could heal injuries and illnesses. Wow, so pretty. Ning Rongrong's eyes lit up, she let go of Lu Zan's shoulder and walked forward with excitement. Zuqing, who was on the side, also cast a curious gaze. Butterfree and Chansey both had very gentle personalities, so even if Ning Rongrong reached out to touch them, they wouldn't feel any aversion. On the other side, Ning Fengji and Sword Douluo had already visited Shrek Academy. At Ning Fengji's request, Flender and the others were forced to unify their stance, claiming to the outside world that Ning Rongrong's spirit evolved after consuming medicinal herbs. In this way, the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School would not attract the attention of Spirit Hall for the time being. After Ning Fengji and Sword Douluo left, Yu Xiaobing walked up to Flender unhurriedly, saying with a serious face. Boss Flender, the little bit of money you gave is simply not enough for the little freak students' medicinal baths. They are the future of Shrek Academy, how can you be so stingy? Hearing this, Flender's old face darkened, and he said unpleasantly, I still owe a mountain of debt. Where would I find spare money for you to squander like this? Now that he was struggling to save himself, how could he have the heart to manage the students' cultivation? Anyway, the little freak students all had good talent. As long as they were urged to cultivate daily, their future achievements wouldn't be bad. After all, that was how they had always done things in the past. Seeing Flender being so irresponsible, Yu Xiaobing frowned and said with a cold face. Flender, you asked me to come and train them, but you won't provide funds. How do you expect me to train them? What if it leaves hidden dangers to their bodies? As the saying goes, even a clever housewife cannot cook without rice. Even if he was knowledgeable, without resources to support him, he couldn't display his talents. In fact, Yu Xiaobing wasn't purely considering the student's future, he had his own calculations in mind. Now, there were only 2 years left until the next Continental Advanced Spirit Master Academy Elite Tournament. He needed to bring out a decent team to achieve good results in the tournament, thereby proving his spirit theory and letting those who once looked down on him see. Hearing Yu Xiaobing call him by his name directly, Flender sighed and said helplessly. Xiaobing, my money has already been paid to Luzon, and I even borrowed some from old Zhao and the others. I really have no money left. Hearing this, Yu Xiaobing didn't think so and said righteously, if you can't come up with money, can't you ask others for it? As members of Shrek Academy, they should contribute. Hearing this, the corners of Flender's mouth twitched. As a pauper, the salary he paid to his old brothers wasn't high, and he even owed quite a bit in arrears. Going to ask them for money now was truly a bit shameless. However, before he could refuse, Yu Xiaobing added, you are a spirit saint powerhouse, as long as you want to, are you worried about not being able to earn money? Flender smiled bitterly and reluctantly agreed, I'll try my best. If he kept pushing back, he was afraid Yu Xiaobing would really get angry. At this moment, Yu Xiaobing remembered something more important and said solemnly, Boss Flender, Ning Rongrong doesn't have to participate in the first phase of training, but she must participate in the second phase. At first, Yu Xiaobing had thought about replacing Ning Rongrong. However, he had thought about it carefully recently. Ning Rongrong's 8 treasures glazed pagoda was crucial for a team. Without Ning Rongrong's participation, this team's strength would be reduced by at least 30%. Therefore, to achieve good results in the Continental Advanced Spirit Master Academy Elite Tournament, Ning Rongrong was indispensable. For yet another request from Yu Xiaobing, Flender felt very exhausted. If he had to handle all these things, what did he need Yu Xiaobing for? But considering the friendship of so many years, Flender could only agree. Chapter 21. There are no useless spirits, only useless Yu Xiaobing. 3 months passed in the blink of an eye. Inside the strange treasure shop, Luzon sat cross-legged on a wooden chair, eyes slightly closed, with a warm, gentle aura faintly flowing around his body. This was the sign of circulating the 9 Yang divine art. Over these past 3 months, he had devoted most of his energy to cultivating the 9 Yang divine art. Although it was a cultivation technique from another world, it did not conflict with his spirit power and even came with extremely powerful effects. The 9 Yang divine art focused on rigidity and Yang. Not only could it reflect external attacks, but it also allowed spirit power to circulate and regenerate on its own, recovering spirit power at every moment, so there was absolutely no need to worry about exhausting it. If cultivated to the great completion, it could even achieve the effect of being immune to all poisons. After a while, Luzon slowly opened his eyes, a flash of bright light passing through them. In just 3 short months, his spirit power level had successfully broken through to level 69, much faster than he had anticipated, and he had hardly felt any bottlenecks, as if it were a natural progression. Cultivating like this, he would likely break through to level 70 in a few months. By then, the God-bestowed spirit ring would come in handy. With his current physical strength, combined with the assistance of the 9 Yang divine art, he was very confident that he could reach over 100,000 years. Just then, Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing walked in from outside. In 3 months, the changes in the 2 beautiful girls were visible to the naked eye. Previously, Ning Rongrong still had some baby fat on her cheeks, but now her features were more defined, and she had grown increasingly graceful and elegant. Moreover, her spirit power had broken through to level 29, not far from level 30. Zhu Zuqing had also increased her spirit power by 1 level, and her figure had become even more curvaceous, far surpassing her peers. All of this was thanks to Chansey. From the day of the lucky draw, Chansey would produce several eggs every day, which contained extremely high nutritional value. At first, Luzon thought these eggs could only be used to treat injuries, but by chance, he discovered that they also had the effect of assisting cultivation. Although the effect was not very obvious, it was beneficial over time, and if consumed long-term, there were many other benefits. After entering the strange treasure shop, Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing each gave Chansey a hug. Chansey tilde. Chansey shook its body adorably. It was very close to Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing. After all, they had been together for 3 months. Immediately after, Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing stepped forward and habitually picked up the eggs on the counter. This was the breakfast Luzon had prepared for them. Often, after consuming them, they would cultivate as soon as possible to digest the nutrients from the eggs. Compared to Yu Xiaobing's running training, this method was both easier and more effective. After finishing the boiled eggs, Ning Rongrong did not immediately cultivate, but instead walked to Luzon, looking conflicted as she said. Flender talked to me yesterday. He asked me and Zuqing to participate in the second stage of training. What is your opinion? Luzon looked at Ning Rongrong calmly, not rushing to give his own opinion. Hearing this, Ning Rongrong bit her lip, thought seriously for a moment, and complained. I think the training method arranged by Yu Xiaobing has almost no value. Although she did not participate in the first stage of training arranged by Yu Xiaobing, she had seen it with her own eyes. Besides running, it was just weighted cross-country, with absolutely no technical content. How could this even qualify him to call himself a grandmaster? Under Luzon's guidance, Ning Rongrong's princess temper had improved significantly, at least she wouldn't lose her temper casually. In person, she still wouldn't give a good look to enemies. Just as you said, Yu Xiaobing has limited ability and can only think of such training methods. Luzon agreed. Yu Xiaobing's shortcomings were far more than that. He was also arrogant yet incapable, clearly having the worst talent himself, yet looking down on spirit masters with poorer talent. There are no useless spirits, only useless spirit masters. This was Yu Xiaobing's classic quote, but he didn't teach ordinary spirit masters to cultivate. Instead, he took in a disciple with innate full spirit power, and even the twin spirits were something he guessed right by luck. Wearing the title of grandmaster, yet having no real ability, the spirit theory he summarized through theft was full of loopholes. Besides that, Yu Xiaobing was also an ingrate. Just because some people in his clan looked at him with cold eyes, he didn't return to see his old father for 20 years. In the end, Yu Yuanjun bore it all. After a moment, Luzon suppressed the thoughts in his heart and changed the subject. However, even if you are a support system spirit master, you still need to accumulate some practical combat experience. Participating in spirit battles will be helpful to you. Besides, don't you want to test your own strength? Hearing this, Ning Rongrong's eyes sparkled with anticipation. This really struck a chord with her. Ever since the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda evolved, she hadn't really engaged in actual combat, so naturally, she wanted to test the power of the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda. With her current amplification ability, it was enough to elevate Zhu Zuqing to the spirit elder level. If it were a 7-person team competition, the role of the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda would be even more powerful, perhaps even playing a decisive role in the outcome. As a spirit master, Ning Rongrong certainly wanted to enjoy the feeling of being the center of attention. After making up her mind, Ning Rongrong grabbed Zhu Zuqing's small hand and waved goodbye. Boss, Zuqing and I will leave first. We'll come find you after the spirit battle ends. Watching the two departing figures, Luzon sat cross-legged again and entered cultivation once more. As for the task of watching the shop, it was left to Chansey and Butterfree. In the blink of an eye, another month passed. Since few people visited, Luzon immersed himself in cultivation, his spirit power becoming increasingly profound, and he was not far from level 70. Just then, a group of young people dressed in luxurious clothing walked over from a distance. The young man in the lead was in his early 30s, with neat black hair, an upright posture, and an ordinary appearance that nevertheless exuded an extraordinary temperament, with a hint of profound light in his bright black eyes. The young people behind him were all around 20 years old, each with an extraordinary temperament. We just arrived in this city, let's first find an inn to rest and regroup, and tomorrow we will go to the Great Spirit Arena to sign up for the team battle. As the leading young man spoke, everyone immediately quieted down. A young man with a hint of arrogance between his brows stepped forward 2 paces and said confidently. Teacher Chin, no matter what kind of opponents we encounter, we will never lose. This young man was none other than the captain of the Wangdu team, Yu Tianong. And the teacher Chin he spoke of was naturally the leader of the Wangdu team, the second youngest spirit emperor powerhouse on the entire continent, Qin Ming. Hearing Yu Tianong's confident statement, Qin Ming smiled without saying a word, a strange light flickering in his eyes. He had brought the Wangdu team to Soto City this time, on one hand to train the team, and on the other to visit his long-missed alma mater. That was the place where he grew up. The next moment, a tall and thin young man in the team suddenly noticed something and pointed ahead, saying, "Look over there, quickly, it seems there are 2 spirit beasts." Spirit beast. Hearing Yu Feng's words, everyone looked over in unison and indeed saw 2 rare spirit beasts in a small shop ahead. One was a purple butterfly, with gorgeous patterns on its wings, gracefully circling in the air. The other was a pink, round creature that looked just like a pink egg. Seeing this, Qin Ming frowned and whispered, "How can there be spirit beasts here, and they are even kept in a shop? Could they be domesticated spirit beasts?" Domesticating spirit beasts is not particularly rare, but he had never seen this kind of spirit beast before. After walking a short distance, Du Guyan saw the appearance of the 2 spirit beasts clearly. Unable to suppress her curiosity, she left the group and walked toward the strange treasure shop. Du Guyan had long deep purple hair, a tall figure, and a beautiful face. Most eye-catching were her emerald green pupils, which faintly revealed a hint of eeriness. She had enough confidence in her own strength and was not worried about encountering danger. Seeing Du Guyan's actions, Qin Ming sighed with slight helplessness and had no choice but to take the others along to follow her. As Du Guyan walked into the shop, Chansey noticed her immediately. It sniffed with its nose, and those round eyes immediately locked onto Du Guyan. Chansey, tilde. Chansey wobbled forward and wrapped its arms around Du Guyan. Being forcibly hugged by an unknown spirit beast, Du Guyan was just about to resist, but the next second, a warm feeling emanated from Chansey. Immediately after, the egg in Chansey's abdominal pouch emitted a soft glow, and a crisp bell sound echoed throughout the shop. Ding-ling. The crisp, lingering bell sound spread out in layers, turning into circles of gentle, pale pink sound waves that slowly swept across the entire room. Heal bell. This was Chansey's group healing skill, capable of clearing abnormal status conditions. The moment she heard the bell, Du Guyan's tense body completely relaxed. Her fatigue and negative status conditions vanished entirely, replaced by an unprecedented sense of comfort. Not just Du Guyan, but the others also felt their bodies lighten upon hearing the bell, unable to feel even a trace of fatigue. How amazing, it feels even more powerful than Yilingling's group healing. Yu Feng exclaimed with a look of amazement. Hearing this, Oslo, who was beside him, elbowed him and said irritably, "Do you even know how to talk?" Regarding their conversation, Yilingling did not care at all. She was wearing a light green dress, her figure slim and slender, with a cold and elegant temperament. Her gaze remained fixed on Chansey. As a 9-heart begonia spirit master, she had never heard of such a special spirit beast. "Teacher Chin, will Du Guyan be in danger?" "Don't worry, it should be helping Du Guyan with healing." Seeing Yu Tianong's worried expression, Qin Ming reached out and patted his shoulder, then locked his gaze onto this unknown spirit beast. Unexpectedly, there was such a magical spirit beast here. A few minutes later, Chansey released Du Guyan and looked at Qin Ming and the others with some fear. It had a gentle temperament, but seeing so many strangers, it still felt timid. As the bell sound faded, Du Guyan finally came to her senses. She discovered with amazement that the toxins in her body had actually disappeared, and her body felt unprecedentedly light. At this moment, Du Guyan felt that everything was like a dream. A problem that even her grandfather could not solve had actually been resolved by a spirit beast, and so simply at that. Since her father died, Du Guyan had developed some fear in her heart, but she usually didn't show it, keeping it buried deep within. Although the jade phosphor serpent spirit was powerful, it had a fatal flaw. The toxins would gradually accumulate with age and eventually backfire on the user. She had seen the painful appearance of her father in his later years, a scene she could never forget. Now that the toxins in her body were gone, she felt somewhat unreal. Just then, a calm voice came from the back. "The treatment fee is 10,000 gold coins." Hearing this voice, everyone finally noticed a person lying on a chair behind the counter. It was a young man around 20 years old, with regular features and sharp, distinct angles, looking at them with great interest. Judging by their appearance, this group should be the Wangdu team that had come here for training, and the timing matched up as well. Honestly speaking, the lineup of the Wangdu team was truly a bit bizarre. 2 agility attack system spirit masters, 2 defense system spirit masters, were the higher-ups of the Heaven Do Imperial Academy squeezed by a door. The whole team relied on Yu Tianong for output. Once Yu Tianong had an accident, the entire Wangdu team would be finished. It couldn't be more pathetic. Hearing the price of 10,000 gold coins, Yu Feng couldn't help it and shouted, "For just a little while, you actually won 10,000 gold coins. You are extorting us. Regarding this, Lu Zan did not explain anything, but looked at Du Guyan with a calm expression. If Du Gubo knew about this, let alone 10,000 gold coins, he would even find a way to get a 10,000-year spirit bone. After all, Du Guyan was his own granddaughter and his only weakness. From this, it could be seen that asking for 10,000 gold coins was already very cheap. At this moment, Du Guyan came back to her senses, walked quickly to Lu Zan, and asked eagerly, "This spirit beast, is it yours?" Lu Zan stroked Chansey, who was hiding behind him, looked at Du Guyan with a strange expression, and said, "Don't you think this question is very silly?" This remark left Du Guyan unable to refute. She really couldn't understand. This guy looked about the same age. Where did he tame such a magical spirit beast? If she possessed this spirit beast, she would never have to worry about toxin flare-ups again, and she could even help relieve her grandfather's pain. Thinking of this, Du Guyan took a deep breath, pointed at Chansey, and said, 10,000 gold coins, I can pay you, but you must give it to me. As soon as these words were spoken, Lu Zan looked at her as if she were an idiot. A single Pokeball is worth 100,000 gold coins. For a special Pokemon like Chansey, it is worth far more than 100,000 gold coins. Suddenly, Lu Zan thought of something, looked at Du Guyan with pity in his eyes, and sighed, "It seems the toxins have had quite an impact on you, making your brain rot. Any normal person would not think it is only worth 10,000 gold coins." Hearing the undisguised ridicule from the other party, a trace of anger rose in Du Guyan's heart, but she could not refute it. She was indeed being too presumptuous. A single treatment was worth 10,000 gold coins. How could she buy it outright? Du Guyan suppressed her anger and said in a low voice, "Then you name a price." However, Lu Zan shook his head and said calmly, "Sorry, it is Moped and is not for sale." "Are you toying with me?" Du Guyan instantly flew into a rage. She had originally thought that if Lu Zan named a price, as long as it wasn't too exaggerated, she could go discuss it with her grandfather. She hadn't expected that Lu Zan had never even considered selling it. Wasn't this intentionally toying with her? Chapter 23, Wandering Merchant, the Miserable Dai Mubai. Watching Du Guyan's embarrassed and angry expression, Lu Zan curled his lips upward, then snapped his fingers, conjuring a Pokeball out of thin air. "Although I cannot sell Chansey to you, I can sell you this." Upon hearing this, Du Guyan carefully examined the Pokeball in his hand, which didn't appear to have anything special about it. "What is this thing?" "This is a Pokeball. As for its purpose." Lu Zan wore a meaningful smile, then took out another Pokeball, aimed it at Chansey, and pressed the button on top. A red light flashed, and Chansey turned into a streak of light, returning inside the Pokeball. Seeing this scene, Qinming and the others were stunned. For a moment, everyone stared dumbfounded at the Pokeball in Lu Zan's hand. Such a small object could actually store a spirit beast. It was definitely a valuable spirit tool. Before they could react, Lu Zan released Chansey again. Such a convenient ability made their eyes light up. Especially Du Guyan, who had already set her sights on the Pokeball in Lu Zan's hand. This would be convenient for her to pack up and take away. Although Lu Zan saw through her little scheme, he didn't expose it in front of everyone and continued to introduce. One Pokeball costs 100,000 gold coins. It contains various rare spirit beasts. As for what you can draw, that depends on your luck. As soon as these words were spoken, Qinming and the others exchanged glances. Although they really wanted to buy one, the price was too expensive, making them shrink back. At this moment, Yu Tianong stepped forward quickly, staring fixedly at Lu Zan, questioning, "How do we know if you haven't tampered with it?" He was not only the captain of the Wangdu team but also a direct descendant of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan. Although he couldn't produce 100,000 gold coins for the moment, he could go discuss it with his grandfather. For the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan, 100,000 gold coins was nothing. If the spirit beasts inside the Pokeballs were as powerful as Chansey, it would definitely be worth more than the price. Conversely, if one drew a useless spirit beast, wouldn't it be a waste of 100,000 gold coins? It wasn't just Yu Tianong. Du Guyan had the same concern. Even if she spent money to buy a Pokeball, she might not necessarily draw Chansey. "I can guarantee that I haven't tampered with anything. As for whether you believe me or not, that is your business," Lu Zan said calmly. Before the Pokeball was sold, he also didn't know what Pokemon was inside. However, as long as one's luck wasn't too bad, exchanging 100,000 gold coins for a Pokemon was basically not a loss. To take a step back, even if someone drew a Pokemon with no combat power, as long as they cultivated it diligently, there was a certain probability of evolution. For example, Magikarp, before evolution, it only flops around, but after evolution, it is Gyarados. However, Yu Tianong didn't trust a stranger at all and said arrogantly, "We won't fall for your trick. Yanzi, let's go." Du Guyan glared fiercely at Yu Tianong. She had finally found a solution, so how could she leave so easily? This guy actually made decisions for her without permission. A moment later, Du Guyan suddenly thought of a method and requested, "Since you are unwilling to sell it, why don't you accompany me to Heaven Do City and help me treat someone? I will pay you double the fee afterward." Hearing this request, Lu Zan instantly realized what was going on. Du Guyan wanted to use Chansey to clear the toxins from Du Gubo's body. To this, Lu Zan firmly refused. "I don't provide house call services, and furthermore, you still owe me 10,000 gold coins." Upon hearing this, Du Guyan's mouth twitched, and she immediately took out a black card from her storage spirit tool and handed it to Lu Zan. "There's over 10,000 gold coins here. The extra amount will serve as a deposit." As the granddaughter of Poison Douluo, Du Guyan was not short on money. She was even wealthier than Yu Tianong. After all, Poison Douluo only had her as his relative. "In 2 or 3 months, I should be going to Heaven Do City. When that time comes, you can have him come find me." Lu Zan provided a reasonable plan. For him, this might be an opportunity. Although Soto City was relatively safe, it was ultimately too small. As long as he wanted to expand and grow stronger, he had to travel between various major cities. A few months ago, his strength couldn't guarantee his own safety, so he could only choose to stay in Soto City. But now it was different. His spirit power was already approaching level 70. As long as he was given 2 more months, he would be able to absorb a god-bestowed spirit ring. By then, his strength would increase significantly, and with the addition of the rabbit talisman, he would be able to handle even a titled Douluo. Meanwhile, at Shrek Academy, they had just finished a day of spirit fighting matches. Although they had won several matches, Yu Xiaoqing couldn't be happy. The main reason was that the team was not harmonious internally. Especially Dai Mubai and Zhu Zuqing. Previously, Yu Xiaoqing wanted to help Dai Mubai and Zhu Zuqing improve their relationship so they could develop the spirit fusion skill Hell White Tiger as soon as possible. But things went against his wishes. Zhu Zuqing didn't want to have too much contact with Daimubai at all. Whenever he tried to bring the two together, Ning Rongrong would interfere, causing the relationship between Daimubai and Zhu Zuqing to not only fail to ease but actually become more conflicted. What made Yu Xiaogang break down the most was that he couldn't do anything about Ning Rongrong. On one hand, Ning Rongrong was the eldest young lady of the 7 treasure glazed tile school, and even Flender was helpless against her. On the other hand, her 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda was crucial to the team. Once kicked out of the team, their strength would be significantly reduced. Yu Xiaogang felt extremely stifled, yet had nowhere to vent. Consequently, he could only wait until the team dispersed and kept Daimubai behind alone. Mubai, have you talked to Zhu Zuqing today? Daimubai had originally been in a fairly good mood, but upon hearing this, his expression instantly darkened, and a trace of undisguisable anger flashed in his evil eyes. Over the past few months, he had tried more than once to win back his fiancée. However, Zhu Zuqing ignored him completely, and even during team spirit fights, she didn't have any communication with him. In order to win back his fiancée, he hadn't been to a brothel even once during this period. And the result? Zhu Zuqing seemed to have completely given up on him, not giving him a single chance at all. If he hadn't guessed wrong, it was very likely that Zhu Zuqing had taken a liking to Luzon, and perhaps something had even happened between them. This filled him with resentment, yet he dared not go find trouble with Luzon, nor did he dare to do anything to Zhu Zuqing. It wasn't that he was being chivalrous, it was because Zhu Zuqing was often with Ning Rongrong, and Ning Rongrong had Saida for protection, so he had no opportunity to act at all. A moment later, Daimubai suppressed the anger in his heart, looked up at Yu Xiaogang, and said in a deep voice, Grandmaster, Zhu Zuqing must have taken a liking to Luzon, we have no hope anymore. Daimubai clenched his fists tightly, his eyes filled with anger and jealousy. Although it was possible that Luzon had stolen his fiancée, he had to admit that this guy's talent was indeed terrifying. If he could possess Luzon's talent, he wouldn't need to fear Daiwisi at all. Actually, thinking about it from another angle, if he were Zhu Zuqing, he would probably also choose to curry favor with Luzon, as the hope of surviving would be greater that way. Regarding Luzon, Yu Xiaogang also harbored no small amount of resentment. The words Luzon had said to him previously were simply a great insult, but because Luzon's strength was too great, he could only suppress the resentment in his heart. Yu Xiaogang sighed, patted Daimubai on the shoulder, and comforted him, you focus on your cultivation. When you break through to become a spirit ancestor, perhaps Zhu Zuqing will have a change of heart. Upon hearing this, Daimubai nodded, he could only think that way. Chapter 24, Du Guyan teases Luzon, Ning Rongrong blows her top. Over the next 3 days, the Wangdu team swept through every team in the Great Spirit Arena. From Luzon's perspective, the overall strength of the Wangdu team wasn't really much to write home about, but at least they were geniuses selected from the Heaven Do Imperial Academy, so dealing with some Bush League teams wasn't difficult. Every time a spirit fight ended, Du Guyan would make a special trip to the strange treasure shop. The main reason was to build a good relationship with Luzon, so that after going back and forth, future treatment costs might be waived. Besides that, she also wanted to pry more information out of Luzon. For example, where he got the spirit beast. Besides Du Guyan, Yi Lingling had also come twice. As a healing-type spirit master, she was very curious about Chansey. Especially the heal bell ability, which could actually clear toxins from a spirit master's body. This morning, Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing came to the strange treasure shop as usual, only to bump into Du Guyan and Yi Lingling, who were already inside. Who are you two? Looking at the two women before her, a trace of hostility appeared in Ning Rongrong's beautiful eyes. Because the toxins in her body had been completely cleared, Du Guyan's eyes had returned to black, as had her hair. Her ink-black hair cascaded down to her waist like a waterfall, and with her tall figure and purple dress outlining her graceful curves, her temperament lost a bit of its eerie quality and gained a bit more charm. Yi Lingling had light green hair, a cold and ethereal temperament, a face as exquisite as a painting, and a slender yet soft figure. They were around 18 years old, and in terms of pure feminine charm, they were even a cut above Ning Rongrong and Zuqing. At this moment, Du Guyan sensed Ning Rongrong's hostility and immediately looked at Luzon, who was lying on a chair, a strange glint flashing in her eyes. This guy doesn't like them young, does he? Thinking of this, a mischievous idea popped into Du Guyan's mind, and the corners of her mouth couldn't help but curl up. Immediately, she leaned in close to Luzon, blinked her beautiful eyes, and said in a voice full of charm, Boss, if you're willing to sell Chansey to me, I'm willing to do anything tilde. The end of her sentence rose, carrying a hint of provocation. Looking at the exquisite face inches away, Luzon frowned, this woman was being far too bold. Not only him, but the others were also stunned by this scene. Even the usually expressionless Yi Lingling had a look of astonishment on her face. In her impression, Du Guyan wasn't that kind of person. Seeing this, Ning Rongrong's beautiful eyes widened in shock. She rushed forward without a word, attempting to pull Du Guyan away, only to find she couldn't budge her at all. She was instantly furious and snapped angrily, You aren't welcome here, please leave immediately. I came to find him, what right do you have to kick me out? Du Guyan acted very calmly, not putting Ning Rongrong in her eyes at all. This remark choked Ning Rongrong up. Although she didn't have the right, if she left it alone, who knows what might develop between the two of them. How could she possibly allow that to happen? Seeing that the two were about to fight, Luzon quickly blocked them and said irritably, Don't hold up my cultivation here, otherwise just pay money to buy things. I don't have that much money on me, Du Guyan said, feeling slightly embarrassed. So you're just a broke pauper. Ning Rongrong lifted her chin slightly and looked at Du Guyan with disdain, her young mistress attitude on full display. You. Du Guyan's cheeks flushed red with anger, her chest heaving violently as she retorted, and you think you can afford it? Ning Rongrong had been waiting for this line, and a pokeball instantly appeared in her hand. Seeing this, Du Guyan looked incredulous, this girl had actually bought a pokeball. Gaga tilde tilde. Just after coming out of the pokeball, Psyduck had its typical dazed and silly look. But when it saw two beauties it hadn't seen before, it immediately revealed a lecherous look, covering its mouth with its hands and emitting a lewd laugh. Seeing Psyduck's performance, a hint of embarrassment appeared on Ning Rongrong's face. Du Guyan, who had been very embarrassed, couldn't help but laugh when she saw this, mocking, TCH, it's just a duck, what's there to be proud of? Regarding this, Ning Rongrong didn't explain anything. Her gaze fell on Psyduck as she commanded, Psyduck, teach her a lesson for me. Gaga tilde tilde. Psyduck acted as if it hadn't heard, still lecherously staring at Du Guyan and Yi Lingling. Seeing this, Du Guyan instantly became interested and beckoned to Psyduck, enticing it, little duck, come over and let big sister give you a hug. Hearing this, a blush appeared on Psyduck's face. Seeing that Psyduck was about to defect, Ning Rongrong was stunned. She had raised it for 4 months for nothing. If you don't act now, I won't take you out to play anymore. Ning Rongrong said angrily. Hearing this threat, Psyduck instantly sobered up. It tilted its head to look at Douluo, a trace of apology in its eyes. The next moment, its eyes turned blue. Before Douluo could react, a powerful psychic force forcibly lifted her into the air. Douluo had never heard of such a strange ability, let alone how to deal with it, so she could only struggle in the air. What on earth is this spirit beast? Douluo hadn't expected that this duck, which looked so dazed and silly, would possess such a magical ability, completely not inferior to Chansey. Not only Douluo, but Yi Lingling on the side also felt it was incredible. Whether it was Chansey's heel bell or this duck's strange ability, they were skills she had never heard of before. After some teasing, Psyduck put Douluo down and quickly ran to Ning Rongrong to claim credit. Seeing Psyduck show off its great power, Ning Rongrong didn't hold the previous incident against it. She even patted its head and said, "Well done, I'll give you extra food at noon." At this moment, Douluo was fuming with anger, but had nowhere to vent. She really couldn't understand why this duck was so strong. A moment later, Douluo suddenly thought of something. Since this duck came out of a Pokeball, Luzon must have other, more powerful spirit beasts in his possession. Douluo bit her red lips and leaned in close to Luzon again, breathing like orchids as she said, "Boss, if you give me a Pokeball, I'll be your girlfriend. Don't even think about it." Before Luzon could reply, Ning Rongrong rushed forward and blocked the space between the two, like a kitten protecting its food. When adults are talking, children shouldn't interrupt. Douluo looked down at Ning Rongrong, her tone carrying a hint of disdain, as if to retaliate for what happened earlier. Seeing this situation, Luzon looked at Douluo, speechless. "Don't you already have a boyfriend?" Hearing this, Ning Rongrong's eyes widened instantly. She looked at Douluo in disbelief, her tone full of disgust. "You already have a boyfriend, yet you're still eyeing someone else. You're too shameless." Chapter 25. Douluo suffers a blow. "Whether I have a boyfriend or not, what does that have to do with you?" Quote. Douluo first retorted to Ning Rongrong, then turned to look at Luzon, saying solemnly, "As long as you are willing, I can break things off with him." Quote. This was half true and half false. Regarding Luzon, Douluo felt more gratitude and curiosity than romantic feelings. After all, Luzon was tied to the lives of her and her grandfather. If not for Chansey removing the toxins, she most likely wouldn't even live to see 40. Moreover, Luzon was exceptionally good-looking, much more handsome than Yu Tianong. At this moment, Luzon stood up from his chair, looked at Douluo with calm eyes, and said indifferently, "Whether it's true or false, I have no interest in you." Quote. These words were spoken mercilessly, causing Douluo's expression to stiffen instantly. She considered her looks and figure to be top tier, and with the toxins in her body cleared, her skin had become even more tender and fair, her beauty even greater than before. She didn't expect Luzon to reject her, without even a hint of infatuation. On one hand, Douluo was not the type Luzon liked, and he also did not want a female partner who had previously had intimate contact with other men. On the other hand, this concerned his principles. If Luzon gave someone a Pokeball, it meant he would need to pay the 100,000 gold coins on their behalf. Not to mention he didn't have that much money, even if he did, he wouldn't squander it like that for an unrelated woman. He wasn't someone like Flender or Feng Xiaodian. "You will regret this." Quote. Dropping this sentence, Douluo's eyes turned slightly red, and she stormed out in extreme anger. Seeing her companion leave, Yi Lingling hesitated for a moment, took a deep look at Luzon, and then turned to follow her. A moment later, Ning Rongrong stared straight at Luzon and pressed, "Do you really have no thoughts at all?" Quote. Hearing this, Luzon rolled his eyes and said bluntly, "Even if I did have thoughts about them, what does that have to do with you?" Quote. Ning Rongrong was about to retort but couldn't find a suitable reason. After a long silence, a flash of determination crossed Ning Rongrong's eyes, and she straightened her chest, saying, "I am no worse than them." Quote. Quote. Looking at the slightly immature Ning Rongrong, the corners of Luzon's eyes twitched noticeably. Sure enough, spirit masters were too precocious, no wonder Daimubai and Ma Hongjun started visiting brothels so early. Regardless of what others did, he had his own principles. If he were a casual person, he would have already been enjoying brothel music long ago and would never have reached the spirit emperor level so quickly. He certainly didn't want to watch the Shrek 7 devils become gods while he could only be a spectator. On the other side, Douluo and Yi Lingling returned to the Wangdu team's lounge. "Yanzi, Lingling, did you go to that strange treasure shop again?" Quote. Yu Tianong greeted them immediately, his tone filled with some dissatisfaction. "What's so good about that place? I think the shopkeeper is just a swindler." Quote. Hearing this, Douluo glared fiercely at Yu Tianong, even wanting to vent the frustration in her heart on him. He really had to bring up the sore spot. "Who upset you?" Quote. Yu Tianong was startled by her expression and asked cautiously. A moment later, Douluo took a deep breath, tried to calm her emotions, and a bitter smile appeared on her face. "He is not a swindler, there are indeed powerful spirit beasts inside the Pokeballs." Quote. "Not long ago, I had a conflict with a spirit master, and I didn't expect her to take out a Pokeball and release a duck that looked very silly." Quote. "It possessed a very strange ability, and in front of it, I didn't even have a chance to resist." Quote. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone in the lounge was stunned. They never expected that someone would actually be willing to spend 100,000 gold coins for this. Generally speaking, 1 gold coin was enough for an ordinary family to live for a year, and most spirit saint experts didn't have a net worth of 100,000 gold coins. Qinming was the first to recover, his expression solemn as he said, "Yanzi's strength is not weak. The spirit beast capable of defeating her is at least at the 1,000-year level, and possibly even a 10,000-year spirit beast." Quote. In that light, the price of 100,000 gold coins is relatively reasonable. Quote. The others nodded one after another. If spending 100,000 gold coins could exchange for a fighter above the spirit ancestor level, he believed many spirit masters would be willing to spend the money. One had to know that there weren't many spirit masters above the spirit ancestor level. In the army, they could become a minor general. Moreover, the Pokeball had the function of storing spirit beasts and could be carried around at any time, which was equivalent to a personal bodyguard on standby. Not to mention the others, even Yu Tianong was a little tempted. Although he was an attack system battle spirit master, his strength was not much stronger than Douluo's. If he could buy a powerful spirit beast, it would also be a significant boost to his strength. Seeing the crowd's reaction, Qinming coughed dryly and said loudly, "Alright, let's stop dwelling on this for now. The most important thing right now is to win the next team spirit fight." Quote. As he spoke, he took out a pile of documents and placed them on the table. It was the information on each member of the Shrek team. Under Qin Ming's reminder, Yu Tianong and the others quickly focused their minds and began to examine them. At this moment, Du Guyan happened to see Ning Rongrong's information. When she saw the words, 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda, a complex expression flashed in her eyes, 3 parts shock, 7 parts doubt. The fame of the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda was known throughout the world, but she had never heard of a 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda. A moment later, Du Guyan looked up at Qin Ming and asked, Teacher Qin, is something written wrong here? How could it be a 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda? Quote. Qin Ming glanced at the information and said indifferently, I have verified all this information personally, there cannot be a mistake. Quote. This 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda spirit master has not appeared for the first time. It seems she consumed a special herb that caused her spirit to evolve. Quote. Her support ability is extremely strong, you must eliminate her the moment you enter the field. Quote. Everyone nodded one after another. Eliminating the support first in a team battle was a standard tactic, especially since the support was extraordinary, they absolutely could not give her a chance to cast her buffs. There is also this Tang San, who needs attention as well. Quote. Qin Ming pointed to another person's information and instructed, he should be the tactical core of this team. Although it is a blue-silver grass spirit, you must not take him lightly. Quote. Hearing this, everyone nodded in agreement. After some tactical arrangements, everyone prepared for the evening's match. Meanwhile, in another lounge, the Shrek Academy group was also discussing tactics. Although the Wangdu team's lineup wasn't great, everyone was above level 30 and had the support of a 9-heart begonia spirit master, making them a strong enemy for the Shrek team. When evening arrived, the two teams entered the competition arena one after another. Not long after stepping onto the arena, Du Guyan recognized Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing and was secretly shocked. This was too coincidental. Although Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing wore masks, they could be vaguely recognized from their figures. Almost at the same time, Ning Rongrong also noticed Du Guyan. The two's gazes collided in the air, full of gunpowder. Chapter 26, Tang Hao comes looking for trouble, but gets his home stolen by Luzon instead. Meanwhile, Flender was not watching the matches at the Great Spirit Arena, but had come to the strange treasure shop. Every month, he needed to deliver 10,000 gold coins to Luzon without fail. Walking into the shop, Flender placed a black card on the counter, his expression very complex. Over these past 4 months, he had successfully given Luzon 50,000 gold coins. As for the bitterness in the process of scraping the money together, only he himself knew. For a spirit saint, earning 10,000 gold coins a month was not easy, let alone when he still had to support an academy, and Yu Shaogang had often asked him for money. In order to make money, he, as the dean, had to take on some private jobs, and even help others hunt spirit beasts for spirit rings. He never thought that one day he would fall into such a state. Extortion failed, and he was instead blackmailed for 100,000 gold coins, it was ultimately reaping what he had sown. You can go now. After putting away the black card, Luzon waved his hand at Flender, signaling him to leave quickly. Flender opened his mouth, seemingly wanting to say something, but 1,000 words ultimately turned into a sigh, and he turned to walk in the direction of Shrek Academy. Next, Luzon continued to cultivate. Ever since he switched to cultivating the 9-yang divine art, his cultivation had progressed rapidly, and it would not be long before he could break through to level 70. After an unknown amount of time, a figure appeared silently at the shop entrance. It was a man wearing a tattered cloak, with a burly build, his face mostly hidden by a hood. He did not look like a good person. He walked slowly into the shop, his turbid eyes looking at Luzon who was cultivating, and he said in a deep voice. Boss, what do you sell in this shop? Hearing the voice, Luzon was startled and immediately looked toward the sound. When he saw who it was, his mood instantly became a bit heavier. Although this guy looked very slovenly and even gave off a smell of low-quality alcohol, his identity was not ordinary. Clear Sky Douluo, Tang Hao. He had thought that as long as he did not make a move against Tang San, he would not attract Tang Hao's attention, but he did not expect to be sought out by this jinx. Luzon forcibly steadied his emotions, then took out a Pokeball and placed it on the counter, introducing it with a calm face. This is called a Pokeball. It contains an unknown, rare spirit beast, and costs 100,000 gold coins each. While speaking, Luzon took out 2 more Pokeballs and recalled Chansey and Butterfree, which served as a demonstration for Tang Hao. Seeing this, a glimmer of light flashed in Tang Hao's eyes, disappearing in an instant. He did not have much interest in this thing. Several months ago, he had already noticed this shop, but at the time, he did not pay it any mind. It was just a small shop, what kind of waves could it possibly make? Although this Pokeball could store spirit beasts and was indeed an extremely rare spirit tool, it was of no use to a true powerhouse. Moreover, these rare spirit beasts were not strong, and only support system spirit masters would treat them as treasures. Precisely because of this, Tang Hao had never paid it any attention before. Until one accidental opportunity, he discovered that Ning Rongrong's spirit was not the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda, but the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda. This attracted his attention. If nothing went wrong, the evolution of Ning Rongrong's spirit should be related to Luzon. In Tang Hao's eyes, a mere 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda was nothing and was not enough to threaten the status of the Clear Sky sect. But he thought again, if the Clear Sky hammer could be strengthened, it would surely be able to lead the sect back to its peak, and even replacing the spirit hall was not impossible. Thinking of this, Tang Hao immediately released a trace of pressure toward Luzon and said in a deep voice. Besides this, are there any other items? Hearing this, Luzon's thoughts raced, and he immediately took out a martial soul enhancement scroll and placed it on the counter, introducing it. This is called a martial soul enhancement scroll. After using it, it can increase spirit strength and has a certain chance to cause the spirit to evolve. It costs 1 million gold coins each. Tang Hao's eyes flashed with joy, he had indeed guessed correctly. It was just that he could not understand why Luzon, who was only a spirit emperor, possessed such a magical treasure. Such a treasure being wasted on a support spirit was simply a waste of a precious item. His Clear Sky sect possessed the world's #1 tool spirit, only they were worthy of using such a magical treasure. Immediately, Tang Hao reached out and took the martial soul enhancement scroll into his hand, saying in an unquestionable tone, how do I use it? Luzon's eyes flickered, he knew very well that this guy was a pauper who could not possibly take out 1 million gold coins. This guy was clearly planning to rob him. The worst case scenario had already occurred. Fortunately, Luzon had recalled Chansey and Butterfree into their Pokeballs in advance. Originally, he had planned to stay for 2 more months and wait until he broke through to level 70 before leaving, but since he had attracted Tang Hao's attention, he definitely could not stay here any longer. A moment later, Lu Zan took a deep breath and said solemnly, "This, senior, it can only be used after payment." Hearing this answer, Tang Hao snorted coldly and suddenly erupted with a powerful fluctuation of spirit power, crushing the counter in front of him into fragments. A mere spirit emperor actually dared to negotiate with him. To him, such a treasure could allow him to make up for the sins he had committed in the past and lead the clear sky sect back to its peak. He would obtain it at all costs. As long as you are willing to offer up this treasure, I will definitely not treat you unfairly. Hearing Tang Hao's promise, Lu Zan sneered in his heart. He was clearly planning to rob him, yet he still put on a sanctimonious appearance. It was simply laughable. Immediately, he quietly activated the rabbit talisman, while outwardly remaining calm. You just need to place it on your spirit. Tang Hao curled his lips and, without a word, summoned the clear sky hammer, not worried at all about revealing his identity. He had already thought of a countermeasure. If the method of use was correct, he would take this guy to the clear sky sect and trade a position as an guest elder for these treasures. That would not be treating this guy unfairly. Just as Tang Hao was about to try, Lu Zan activated the rabbit talisman. The next moment, he shot past Tang Hao's side like a bolt of lightning, his speed so fast that not even an afterimage could be seen. In the blink of an eye, Lu Zan had completely disappeared. Seeing this, Tang Hao was stunned for a moment, but he did not immediately give chase. The item was in his hand, after all. He would test whether it was real or fake first. But the next second, he was dumbfounded. The martial soul enhancement scroll that he had just been clutching in his hand had actually vanished into thin air. How is this possible? Tang Hao's face instantly turned ashen. In a fit of rage, he used the clear sky hammer to raise the entire shop to the ground. After venting his anger, he realized that since Lu Zan had handed over the item so easily, he must have been certain that he could not use it. In fact, Lu Zan had already said, it can only be used after payment, but Tang Hao simply did not believe him. Now, Lu Zan was nowhere to be found, and he could not even sense his presence. Tang Hao looked ghastly. Being toyed with by a junior like this, his mood was like having eaten excrement. He did not understand. How could a spirit emperor have such fast speed? Meanwhile, Lu Zan had already left Soto City. He did not go to Heaven-Do City, but after taking a long, winding detour, he headed in the direction of Nuoding City. Tang Hao had caused him such great trouble, he had to properly repay him. Chapter 27, The Blind God of Eyes, Su Yun Tao, tips off Spirit Hall. Soto City, Great Spirit Arena. The team spirit fight between the Wangdu team and the Shrek team has ended, and the Shrek team has achieved final victory. Although the Shrek team lacked the Hell White Tiger, Ning Rongrong's spirit had evolved, greatly enhancing her support capabilities and effectively raising the entire team's strength by a level. After the match, Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing did not go to celebrate with the others, instead, they headed toward the strange treasure shop. Not long after, the two arrived on the familiar street. But the sight before them left them completely dumbfounded. The strange treasure shop was gone, replaced by a pile of ruins. The building and the utensils had all been reduced to fragments, and even the surrounding ground had sunk deeply, as if crushed by a great mountain. How could this happen? Ning Rongrong's pupils dilated, unable to believe everything before her. After a while, Zhu Zuqing, who was beside her, spoke up. Perhaps someone had their eyes on his treasures. At the moment, this was the only explanation that made sense. The Pokeball alone was worth 100,000 gold coins, let alone the other more precious treasures. It was not strange for someone to have targeted him. However, Lu Zan's strength was far above that of a spirit saint. Even if he encountered a spirit Douluo expert, there was a high probability he could handle it. Now that Lu Zan was missing and the strange treasure shop had turned into ruins, it looked more like the work of a titled Douluo. But the problem was that experts at the titled Douluo level were extremely rare. The titled Douluo experts within the Heaven-Do Empire could be counted on one hand. Judging by the destruction at the scene, it seemed to be a power-type titled Douluo who had forcibly destroyed it. Moreover, there was a high probability that this titled Douluo was very short on money, unable to even come up with 100,000 gold coins, which was why they chose to take action. In this way, the possibility of Spirit Hall being the culprit was basically ruled out. After all, the elders of Spirit Hall certainly would not be short of money. Of course, Spirit Hall had been known to seize things by force, but they certainly wouldn't be so blatant as to raise a building to the ground. Rongrong, let's go back first. Zhu Zuqing walked to Ning Rongrong's side, gently patted her shoulder, and comforted her softly. He has so many powerful treasures, he surely won't be in danger. Ning Rongrong took a deep breath, and the emotions in her heart gradually calmed down. She believed that Lu Zan could escape from the enemy's hands and perhaps would return after some time. No, with that guy's personality, there was a high probability he wouldn't return. The next morning. After traveling all night, Lu Zan finally arrived at Nuoding City. Compared to Soto City, Nuoding City was clearly much more backward. The pedestrians coming and going on the streets were basically all ordinary people, and one rarely saw the figures of spirit masters. Rather than a city, it was more like a small town. Even the spirit hall stationed here was only the lowest tier branch, with the strongest person not exceeding the rank of a spirit elder. After entering Nuoding City, Lu Zan did not rush to find the hiding place of the Blue-Silver Emperor, Yin. If he searched blindly like this, he didn't know when he would find it. A person needs to use their brain more. The original work clearly mentioned that Tang Hao had placed Yin in a cave. If he remembered correctly, this cave was hidden behind a waterfall, and the height of the waterfall was nearly 200 meters, acting as a natural barrier that could prevent spirit masters or spirit beasts from intruding. Such a high waterfall was not common. As long as he asked someone to inquire about it, he would certainly be able to narrow down the range, thereby saving a lot of time. Besides this, Lu Zan had another idea. He planned to expose Tang San's identity and reveal Tang Hao's whereabouts to Spirit Hall. Although he had no grudge against Tang San, who told him to be Tang Hao's son. He was not a righteous gentleman, and he wouldn't be as principled as Qian Daliu. Moreover, he had always disliked Tang San. Given Tang San's personality, once he knew about this, he would definitely stand on Tang Hao's side. This inference was not groundless. After all, Tang San had the mindset of an ancient person, regardless of right or wrong, he would never dare to disobey his father. Spirit Hall was the best example. To avenge his mother, Tang San actually uprooted the entire Spirit Hall. In all fairness, Spirit Hall taking action against a 100,000-year spirit beast was not wrong, it was at most a matter of stance. However, Tang San destroyed Spirit Hall's tens of thousands of years of foundation in one fell swoop. Taking a step back, even if Tang San was right to avenge his mother, there was no need to completely eradicate Spirit Hall. From a historical perspective, Spirit Hall maintained the stability of the continent for tens of thousands of years. They did very well in this regard. Don't you see that after Spirit Hall was erased, evil spirit masters were like creatures without natural predators, burning, killing, and looting everywhere, even creating a holy spirit cult. Admittedly, there were significant problems within Spirit Hall's upper management. Especially Bibi Dong, this crazy woman committed sins herself but wanted the whole world to atone for her, which simply couldn't be whitewashed. However, most of the grassroots spirit masters of Spirit Hall couldn't be considered bad. Erasing Spirit Hall from the continent for personal gain, resulting in increased difficulty for commoners to awaken their spirits, was also a major crime. What was most ridiculous was that Shrek Academy replaced Spirit Hall's position, and not only did they fail to maintain order on the continent, they also did many disgusting things, falling far short of Spirit Hall. It was clear that Tang San was the fuse for all the trouble. Therefore, whether for public or private reasons, Luzon had no reason to let the little rascal go. After some searching, Luzon found the Spirit Hall branch in Nuoding City. When he was about to enter, a young man of about 30 years old walked out from inside and reached out to block his path. Who are you? What are you doing here? Luzon was not angry because of this. He quickly took out his Spirit Master manual from his storage spirit tool and tossed it into the young man's hand. Seeing this, the young man quickly caught it and began to inspect it. The next second, his eyes widened instantly. 4-ring Spirit Ancestor. The young man's face was full of shock and disbelief. The person before him looked no more than 20 years old, yet he was already a Spirit Ancestor expert above level 40. Could it be a genius cultivated by some faction? This Spirit Master manual was not forged by Luzon. As for why it didn't show a 6-ring Spirit Emperor, it was mainly because after one's spirit power exceeded level 40, one could no longer receive subsidies from Spirit Hall. Therefore, Luzon hadn't gone to Spirit Hall to update his information for many years, which resulted in the Spirit Master manual only recording his cultivation as a 4-ring Spirit Ancestor. Lord Spirit Ancestor, I apologize for my offense just now, please forgive me. The young man quickly bowed to Luzon and said respectfully, I am Su Yuntao, the branch master of this branch. Hearing this name, Luzon was stunned for a moment, and he looked at Su Yuntao with slight surprise. He didn't expect to run into the blind god of eyes. This guy seemed to have just broken through to Spirit Elder not long ago, so it was reasonable that he had been promoted to branch master. However, judging by his age, the most he would cultivate in his life was the Spirit Ancestor realm. Looking at the now respectful Su Yuntao, Luzon curled his lips and said indifferently, I have an important piece of information that I would like you to report to the Supreme Pontiff Palace. You just need to report it truthfully, and it will be a great achievement. Chapter 28. Stealing the Blue Silver Emperor Ayin, 100,000 year soul bone obtained. Upon hearing Luzon's words, Su Yuntao frowned. Could there be a trap in this? Before he could reply, Luzon leaned into his ear and whispered, this information concerns the clear sky Douluo. Upon hearing this, Su Yuntao was stunned. Seeing that he hadn't recovered, Luzon continued, Tang Hao is right here in Soto City. As long as you report this news, you will definitely be highly valued. Su Yuntao was stunned again. It took a long time for him to come to his senses, and he asked skeptically, how did you find out about this? Just report it, that's all you need to do. You don't want to stay in this small city for your whole life, right? Stimulated by Luzon's words, Su Yuntao fell silent. 3 years ago, he had been dumped by his girlfriend, simply because this small city was too small to keep a phoenix like her from flying away. Oh right, Tang Hao also has a son named Tang San. You should know him, a blue silver grass spirit master with innate full spirit power. He is also in Soto City, Luzon added. Upon hearing this, Su Yuntao's brain simply crashed. Since Tang San was Tang Hao's son, why wasn't his spirit the clear sky hammer? Luzon saw his confusion and explained, he possesses twin spirits. Hearing this, Su Yuntao realized it instantly. No wonder Tang San possessed innate full spirit power, it turned out he had another spirit. After a long silence, Su Yuntao looked up at Luzon and asked, why are you telling me all this? I have a grudge against them, and I don't want them to have an easy time, Luzon said frankly. Hearing this straightforward answer, the corners of Su Yuntao's mouth couldn't help but twitch. Although he had a decent impression of Tang San, this matter was of great importance, and it was impossible for him to cover it up for Tang San. After all, he was a branch master of Spirit Hall. A moment later, Su Yuntao promised, I will report it as soon as possible. Luzon nodded and changed the subject. Is there any large waterfall nearby? The higher, the better. I intend to use it to train my physique. Hearing this, Su Yuntao was shocked. This method of cultivation was simply too exaggerated. No wonder he had reached the rank of Spirit Ancestor at such a young age. A moment later, Su Yuntao took out a map, pointed to a location, and explained, there's a waterfall here, about 200 meters high. The impact force is extremely strong, it might be helpful to you. Can you sell this map to me? Luzon asked. Su Yuntao was taken aback for a moment, then laughed. It's just a map, I'll give it to you. After saying that, Su Yuntao handed the map to Luzon. The next moment, Luzon took a money bag from his spirit tool, handed it to Su Yuntao, and then left without looking back. Watching his departing figure, Su Yuntao looked down at the heavy bag in his hand, and his previous thought became even more firm. This person must come from a major power. Following the guidance of the map, Luzon successfully found the waterfall. The waterfall was located on the side of a mountain road, about 20 meters wide, but nearly 200 meters high, pouring down from a steep cliff to form a massive curtain of water. Below was a pool, likely formed by the gathering of the waterfall's water. The waterfall poured down, crashing heavily into the pool, splashing countless droplets. Under the refraction of the sunlight, a rainbow stretched across both ends of the waterfall, a scene so magnificent it was breathtaking. This must be it. Looking at the surrounding environment, Luzon was more than 90% sure. After making some adjustments, Luzon walked straight toward the waterfall. Upon getting closer, he could clearly feel a cool, refreshing mist rushing toward his face, which was invigorating. Luzon took a deep breath and leapt into the water curtain. Soon, a natural karst cave appeared before his eyes. The entrance was blocked by the water curtain, making it impossible to see from the outside. After entering the cave, a damp, moldy smell rushed toward him, causing Luzon to frown tightly. After some searching, Luzon finally found a stalk of blue silver grass. It was in a corner, looking similar to the blue silver grass on the roadside, perhaps even worse. However, if one looked closely, one could clearly see tiny golden patterns on the leaves, indicating that this stalk of blue silver grass was not ordinary. This stalk of blue silver grass was the blue silver Emperor Ayin. Looking at the incredibly weak Ayin, Luzon pondered for a moment, then took out a pokeball and released Chansey. Chansey, heal her. Chansey, tilde. Hearing her master's command, Chansey immediately waddled over to Ayin. The egg in her abdominal pocket emitted a soft glow, and a warm ringing sound echoed throughout the cave. The ability of Heal Bell was slowly released, and pale pink sound waves enveloped Ayin. Taking advantage of the gap while Chansey was healing, Luzon did not idle. He walked along the wall deeper into the cave. If nothing went wrong, the blue-silver Emperor's right leg spirit bone had also been placed here by Tang Hao. Since he was already here, he certainly couldn't miss it, otherwise, wouldn't it just be a bargain for that little brat? In the original story, after Tang San absorbed the blue-silver Emperor's right leg spirit bone, his spirit power did not increase, instead, it was used to replenish his origin, which meant Tang San's cultivation path was wrong. If Tang San's talent were extremely poor, absorbing a poison attribute spirit ring wouldn't be a problem. However, as Tang San's cultivation grew, the toxins in his blue-silver grass spirit accumulated more and more, already conflicting with his life origin. Even if Tang San completed his second awakening, the life origin of his blue-silver Emperor spirit had still lost a portion. Without the blue-silver Emperor's right leg spirit bone to replenish the origin, the power of the blue-silver Emperor spirit would certainly be significantly reduced. Next, Luzon carefully groped along the surrounding walls, while simultaneously using his mental force to investigate, trying to find a mechanism. After a long while, Luzon finally found a stone that could be pressed and decisively pushed it in. The next moment, something black descended from the sky. Luzon flashed his figure and caught it steadily. It was a long black box, covered in dust, which looked like it had been placed there for a long time. Luzon did not hesitate in the slightest and immediately opened the box. Clang, accompanied by a muffled sound, the box was completely opened. Immediately following, an extremely rich life energy rushed toward him, making the surrounding space seem to solidify. Fortunately, Luzon's cultivation was not low, so he wouldn't be disturbed by this aura. He looked closely and saw a complete right leg spirit bone inside the box. The spirit bone was crystal clear and blue gold, as if it contained tiny starlight. Facing a 100,000-year soul bone, even though Luzon had been prepared, he couldn't help but feel a hint of excitement. However, he quickly calmed down. This spirit bone possessed two skills, flight and spring breeze blows again. For him, these two skills were not very useful. Although the flight skill could be useful for now, once he cultivated to title Douluo or obtained an item with flight capabilities, this skill would become completely useless. As for spring breeze blows again, he already had Chansey, so he basically had no use for this skill. The only benefit was that after he absorbed this 100,000-year soul bone, his spirit power should be able to increase by a few levels. However, wasting a spirit bone slot for this was somewhat not worth it. I'll think about it later. Luzon sighed, put the spirit bone into his spirit tool, and then turned back to return the way he came. Under Chansey's healing, Ayan had obviously recovered quite a bit, and even took the initiative to reach out and touch Luzon's palm, as if expressing gratitude. Thanks, Chansey. Luzon patted Chansey's head. Under his petting, Chansey let out a happy, Chansey, sound. Immediately after, Luzon took out a pot from his spirit tool and transferred the blue-silver Emperor into it. After all this was done, Luzon did not stay long and immediately left the karst cave. Chapter 29, Shinfeng Academy, selling the first skill book. Several days later, Elemental City. This was a city located in the west of the Heaven Do Empire, named for the many elemental academies situated there. Compared to Soto City, Elemental City was significantly more prosperous. Students wearing various academy uniforms could be seen everywhere on the streets, and the air was filled with an aura of youth and vitality. After entering the city, Luzon first found an inn, settled Ayan on the balcony, and left her in the care of Chansey. Since Chansey was not good at attacking, Luzon also left Butterfree behind. After making the arrangements, he left the inn. This time, Luzon intended to change his sales model. The efficiency of opening a shop previously was too low, and it was also easy to attract trouble. With the threat of Tang Hao present, he had to increase his strength as quickly as possible. Although Spirit Hall would definitely go to cause trouble for Tang Hao once they knew his whereabouts, Luzon did not believe in Spirit Hall's efficiency. Unless Spirit Hall dispatched multiple title Douluo, it would be impossible to take down Tang Hao. But the problem was, relying solely on an unsubstantiated piece of information, it was simply unrealistic to expect Spirit Hall to dispatch multiple title Douluo. However, this information could at least cause some trouble for Tang Hao and Tang San. For Luzon, to improve his strength as quickly as possible, he had to obtain more lottery opportunities. Therefore, this time he planned to take the initiative to sell door to door. Although Elemental City was a large city, the strongest person there shouldn't exceed the level of a Spirit Douluo. He could easily deal with experts of this level. After some inquiries, Luzon finally found the location of Shinfeng Academy. As a high-level Spirit Master Academy, the scale of Shinfeng Academy far exceeded those roadside diploma mills. Its footprint alone was more than 10 times larger, with various buildings standing in rows, creating a magnificent atmosphere. Just as he arrived at the main gate, Luzon was blocked by two guards. Stop, unauthorized personnel are not allowed to enter. Seeing this, Luzon did not waste words. 6 spirit rings spiraled up from under his feet in succession. 1 yellow, 2 purple, 3 black. The unconventional spirit ring configuration made the two guards' expressions change drastically. Their legs went weak, and they almost knelt on the ground. I have business with your dean, please announce my arrival. My lord, please wait a moment, I will go announce it right away. The guard on the right hurriedly bowed and then turned to run into the academy. After a long while, a middle-aged man wearing a cyan robe walked to the gate, looked Luzon up and down, and a flash of surprise crossed his eyes. This was his first time seeing such a young spirit emperor. I am Feng Tianxiao, the dean of this Shinfeng Academy. May I ask what you are called, young friend? The middle-aged man cupped his hands, his tone quite polite. A spirit emperor around 20 years old, with a spirit ring configuration that defied common sense, regardless of whether there was a major power behind him, such a genius should not be offended. Junior Luzon has met Dean Feng. My presumptuous visit this time is to discuss a business deal with Dean Feng. Luzon stood straight, neither humble nor arrogant. Business. Dean Feng was taken aback for a moment. He had thought of many possibilities in his mind, but this was the only one he hadn't guessed. In his view, a genius as fearless as Luzon should be spending his time on cultivation. Why would he get involved in business matters? Moreover, he happened to come to their Shinfeng Academy. A moment later, Dean Feng suppressed the doubts in his heart and smiled. Young friend, this is not a place to talk, please come with me. I shall accept your kindness. Luzon nodded slightly, then followed behind Dean Feng, arriving at the reception room. Inside the room, Dean Feng first poured a cup of tea for Luzon, then asked, young friend, I wonder what business you are referring to. Dean Feng, please take a look. Luzon didn't dawdle at all and directly conjured several items out of thin air, placing them on the table. They were a Pokeball, Soul Power Pill, Martial Soul Enhancement Scroll, and Skill Book, respectively. What are these items? Dean Feng's gaze swept over these items, a flash of confusion crossing his eyes. He had never seen these items before. Next, Luzon introduced the function and price of these things one by one to Dean Feng. Hearing the functions of these items, Dean Fang's pupils shook, and his face was full of shock and disbelief. Did such magical treasures really exist? If the other party's introduction did not contain any false components, this price was actually reasonable. However, even the cheapest item cost 100,000 gold coins, which was still too expensive for Shinfeng Academy. Even taking a step back, even if Shinfeng Academy could afford it, there was no way to distribute them to the students. Dean Feng pondered for a moment, looked up at Lu Zan, and said tactfully, "Young friend Lu, these treasures of yours are indeed tempting, but the price is too expensive, we really cannot afford them." As the dean of Shinfeng Academy, how could he believe the one-sided words of a stranger? Hearing this, Lu Zan was not surprised and took the initiative to change the subject. "Dean Feng, there are only 2 years left until the next Spirit Master competition, do you not have any ideas?" Dean Feng frowned, how could he not have any ideas? The Spirit Master competition was held every 5 years and was the most popular competition on the entire continent. As long as they achieved a good ranking, it could greatly increase the Academy's reputation. As the dean of Shinfeng Academy, he dreamed of letting the Divine Wind team win the championship in the competition. But the problem was that the team cultivated by Spirit Hall with all their might was too powerful, completely crushing other teams, and there was almost no hope of winning the championship. Seeing the other party lost in thought, Lu Zan pointed to the skill book on the table and added, "As long as you buy this skill book, not only can the user immediately master a self-created spirit ability, but it can also be taught to others, greatly improving the team's strength. In this way, your Shinfeng Academy will have the potential to win the championship." Hearing this, Dean Feng fell silent. A good self-created spirit ability could indeed improve the student's strength quite a bit. In all fairness, selling a self-created spirit ability for 2 million gold coins was not expensive. After all, a self-created spirit ability could be passed down indefinitely. The only problem was that self-created spirit abilities were often only suitable for spirit masters with the same spirit, such as the Clear Sky 9 Absolutes and the Disorder-Splitting Wind Hammer method of the Clear Sky sect. Lu Zan saw his concern and promised, "Dean Feng, this wind attribute skill book is perfectly suited for your Shinfeng Academy. If you are not satisfied afterwards, I guarantee a full refund at the original price." With this guarantee, Dean Feng was instantly relieved. "All right then, I will trust you once." Dean Feng gritted his teeth. In order to win the championship in 2 years, he had to take a risk. If this were a scam, he was not worried about Lu Zan escaping. He was a wind attribute spirit Douluo, and his speed was not much worse than a titled Douluo. After taking the black card from Dean Feng's hand, Lu Zan handed over the skill book. "Dean Feng, I must remind you that apart from the user who can master it 100%, other spirit masters will depend on their comprehension." Hearing this, Dean Feng nodded. Of course, he knew that self-created spirit abilities all had a certain threshold. Chapter 30. The 4 elemental team strengthened. Chaos in the Spirit Master competition. To maximize the utility of the skill book, Dean Feng did not intend to use it himself, but instead called over a young man in his early 20s. He was dressed in a cyan martial outfit, with a somewhat handsome face and a straight posture, his brows and eyes exuding confidence and flamboyance. This person was none other than the captain of the Shinfeng Academy team, Feng Xiaodian. He possessed a 1 in a million innate full spirit power, yet he wasted most of his energy on self-created spirit abilities, resulting in a cultivation level that was not particularly high. There was even a rumor that Feng Xiaodian had deliberately suppressed his cultivation level just to get closer to Huo Wu. Such a maneuver could only be pulled off by a top-tier sim. But then again, this was the place where the god of love fell, and such sims were not uncommon. "This guy looks even younger than me, yet he is actually a spirit emperor." Feng Xiaodian secretly sized up Lu Zan, his heart filled with shock. He possessed innate full spirit power and had only just barely cultivated to the spirit ancestor realm. How did this guy cultivate? If he had such a high cultivation level, perhaps Huo Wu would not have rejected him. At this moment, Dean Feng handed the skill book in his hand to Feng Xiaodian and said softly, "Xiaodian, you are the captain of the Shinfeng Academy team, so this skill book will be for you to use." Under Lu Zan's guidance, Feng Xiaodian pressed the skill book against his forehead. The next moment, the skill book turned into a streak of cyan light and merged into his brow. Feng Xiaodian's body trembled, his eyes flashed with cyan light, and a massive amount of memory was rapidly engraved into his mind. After a while, Feng Xiaodian finally digested all the knowledge. Immediately, he said with an expression of disbelief, "I have really learned a self-created spirit ability, and it feels unprecedentedly familiar, as if I had mastered it from birth." Hearing this, Dean Feng finally felt relieved. At least he didn't have to worry about being scammed out of 2 million gold coins. A moment later, Dean Feng patted Feng Xiaodian on the shoulder and hurriedly asked, "Xiaodian, what is the power of this self-created spirit ability like?" Regarding this question, Feng Xiaodian did not explain, but instead took practical action to verify it. He gathered a large amount of wind elements in his palm, which eventually formed an energy ball the size of a fist. Immediately after, Feng Xiaodian aimed at a large tree outside the window and threw the energy ball in his hand. The energy ball rotated at high speed, emitting a sharp buzzing sound. The surrounding air was torn apart, creating a strong airflow. Boom! With a loud bang, the large tree outside the window snapped in response, and the aftermath of the explosion shattered the window, leaving clearly visible cracks even on the wall. Seeing the scene outside the window, Dean Feng's pupils constricted. Although it had caused considerable damage, he was not angry in the slightest. Instead, he felt incomparably excited. A casual strike already possessed such terrifying power. If unleashed with full force, it would absolutely not be inferior to a 10,000-year spirit ability. If the entire Shinfeng Academy team mastered it, they would really have a chance to contend for the championship against the Spirit Hall team. These 2 million gold coins were well spent. However, Feng Xiaodian's mood was very complicated. He was both happy and distressed. He was happy because he had mastered an incredibly powerful self-created spirit ability. What was distressing was that the self-created spirit ability he had painstakingly researched for so many years wasn't even comparable to this purchased spirit ability. Did that not mean he had wasted so much energy for nothing? At this moment, Dean Feng's mind was not on Feng Xiaodian, he was thinking about something. Since the skill book was real and effective, it meant that the other items should also be real. Thinking of this, Dean Feng gritted his teeth, took out a black card again, handed it to Lu Zan, and said, "Young friend, there's 1 million in this card. I will buy another martial soul enhancement scroll." Feng Xiaodian's spirit was a mutated spirit. Although its quality was close to a top-tier spirit, it had not truly reached the top-tier spirit level. If Feng Xiaodian's spirit was upgraded to a top-tier spirit, the chances of winning the championship would be greatly increased. Since he had already spent 2 million gold coins, he might as well go all in and bet on winning the Spirit Master competition 2 years later. As for the Soul Power Pill, Dean Feng had no intention of purchasing it. In his view, Feng Xiaodian possessed innate full spirit power, and as long as he didn't waste time on self-created spirit abilities, his cultivation speed would increase by a large margin. Following Lu Zon's instructions, Feng Xiaodian used the martial soul enhancement scroll. Because the first enhancement had a 100% success rate, Feng Xiaodian's double-headed storm wolf received a significant boost, barely reaching the quality of a top-tier spirit. After the enhancement was successful, Dean Feng was extremely grateful to Lu Zon and even wanted to invite Lu Zon to stay as a guest, which Lu Zon refused. How could he possibly sell only to the Shinfeng Academy? The other academies were also in his plan. A single academy did not have enough financial resources, but if the 4 elemental academies were added together, he could still sell quite a few things. If Dean Feng knew Lu Zon's thoughts, he would probably spit out a mouthful of old blood. He chose to buy these things just to win the championship of the Spirit Master competition, but after this manipulation by Lu Zon, it would inevitably be chaotic 2 years later. 3 days later. During this time, Lu Zon visited the Blazing Academy, Thunder Academy, and Tianshui Academy in turn. Among them, Tianshui Academy was the most troublesome. There was no helping it, Tianshui Academy only recruited female students, and males could barely be seen within the academy. As a young male, Lu Zon suddenly visiting a women's academy would inevitably be perceived as having ulterior motives. Fortunately, Lu Zon displayed his Spirit Emperor cultivation, which helped avoid some trouble. Just like with the Shinfeng Academy, Lu Zon sold a skill book to each of the 3 academies, using the reason that it would help them win the Spirit Master competition. Besides that, Tianshui Academy additionally purchased 3 soul power pills. Because Shui Binger's spirit was a nice phoenix, which belonged to the top-tier beast spirit category, she did not really need a martial soul enhancement scroll, so they did not risk trying it. Thunder Academy was the same. In addition to the lightning attribute skill book, they also bought 3 soul power pills. As for the Blazing Academy, they bought 2 martial soul enhancement scrolls at once, giving them to Huo Wushwang and Huo Wu respectively. Overall, the Blazing Academy seemed to be a bit wealthier. The only thing that disappointed Lu Zon was that none of the 4 academies chose to buy any Pokeballs. Even though Pokeballs were the cheapest item, not a single academy bought one, which was really somewhat hard for him to accept. By comparison, he wanted to sell the Pokeballs even more. After all, Pokeballs were high quality and inexpensive, allowing him to gain a few more lottery chances. However, thinking about it carefully, it was also normal. After all, they did not know the power of Pokemon. If they spent 100,000 gold coins to get a pet with no combat ability, or a spirit beast with weak combat ability, it would be of little use to them. Coupled with the fact that Lu Zon did not demonstrate it for them, they naturally would not choose to take the risk. In fact, besides these 4 academies, there was also the Elephant Armor Academy, but since the Elephant Armored Academy behind the Elephant Armor Academy already belonged to Spirit Hall, Lu Zon did not go there. But regardless, Lu Zon had sold a total of 13 items and had already obtained 4 lottery chances. He immediately returned to his hotel room, preparing to use these 4 lottery chances. Chapter 31, Conceptual God Wabafet, Spirit Hall besieges Tanghao and Sun. Returning to his hotel room, Lu Zon sat on the chair on the balcony, and a giant roulette wheel appeared before his eyes once again. Start the lucky draw. The pointer spun rapidly, finally stopping on a pill. High-level soul power pill. For spirit masters below level 90, consuming this guarantees an increase of 1 level of spirit power. Not bad. The corners of Lu Zon's mouth curled up slightly. The effect of this high-level soul power pill was much stronger than the common spirit power pill. If an 89th level spirit Douluo consumed it, they could directly reach the titled Douluo realm. However, Lu Zon did not intend to consume it now. Although he was only 1 level away from the Spirit Saint realm, consuming it now would be somewhat wasteful. It would only exert its maximum effect if consumed after reaching level 80. Continue. Lu Zon suppressed the excitement in his heart and spun the roulette pointer again. Chicken Talisman grants the power of levitation, allowing the holder to use telekinesis to float in the air and control objects to float and move. When used on any target, the effect is a combination of levitation and telekinesis. Lu Zon's pupils constricted. He hadn't expected to draw another talisman, and it was the Chicken Talisman, which granted the power of levitation. Coupled with the high-speed movement of the Rabbit Talisman, who in the world could stop him? A moment later, Lu Zon took a deep breath, forcibly suppressed the excitement in his heart, and decided to finish the remaining 2 draws first. Shengxing Babian, a top-tier movement technique, which allows one to be as elusive as a ghost when performed, is known as the strongest escape movement technique. Lu Zon's mouth twitched. This movement technique was indeed good, but he already had the Rabbit Talisman and the Chicken Talisman, so he didn't need to cultivate movement techniques at all. However, as the saying goes, having many skills is no burden, having 1 more movement technique certainly wouldn't hurt. Wabafet, a psychic-type Pokemon, possessing a counter-damage ability that can reflect an opponent's attack back at them with double the power. It is especially skilled at using defense as an offense, known as the pinnacle of defensive counterattacks. The next moment, Lu Zon stood up abruptly from his chair, his eyes filled with surprise. This was a conceptual god Pokemon. It grew stronger as its opponents grew stronger, and its combat power was unfathomable. Simply put, Wabafet was a very special Pokemon. It almost never attacked actively but possessed an extremely terrifying reflection ability. No matter how powerful an opponent's attack was, as long as Wabafet could endure it, it could reflect it back with double the power. To some extent, Wabafet was even more useful than those offensive Pokemon. Especially when dealing with enemies with off-the-charts attack power, Wabafet was simply their nemesis. At this moment, a slovenly figure appeared in Lu Zon's mind, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help but curl upward. If Tanghao suffered the double power of the Great Sumeru Hammer, would he die on the spot? Next, Lu Zon began to cultivate with concentration. He planned to raise his cultivation to level 70 before heading to Heaven Do City. Spirit City, Supreme Pontiff Palace. A man wearing golden armor walked in from outside, exuding an effeminate aura in his every gesture. This person was none other than Chrysanthemum Douluo Yuguan. He walked to the center of the main hall, knelt on one knee, and looked up at the throne above. Bibi Dong was sitting lazily on the throne, her graceful figure outlined by a gorgeous Supreme Pontiff robe, wearing a 9-curved purple gold crown and holding a scepter. Your Eminence, Supreme Pontiff, your subordinate just received news that Tanghao is in Sodo City. Chrysanthemum Douluo reported respectfully. Oh. Bibi Dong lifted her eyelids slightly, her gaze falling on Chrysanthemum Douluo, a sharp light flashing in her purple eyes. Where did this news come from, and how credible is it? Reporting to your Eminence, Supreme Pontiff, this news comes from a young spirit ancestor named Lu Zon. After a pause, Chrysanthemum Douluo said in a deep voice, your subordinate specifically investigated this. He is a freelance spirit master who broke through to the spirit ancestor rank 5 years ago, and he was only 15 years old at that time. A 15-year-old spirit ancestor. A trace of astonishment flashed in Bibi Dong's eyes, and her originally lazy posture instantly tightened a bit. To reach the spirit ancestor realm at 15 was undoubtedly the mark of a peerless genius. Even for the golden generation that Spirit Hall cultivated with all its might, they were only spirit elders at 15, not to mention that this person was a freelance spirit master with no forces supporting him behind the scenes. If he could be recruited into Spirit Hall, he would be quite a useful pawn. Just as Bibi Dong was considering whether to take him under her command, Chrysanthemum Douluo suddenly stepped forward a few paces, his face revealing unprecedented gravity, and he said in a heavy tone. Your Eminence, Supreme Pontiff, there is even more important news. Tang Hao's son is also in Soto City, named Tang San. This person, like you, possesses twin spirits. If he is allowed to grow up, the consequences will be unimaginable. What? Bibi Dong exclaimed, standing up abruptly from the throne, her face filled with shock and disbelief. Twin spirits. She knew very well how great a threat twin spirits were. If she hadn't guessed wrong, Tang San's two spirits should be the Blue Silver Emperor and the Clear Sky Hammer, and his potential was in no way inferior to hers. It was evident that Tang San's threat was far greater than Tang Hao's. Although Tang Hao's strength was extraordinary, the battle many years ago had left many hidden injuries in his body, making it difficult for him to exert his full strength and unable to shake the foundation of Spirit Hall. But Tang San was different. A peerless genius with twin spirits, once he grew up, would inevitably become a major threat to Spirit Hall. A moment later, Bibi Dong calmed her emotions, and her expression instantly returned to its previous calm and composure, cold light flickering in her purple eyes as she said in an unquestionable tone. Yu Guan, Gui Mei, accompany me to Soto City. As you command. 2 days later. At the Great Spirit Arena in Soto City, the group from Shrek Academy had just finished a day of spirit fighting matches. Boss Dai, are we going tonight? Just as they came out of the Great Spirit Arena, Ma Hongjun immediately leaned over to Dai Mubai, rubbing his hands together with a lecherous look on his face. You performed well today, this time my treat, pick whatever you want. As he spoke, Dai Mubai patted Ma Hongjun's shoulder, a comfortable smile curling the corners of his mouth. Ever since he received the news that the strange treasure shop had been destroyed, his mood had improved significantly. This was completely karmic retribution. Previously, Lu Zhan had bullied him by relying on his high cultivation, but when Lu Zhan encountered a spirit master with even higher cultivation, wasn't he crushed all the same? To celebrate the removal of his major threat, Dai Mubai had been visiting brothels more and more frequently during this period. As for Zhu Zuqing, he had completely given up on her. In his eyes, it was very likely that Zhu Zuqing had already been tainted by someone else, and he wouldn't care for damaged goods. Anyway, he didn't have many years left to live, so he might as well enjoy himself while he could. Not only Dai Mubai, but Yu Xiaogang and Flender also felt schadenfreude. They knew very well who had done it. To flatten the strange treasure shop in one blow, such terrifying destructive power could only have been from Tang Hao. Since it was Tang Hao who dealt such a ruthless blow, there was almost no possibility that Lu Zhan had survived. After all, no matter how powerful Lu Zhan was, he was ultimately just a spirit emperor. How could he possibly be a match for a titled Douluo? Furthermore, Tang Hao was not an ordinary titled Douluo, but the Clear Sky Douluo who could take on many enemies at once. Chapter 32. I will destroy Spirit Hall at all costs. On the other side, the trio of Bibi Dong had already arrived in Soto City. Supreme Pontiff, according to my investigation, Tang San is a student at Shrek Academy, and Tang Hao should be in the vicinity. Chrysanthemum Douluo said respectfully. Upon hearing this, Bibi Dong's pupils constricted, and her expression instantly became complex. 20 years had passed in the blink of an eye, she had never forgotten Xiaogang, and even frequently inquired about news regarding him. For example, Yu Xiaogang had formed the Golden Triangle with two other spirit masters, one of them had almost become Yu Xiaogang's wife, but fortunately the lovers ended up as siblings. She had heard of Shrek Academy. It was established by Flender, the flying horn of the Golden Triangle, and could not be considered a formal academy. Could Xiaogang be at this Shrek Academy? Bibi Dong murmured. Seeing Bibi Dong's reaction, Chrysanthemum Douluo and Ghost Douluo exchanged a glance, both able to see the eye rolling in the other's eyes. As the Supreme Pontiff who stood above 10,000, she actually cared so much about a piece of trash. However, since Bibi Dong was their direct superior, they could only keep these words bottled up inside. A moment later, Bibi Dong finally returned to normal and led her two subordinates toward Shrek Academy. Just as the trio of Bibi Dong arrived at Shrek Academy, Tang Hao, who was hiding nearby, discovered them immediately. How did they find this place? There was no time to think. Tang Hao had only one thought in his mind: hurry and take Tang San away. He suffered from many hidden injuries, and if he were to engage the trio of Bibi Dong head-on, it would certainly trigger those injuries, and then he would be completely finished. Tang Hao's figure flashed, and he silently snuck into the academy, heading straight for Tang San's dormitory. At this moment, Tang San was assembling hidden weapons in his room. The next moment, the door was violently pushed open, and a black figure strode straight in. Tang San was startled, and the parts in his hands almost fell to the ground. Just as he was about to call for help, Tang Hao stepped forward in a flash, tightly covering his mouth, and whispered, "Don't scream, I am your father." Hearing this familiar voice, Tang San's body trembled, and he looked at the face under the hood in disbelief. When that familiar face came into view, he instantly stopped resisting, his expression changing from terror to excitement, and his eyes even turned slightly red. "Dad, why did you leave without saying goodbye back then?" Tang San's voice was somewhat choked with sobs. "For 6 whole years, do you know how I live?" Looking at his son's reaction, Tang Hao sighed deeply, a trace of guilt flashing in his eyes. He patted Tang San's shoulder and said in a deep voice, "Little San, we will talk about these things later. I will take you away from here first." Hearing this, Tang San was instantly stunned. "Why? There's no time to explain, hurry and come with me." As his voice fell, Tang Hao forcibly hoisted Tang San onto his shoulder. Seeing his father so urgent, Tang San seemed to realize something and hurriedly said, "Dad, there's also Xiao Wu." Hearing this, Tang Hao hesitated for a moment. Xiao Wu's true identity was a 100,000-year spirit beast. If she were left behind alone, once Bibi Dong discovered her, she would certainly not let her go. He absolutely would not allow such a thing to happen. After making up his mind, Tang Hao disregarded the risk and immediately flew toward the direction of the female dormitory. Inside the room, Xiao Wu had just finished bathing, put on a set of pajamas, and was preparing to sleep, when she suddenly saw a black-robed person rush in through the window. Before she could react, she was forcibly hoisted onto Tang Hao's shoulder. "Bastard, let me go." Because Tang Hao's movements were too fast, Xiao Wu did not see Tang San at first, and immediately began to struggle desperately. Seeing this, Tang San hurriedly covered Xiao Wu's mouth and whispered, "Xiao Wu, he is my dad, don't worry about danger." Although Tang San reacted very quickly, it was still too late. The sound reached the ears of the trio of BB Dong. Their mental force immediately covered the area, instantly pinpointing the target, and they rushed over at the fastest speed. Tang Hao. BB Dong shouted coldly, killing intent rife in her purple eyes. Seeing this situation, Tang Hao gritted his teeth, his seventh spirit ring suddenly lighting up, and a massive clear sky hammer appeared in midair, emitting a suffocating sense of oppression. Seventh spirit ability, Clear Sky Avatar. With a roar, Tang Hao swung the clear sky hammer, which had magnified dozens of times, smashing it fiercely toward the trio of BB Dong. Attack together. The trio of BB Dong simultaneously unleashed their martial soul avatar, attempting to withstand this blow. Boom. An earth-shattering loud noise exploded, the entire ground trembling violently, just the aftermath produced by the collision tore the surrounding buildings into fragments. Facing Tang Hao's all-out strike, the trio of BB Dong were all forced back a distance. After landing a blow, Tang Hao did not stop for a second, decisively carrying Tang San and Xiao Wu and fleeing into the distance. Because the commotion was too big, it alarmed Flender, Yu Xiaogang, and the others. They gathered outside the female dormitory, looking at the scene before them in astonishment. Besides the ground sinking, the surrounding buildings had also suffered severe damage. At this time, BB Dong walked out from the dust and smoke. Her magnificent Supreme Pontiff robe was covered in dust, and the killing intent in her eyes was almost overflowing. Just as she was preparing to pursue and kill Tang Hao, a familiar figure appeared in her field of vision, instantly causing her to forget about her pursuit target entirely. Xiaogang. BB Dong murmured softly, her eyes staring straight at Yu Xiaogang. When she saw that face that had aged so much, a trace of faint sorrow flashed in her eyes. Hearing someone call his name, Yu Xiaogang immediately looked toward the sound. The next moment, his body instantly froze, and the expression on his face changed from shock to astonishment, finally turning into indifference. BB Dong, why did you appear here? Yu Xiaogang questioned. If it had been anyone else speaking like this, they would have long since been dealt with by BB Dong. Only when facing Yu Xiaogang did BB Dong's love brain syndrome flare up, and she even felt that Yu Xiaogang should be this way. At this moment, BB Dong seemed to realize the status gap between the two sides, and coupled with the fact that there were many people watching, she finally sobered up a bit. A moment later, she put on the airs of the Supreme Pontiff and said coldly, "You are harboring the criminal Tang San. What is your crime?" What? Yu Xiaogang's body swayed violently. Could it be that BB Dong knew Tang San's identity and had come this time to cut weeds and eliminate the roots? Once Tang San met with an accident, there would be no one to prove his spirit theory, and he would never have a chance to turn things around again. Thinking of this, Yu Xiaogang's eyes instantly turned blood red, and he breathed like an ox. BB Dong, you listen to me clearly. Yu Xiaogang's entire face became incomparably ferocious, and he said word by word, "If my disciple meets with any mishap, I will destroy Spirit Hall at all costs." Facing Yu Xiaogang's roar, BB Dong was stunned for a moment, but she did not get angry. Instead, she revealed an expression of disbelief. Tang San is your disciple. That's right, I have poured my life's work into him, and his future achievements will definitely surpass yours. Yu Xiaogang said with a proud face. Once these words were spoken, Chrysanthemum Douluo and Ghost Douluo could not help but sneer. Under the pursuit of Spirit Hall, whether Tang San could survive was still unknown. BB Dong knew Yu Xiaogang's obsession very well. Since he had taken Tang San as his disciple, he would definitely stand on his side. Yu Guan, Gui Mei, immediately notify every branch hall to hunt down Tang Hao and Tang San. Understood. Chrysanthemum Douluo and Ghost Douluo's figures flashed, instantly disappearing into the dark night. Hearing this order, Yu Xiaogang became anxious instantly, and said angrily, "BB Dong, do you not care about our old relationship at all?" "Shut up, I am the Supreme Pontiff." BB Dong swept a cold glance at Yu Xiaogang and left without looking back. Watching the direction where BB Dong disappeared, Yu Xiaogang suddenly remembered one thing. He had just forgotten to ask how to cultivate twin spirits. Chapter 33, 100,000-Year Spirit Ring, Ice and Fire Yin Yang Well. 2 months later, Heaven-Do City. As the capital of the Heaven-Do Empire, the prosperity of Heaven-Do City far exceeded other cities. Magnificent buildings could be seen everywhere within the city, and the streets were bustling with carriages and endless streams of pedestrians. Inside an inn, Lu Zhan walked out of his room and stretched, feeling refreshed. A few days ago, his spirit power had successfully broken through to level 70, and he had absorbed the god-bestowed spirit ring he had drawn previously. It is worth mentioning that the age of his 7th spirit ring was as high as 120,000 years. This was thanks to the augmentation of his martial god body and the 9-yang divine art. The martial god body greatly enhanced his physical strength, while the 9-yang divine art increased his endurance limit. What surprised Lu Zhan even more was that after absorbing the god-bestowed spirit ring, his spirit power had broken through to level 74 in one go. Of course, spirit power was only one aspect. The most important thing was the improvement in strength. The martial soul avatar granted by this 100,000-year spirit ring was far beyond imagination. Even if he encountered a titled Douluo, Lu Zhan could fight head-on. In the past, if he encountered a powerhouse that are above the level of a titled Douluo, he could only choose to avoid their edge. Now, he finally had enough confidence. 2 days ago, Lu Zhan had arrived in Heaven-Do City. However, he did not go to the Heaven-Do Imperial Academy immediately, but instead took a short rest and took the opportunity to gather information. He planned to go to the Sunset Forest first, and then to the Heaven-Do Imperial Academy. After all, time waits for no one. If Tang San were to get the immortal herb first, wouldn't that give him a chance to become stronger? Since they were already on opposite sides, Lu Zhan would never allow such a thing to happen. After leaving the inn, Lu Zhan headed straight for the Sunset Forest. The Sunset Forest was located east of Heaven-Do City. It was a vast primeval forest inhabited by a large number of spirit beasts, including many 10,000-year level spirit beasts. Not long after, Lu Zhan arrived above the Sunset Forest. With the augmentation of the Rabbit Talisman and the Chicken Talisman, Lu Zhan could not only fly at high speed but also fly to an altitude of 10,000 meters. He remembered clearly that the Ice and Fire Yin Yang Well was located in the central area of the Sunset Forest, surrounded by a poisonous barrier, and was the herb garden of the poison Douluo, Dugubo. Looking down from high altitude, it was easy to find his destination. It was a dense, emerald green mist covering an area of several hundred meters. Amidst the churning mist, one could vaguely see that the trees inside were taller and more lush than those outside. Clearly, the Ice and Fire Yin Yang Well was within it. For him, consuming an immortal herb would not bring much improvement. After all, he already possessed many cheat-like items and was not lacking for an immortal herb. However, Lu Zhan was well aware of the importance of the immortal herbs. To put it bluntly, these immortal herbs concerned the future potential of Tang San and the others. Without these immortal herbs, they could only be considered geniuses within a reasonable range. Therefore, in order to avoid nurturing a tiger that would eventually harm him, Luzon had to seize this opportunity. Although Tang San was currently no match for Luzon, even the lion uses its full strength when hunting a rabbit, Luzon would never give Tang San a chance to grow. Besides that, Luzon intended to place the blue silver emperor near the ice and fire yin yang well. The ice and fire yin yang well gathered the energy of heaven and earth, making it a veritable holy land for cultivation for plant-type spirit beasts. Of course, this was also part of Luzon's plan. After confirming the location, Luzon curled his lips, his figure turning into a stream of light as he wove into the poisonous barrier. For ordinary spirit masters, forcing their way through this poisonous barrier was simply courting death. But in Luzon's eyes, it was purely ornamental. Besides granting him the ability to fly, the chicken talisman also allowed him to master telekinesis. These poisonous gases had almost no weight, and Luzon could disperse them with a single thought. However, not long after Luzon broke into the poisonous barrier, Douluo noticed it immediately. Someone is trespassing in the poisonous barrier I set up. Douluo frowned, a feeling of unease rising in his heart, and immediately set off. Soon, Luzon arrived at a valley that looked like a paradise. In the center of the valley, a pool of spring water was divided into two colors. One side was as hot as fire, the other as cold as frost. Two completely different energies converged and merged within it, forming a peculiar balance. There was no doubt that this spring was the ice and fire yin yang well. Around the spring, various rare medicinal herbs grew. Some were golden all over, some were crystal clear, some emitted a faint fluorescence, and some were permeated with a refreshing fragrance. Taking any random immortal herb from it to an auction house would cause a sensation in the spirit master's world. After all, one immortal herb meant the ability to cultivate a top-tier powerhouse. Seeing so many precious medicinal herbs, Luzon did not rush to pick them. Instead, he found a suitable location and placed the blue silver emperor near the ice and fire yin yang well. Immediately after, Luzon's gaze fell on a golden chrysanthemum. This must be the chrysanthemum of extraordinary radiance. Immediately, Luzon took a pokeball from his spirit tool and released Wobbuffet. Wobbuffet, go eat that medicinal herb. Luzon patted Wobbuffet on the head and pointed at the chrysanthemum of extraordinary radiance not far away. Wobbuffet. Wobbuffet cried out, immediately waddled over, pulled up the chrysanthemum of extraordinary radiance by its roots, and fed it into its mouth without hesitation. In Luzon's view, since spirit masters could consume immortal herbs, spirit beasts could do the same. The king of 10,000 demons, one of the 10 great fierce beasts, was originally just an ordinary spirit beast, but after consuming an immortal spirit herb, its potential was greatly enhanced, and it eventually became the strongest plant-type spirit beast. Although the chrysanthemum of extraordinary radiance was not the top-tier immortal herb, it could enhance physical fitness, which was just right for Wobbuffet. After all, if Wobbuffet wanted to double reflect damage, the premise was that it needed to be able to withstand the attack. In fact, the chrysanthemum of extraordinary radiance was also very suitable for Luzon. However, Luzon possessed the martial god body and the nine-yang divine art, and his physical strength already far exceeded those of the same rank. Even if he consumed the chrysanthemum of extraordinary radiance, it would not bring much improvement. Rather than absorbing it himself, it was better to use it to nurture Wobbuffet. Seeing that Wobbuffet had eaten the chrysanthemum of extraordinary radiance, Luzon nodded in satisfaction and then looked at the other two immortal herbs. The fiery apricot essence and the octagonal mysterious ice grass. These two immortal herbs contained extreme fire and ice attributes, respectively. Consuming either one alone would very likely cause one to explode and die. But if consumed at the same time, with the assistance of the ice and fire yin yang well, one could forge an ice and fire golden body. In this way, Luzon would be able to be immune to attacks of both ice and fire attributes. Just as Luzon was preparing to pick them, he suddenly sensed a powerful aura approaching at an extremely fast speed. To think he arrived so quickly. Luzon frowned slightly, a flash of surprise appearing in his eyes. This aura was undoubtedly Douluo. However, Luzon did not show any panic, all of this was within his plan. Within a few breaths, an emerald green figure flew straight from the distance and instantly landed in front of Luzon. With long emerald green hair draped over his shoulders, a sinister face, slit-like pupils in his eyes, and an icy, cold aura radiating from his entire body. This person was the poison Douluo. Chapter 34, Wobbuffet shows its might, ice and fire refine the golden body. Douluo did not rush to make a move, his gaze falling upon Wobbuffet not far away. Although it was a spirit beast he had never seen before, Douluo did not pay much attention to it, he cared more about one thing. In his memory, there should have been a golden chrysanthemum where this spirit beast was, but now it had disappeared, seemingly eaten by the spirit beast. This is simply a waste of a heavenly treasure. Douluo's expression instantly turned gloomy, and his eyes were filled with chilling killing intent. Even if he did not recognize these medicinal herbs, it did not stop him from regarding this place as his own herb garden. Now, an outsider had trespassed and even fed his medicinal herbs to a spirit beast, how could he endure this? Kid, you trespassed into this old man's herb garden and fed the medicinal herbs to a spirit beast. What is your explanation? Douluo glared at him. As long as Luzon did not provide a reasonable explanation, he would never show mercy. After all, he did not consider himself a kind-hearted person. There is nothing to explain, it is exactly as you see, Luzon said with a calm face. He came to the ice and fire yin yang well this time with the intention of taking all the immortal herbs away, not leaving a single one for Tang San. Since he had already planned to take them by force, he naturally would not say any hypocritical pleasantries. Presumptuous. Seeing the other party being so arrogant, Douluo was furious. His remaining sanity was swallowed by rage, and he unhesitatingly slapped his palm towards Luzon. This palm strike contained the spirit power of a titled Douluo. The wind from the palm was sharp and carried a foul, fishy stench, clearly containing potent poison. Facing this palm strike, Luzon did not dodge, instead, he countered with a punch. Bang. With a loud boom, Douluo was sent flying backwards for more than 10 meters, his feet plowing 2 deep furrows into the ground before he could barely steady himself. On the other hand, Luzon had not moved an inch. How is this possible? Douluo's pupils constricted, and a stormy sea surged in his heart. Although he had not used his spirit just now, with his cultivation as a titled Douluo, even an ordinary spirit saint would find it difficult to take his attack head-on, even if they used their spirit. Yet, the other party had gained the upper hand without using a spirit either. This person looked to be only 20 years old. He had originally thought he was at most a spirit emperor, but he had not expected his strength to be this terrifying. Could it be that he is also a titled Douluo? This thought flashed through Douluo's mind, but he quickly dismissed it. It was absolutely impossible for such a young titled Douluo to appear on the continent. The fastest record for cultivating to a titled Douluo on the surface was created by Tang Hao, who was already 44 years old at the time, and this person had not even reached half of Tang Hao's age. Perhaps this person's spirit is quite special. Du Gubo quickly calmed down, his eyes becoming a bit more serious. Regardless, for this person to possess such strength at this age, he was undoubtedly a peerless genius surpassing Tang Hao. It was best not to make an enemy of him. However, if he just conceded like this, where would he, the poisoned Douluo, put his face? After some consideration, Du Gubo decided to capture the other party first before doing anything else. 7th Spirit Ability, Martial Soul Avatar. The 7th Spirit Ring suddenly lit up, and Du Gubo's figure instantly expanded, transforming into a 30-meter-long, water-vat-thick, emerald-green giant snake. Kid, it is still not too late to admit your mistake. Du Gubo stood on top of the Jade Phosphor Serpent, looking down at Luzon with a threatening tone. Facing the martial soul avatar of a titled Douluo, Luzon remained exceptionally calm. 7 Spirit Rings spiraled up from under his feet in succession. Yellow, purple, purple, black, black, black. Red. The moment that brilliant red spirit ring appeared, Du Gubo's martial soul avatar trembled violently. A 100,000-year spirit ring. Du Gubo exclaimed in shock, his face full of astonishment and disbelief. To reach 100,000 years at the 7th Spirit Ring, this simply overturned his understanding. Generally speaking, even after cultivating to the titled Douluo realm, the best spirit ring configuration only adds one 100,000-year spirit ring. Yet this person had broken this limitation, his 7th Spirit Ring had reached 100,000 years. What kind of monster is this kid? One must know that this is not 10,000 years later, the value of a 100,000-year spirit ring is extremely high. Looking across the entire continent, the titled Douluos who possess a 100,000-year spirit ring can be counted on one's fingers, and each of them is an existence standing at the pinnacle of the pyramid. At this moment, Du Gubo already had thoughts of retreating in his heart. Although he was a titled Douluo, he was at the bottom of the titled Douluos, and coupled with the fact that the poison from his palm strike earlier had not taken effect, his confidence was greatly diminished. But if he were to concede just like this, it would be a bit too embarrassing. Spirit Bone Ability, Medusa's Gaze. Du Gubo tried to seize the initiative. 2 great petrification beams suddenly shot out from his snake eyes, heading straight for Luzon. This Spirit Bone ability was one of his trump cards. As long as one is hit by the beams, one will be instantly petrified and left at the mercy of others. However, Luzon's reaction was faster. The moment those 2 petrification beams shot over, Luzon's figure flashed and vanished into thin air from Du Gubo's field of vision. The 2 petrification beams passed through and eventually landed on Wobbuffet. Without needing Luzon's command, Wobbuffet had already activated its ability on its own. Mirror Coat. Wobbuffet's body shook, and a layer of light blue light appeared on its body. The moment it withstood the 2 petrification beams, it reflected them back with double the power. What? Before Du Gubo could react, he was hit by the double-powered petrification beams. In an instant, his massive snake body, starting from the head, rapidly spread to his entire body, completely turning into a stone statue. Wobbuffet, well done. Luzon appeared beside Wobbuffet, gently patting its head, the corners of his mouth unable to stop curling upwards. That Wobbuffet could counterattack on its own was an unexpected surprise. Wobbuffet. Wobbuffet waved its arms, striking a funny pose. A moment later, Luzon looked up at the petrified Du Gubo and sighed with slight regret. I originally wanted to test my 7th spirit ability, but it seems I will have to wait until later. Ever since he absorbed the 100,000-year spirit ring, he had not yet truly engaged in actual combat. However, Wobbuffet being able to block a titled Douluo's attack and reflected back with double the power could be considered as having gained another trump card. I wonder how long this petrification effect will last. Luzon shook his head with slight helplessness. This mirror code moved double the power, so the petrification time would definitely be extended quite a bit. However, that was none of his business. Next, Luzon recalled Wobbuffet into its Pokeball, then immediately harvested the fiery apricot and the octagonal mysterious ice grass using a specific method, and immediately put them into his mouth together. The moment he swallowed them, Luzon leapt into the ice and fire yin-yang well. The 2 immortal herbs melted upon entering his mouth. A surge of scorching heat and a cold current simultaneously flooded into his body, clashing wildly within his meridians. Fortunately, being inside the ice and fire yin-yang well, the 2 energies of extreme cold and extreme heat wrapped around his body, echoing with the medicinal effects of the 2 immortal herbs, constantly tempering his physical body. However, the 2 extreme energies were too terrifying, and his body felt like it was about to explode. Taking advantage of the fact that he was still conscious, Luzon hurriedly circulated the 9-yang divine art. After this period of hard cultivation, he had finally cultivated the 9-yang divine art to the great completion realm, and his body had even reached the level of an indestructible Vajra body. Under the frantic circulation of the 9-yang divine art, the 2 energies of extreme cold and extreme heat gradually merged together, flowing through his meridians throughout his entire body, tempering every inch of muscle and every bone. If it continued like this, his indestructible Vajra body would be further strengthened, enough to go head-to-head with an attack system titled Douluo. Chapter 35, Detoxifying Du Gubo, all immortal herbs obtained. An hour later, the petrification effect on Du Gubo finally wore off. He looked around, bewildered, and asked in surprise, where is that kid? Where did he run off to? Although a conflict had occurred earlier, the other party had not taken advantage of his vulnerability while he was petrified, which caused his anger to subside. Of course, it was mainly because this person was too monstrous. A 100,000-year 7th spirit ring, plus a spirit beast that could rebound spirit bone skills, it was simply beyond his imagination. It was best not to completely offend a monster like this. As for the golden chrysanthemum that had been eaten, he had already put it out of his mind. He didn't know its specific use anyway, so it was better to use it to befriend and peerless genius. Another period of time passed. In the ice and fire yin-yang well, Luzon finally finished absorbing the 2 immortal herbs. Besides an improvement in his physical strength, he was also able to become immune to ice and fire damage. Furthermore, he also gained the ability to be immune to ice and fire attribute attacks. The only pity was that this effect could not be extended to his guardian spirit, otherwise his combat power would have increased significantly. The next moment, Luzon broke through the water and landed steadily on the bank of the ice and fire yin-yang well. Seeing this scene, Du Gubo's pupils shook, and he looked at Luzon in disbelief. He knew very well how terrifying the ice and fire yin-yang well was, even he dared not go down easily, yet Luzon had actually been cultivating inside. He truly was a monster whose 7th spirit ring had reached 100,000 years. Little brother, I offended you earlier, please do not take it to heart. Du Gubo stepped forward, cupped his hands in a salute towards Lu Zhan, and said sincerely, the medicinal herbs here are yours to choose from, consider it compensation. Compared to before, Du Gubo's attitude had done a complete 180-degree turn. Lu Zhan was somewhat surprised by Du Gubo's change in attitude, but upon reflection, he realized it was likely the 100,000-year spirit ring that had served as a deterrent. Besides that, Wabafet had likely also caused some psychological trauma for Du Gubo. A spirit beast that looked harmless, yet possessed such a divine skill, no one could have expected that. Since you've said so, I won't be polite. Lu Zhan acted immediately, putting all kinds of rare medicinal herbs into his bag. He didn't intend to leave a single one for Tang San. Seeing this, the corners of Du Gubo's mouth twitched, but he didn't stop him. He didn't know these medicinal herbs anyway, so he would just treat it as an early investment. After picking all these immortal herbs, Lu Zhan walked up to Du Gubo and said indifferently, Senior, I see you are deeply poisoned. How about I detoxify you, and these medicinal herbs will serve as payment? Little brother, the poison in my body is not ordinary, it is a side effect of my spirit. Du Gubo shook his head and said with a bitter smile, I have researched this for many years without finding a solution, I can only rely on this precious land to barely suppress it. Speaking to the end, Du Gubo sighed deeply. It didn't matter if he didn't live for a few more years, but his granddaughter was still very young, and he really couldn't bear to watch her follow in his footsteps. Hey, it's just mere poison, I don't take it seriously. Lu Zhan smiled calmly, directly took out a pokeball, and released Chansey. Seeing this, Du Gubo's pupil suddenly shrank. What kind of spirit tool was this round ball that it could actually contain a spirit beast? Although his wishful 100 treasure purse could also contain living creatures, it could not be used as freely as this spirit tool. Little brother, are you planning to have this spirit beast detoxify me? Du Gubo asked, looking perplexed. This spirit beast that looked like an egg was even more harmless than the previous one, and at first glance, it didn't seem to have anything special about it. You'll know once you try. Lu Zhan shrugged, then patted Chansey on the head and instructed, Chansey, please use heal bell on him. Chansey, tilde tilde. Chansey wobbled over to Du Gubo, and the egg in its abdominal pouch emitted a soft light. Ding-ling. A crisp and long-lasting bell sound echoed in the valley, turning into circles of soft, pale pink sound waves that enveloped Du Gubo. Du Gubo's body shook, and then an expression of disbelief appeared on his face. He could clearly feel that the toxins accumulated over many years were rapidly receding, and the heaviness in his body was disappearing bit by bit, replaced by an unprecedented sense of lightness. Because Du Gubo had accumulated too much poison in his body, the treatment time was a little longer. Until the bell sound ended, Du Gubo still stood there blankly. He clearly felt that the toxins in his body had completely disappeared, and his body felt as if it had suddenly returned to its peak state. It's done just like that. Du Gubo looked incredulous. The poison he hadn't managed to solve in decades had been resolved in such a short time. A moment later, Du Gubo suddenly looked up to the sky and laughed loudly. He hadn't expected that by a stroke of luck, he would accidentally solve the side effect of their jade phosphor serpent lineage. Let alone these medicinal herbs, even if he were asked to give away the entire herb garden, he would be willing. After a long while, Du Gubo finally managed to calm his excited emotions, walked quickly to Lu Zhan, and bowed deeply. Little brother, great kindness needs no thanks. Du Gubo's expression was extremely serious, and he patted his chest as he said, in the future, if you have any use for me, just give the order. Senior, you are exaggerating. I have already taken advantage of you by taking these medicinal herbs, it cannot be considered doing you a favor. You can't say it like that. Du Gubo shook his head and said seriously, if you had forcibly taken them, I wouldn't have been able to stop you. You showed mercy to me and even detoxified me, how could I be ungrateful? Furthermore, my granddaughter has also inherited this side effect, and I will need to trouble you, little brother, to detoxify her. Du Gubo had spent decades on the continent and was no fool, he also had a small agenda. Anyway, he didn't recognize those medicinal herbs, so it was better to do Lu Zhan a favor. Most importantly, although the toxins in his body had been cleared, as long as he continued to cultivate, the toxins would definitely continue to accumulate. Especially Du Guyan, who was only at the Spirit Elder realm, she would definitely need to have her toxins cleared many times in the future. Therefore, Du Gubo specifically tried to curry favor with Lu Zhan. As long as a certain relationship was established, there would be no need to worry about the toxin problem in the future. Your granddaughter should be named Du Guyan, right? Under Du Gubo's surprised gaze, Lu Zhan said nonchalantly, I happened to meet her in Soto City before. Her poisoning was lighter than yours, and Chansey has already helped her detoxify. What? Du Gubo was stunned for a moment, and then a look of wild joy appeared on his face. Little brother, are those words true? Absolutely true. At this moment, Du Gubo was trembling with excitement. He hadn't expected everything to be such a coincidence. It was simply a blessing from heaven. Little brother, I really don't know how to thank you. Du Gubo forcibly suppressed the excitement in his heart and said solemnly, I promise to do one thing for you, whether it's climbing a mountain of blades or going down into a sea of fire, I will not refuse. Seeing Du Gubo so earnest, Lu Zhan really couldn't refuse. A moment later, Lu Zhan handed the 2 immortal herbs in his hand to Du Gubo. They were the 8-petal immortal orchid and the snow-colored swan kiss. Chapter 36, Encountering Shrek Academy, Terrifying Yu Xiaoging. Senior, please keep these 2 herbs. Why is this? Du Gubo took the immortal herb with a puzzled look. Concerned about his reputation, he wanted to return them, saying firmly, since I have already given these herbs to you, they rightfully belong to you. Senior, it won't be too late to decide after I finish speaking. Lu Zhan pointed to a pale blue orchid. Its petals had fine patterns and emitted a faint fragrance. He introduced it. This herb is called the 8-petaled immortal orchid. After consuming it, it can consolidate your foundation and significantly increase your cultivation speed without any side effects. Give this to Du Guyan to consume, and she will definitely be able to cultivate to the titled Douluo level in the future. Du Gubo's pupils dilated, and his hands trembled slightly. Although Du Guyan's talent was quite good, that was only compared to her peers. Being able to reach the spirit Douluo level would already be quite an achievement. However, if she were to consume the 8-petaled immortal orchid, her potential would be greatly enhanced, and her cultivation speed would far exceed that of her peers. Following that, Lu Zhan pointed to another pure white flower. It resembled a swan, was crystal clear throughout, and had a faint fluorescent glow circulating within it. This one is called the snow-colored swan kiss. Its effect is quite unique. It can amplify toxins 1,000 or even 10,000 times, which is enough to significantly boost your strength. However, you must be extremely careful when using it, lest you harm yourself. Upon hearing this, Du Gubo was so excited he could barely speak. His title was poison, and with this treasure, his strength would be greatly increased. Besides excitement, he also felt a complex emotion. He was sitting on a mountain of gold but didn't know how to use it. It was simply too miserable. Fortunately, Lu Zan was benevolent and gave him these 2 herbs. This favor was too great. Thank you, little brother. Du Gubo bowed slightly to Lu Zan once again. Seeing this, Lu Zan felt a bit awkward instead. Returning someone else's things only to receive their gratitude was truly a bit awkward to handle. A moment later, Lu Zan's expression returned to calm. He looked up and pointed to the location of the Blue Silver Emperor, saying, I will leave a plant here. Please look after it, senior, and do not let outsiders know. I guarantee I will watch over this place for you and will never let any outsiders step foot inside. Du Gubo agreed without hesitation. After everything was settled, Lu Zan left the Sunset Forest and headed towards the Heaven Do Imperial Academy. Meanwhile, the group from Shrek Academy had already arrived at the Heaven Do Imperial Academy. Because Tang Hao had taken Tang San and Xiao Wu away, the remaining 5 people could not form a team. Regarding this, Flender had already planned to give up on participating in the Spirit Master competition, but he couldn't sway Yu Xiaogang, who insisted on participating. This was the Spirit Master competition held every 5 years, how could Yu Xiaogang be willing to miss it? Although Shrek Academy lacked manpower, as long as they joined the Heaven Do Imperial Academy, they could fully form an even stronger team. Furthermore, the leader of the Wangdu team was Qin Ming, who was considered his junior. Once the little freaks joined the Wangdu team, it was highly likely that he would take over the position of team leader, which would give him the opportunity to prove himself to the world. Is this the Heaven Do Imperial Academy? Dai Mubai looked around, a trace of disdain flashing in his evil eyes. As a prince of the Star Luo Empire, he felt some rejection towards this place, but he could not interfere with the Academy's decisions. Mubai, don't cause trouble. This isn't Soto City, after all. If you offend some big shot, the Academy won't be able to cover for you. Flender warned him beforehand. Although he encouraged his students to stir up trouble, it depended on the situation. Any student here had the backing of nobles, and one could easily offend a big shot if not careful. The previous lesson from Lu Zan had made Flender much more cautious. I know. Dai Mubai agreed verbally, but his face showed that he didn't really care. Just then, a young man dressed in lavish clothing walked over, followed by several lackeys. The young man looked to be 18 or 19 years old, with a fair complexion and decent facial features, but his entire demeanor exuded arrogance and the air of a playboy. He was the 4th prince of the Heaven Do Empire, Shui Bang. Although Shui Bang usually pretended to be a playboy to avoid being killed by Shui Qing, as time went on, it was inevitable that he became a real playboy. Stop, who let you in? Shui Bang carefully examined the attire of Flender and the others, a trace of disdain appearing on his face as he said sarcastically, a bunch of country bumpkins, and you dare to step into our academy. Once these words were spoken, everyone's expressions instantly turned ugly. Cold light flashed in Dai Mubai's eyes as he stepped out from the group and said coldly, what did you say? Yo, calling you a bumpkin, and you're still not convinced. Is this a place where you can run wild? Get lost quickly, or don't blame us for being impolite. Shui Bang waved his hand, his tone filled with utter disdain. Upon hearing this, Dai Mubai's face turned livid. A mere student dared to repeatedly insult him, how could he swallow this anger? Dai Mubai lunged forward to stand in front of Shui Bang and smashed his fist heavily into his face. Bang. Shui Bang let out a scream, flew backward, and crashed heavily onto the ground, blood streaming from his nose. You dare to hit me? Do you know who my father is? Shui Bang touched his crooked nose and glared at Dai Mubai with fury. I don't care who your father is, I'll hit you regardless. Dai Mubai looked down at him, his evil eyes full of ferocity. You still dare to threaten me? Do you believe I'll cripple you? Shui Bang swallowed hard, a look of terror appearing on his face. This guy was simply a madman. At this moment, a middle-aged man saw the situation and immediately walked over quickly. Shui Bang, as if seeing a savior, hurriedly shouted, Teacher Sun, they came to the academy to cause trouble and even wounded me. You must uphold justice for us. Upon hearing this, Sun Buyu frowned deeply. He looked at Flender and the others, his expression instantly becoming serious. These people were definitely not ordinary. Especially those older spirit masters, except for one level 29 spirit grandmaster, everyone else's cultivation was above his. We are here to find Qin Ming. This person taunted us first, and we only acted out of necessity. Flender explained. Upon hearing this, Sun Buyu immediately realized the situation. He knew Shui Bang's character well, it was likely he had instigated the trouble again. Just as the misunderstanding between the two sides was being cleared up, a figure descended vertically from the sky. Bang. Like a god descending, Lu Zan landed precisely in front of everyone, blasting a small crater into the hard ground. Lu Zan. Looking at the familiar face before him, Flender rubbed his eyes filled with shock and disbelief. He is actually still alive. Yu Xiaogang was also dumbfounded. In his opinion, with Clear Sky Douluo personally making a move, there was absolutely no possibility that Lu Zan could have escaped. What he found most unacceptable was that not only was this guy not injured in the slightest, but he also seemed even stronger than before. The way he descended vertically from the sky was too shocking, completely rivaling the oppressive presence of a titled Douluo. Chapter 37 Yu Xiaogang, My World-Shocking Wisdom. Why, are you surprised to see me? Lu Zan scanned Flender and the others, his tone carrying a hint of mockery. The expressions on Flender and Yu Xiaogang's faces were exceptionally ugly, as if they had eaten a fly, and they couldn't squeeze out a single word for a long time. Especially Yu Xiaogang, who subconsciously took half a step back, his hands hidden in his sleeves trembling slightly. In his expectations, it was impossible for Lu Zan to escape from Tang Hao's hands. However, not only was Lu Zan alive and well, but he also appeared before them in such a shocking manner, this was simply slapping him in the face. Dai Mubai, who had been standing at the front of the group just a moment ago, was now hiding behind the group, as if terrified of being seen by Lu Zan. Although he resented Lu Zan in his heart, when they met again, an uncontrollable fear surged within him. At this moment, Ning Rongrong finally snapped out of her shock. She hurried forward, her beautiful eyes fixed on Lu Zan, looking him up and down, and only after confirming he wasn't injured did she let out a long sigh of relief. But immediately after, the worry on her face turned into dissatisfaction, and she pouted, saying, Since you were fine, why didn't you send a message back? Do you know how worried I was about you? By the end, her voice carried a hint of grievance. Seeing this, Lu Zan reached out and tapped Ning Rongrong on the forehead, saying unceremoniously, That guy Tang Hao is definitely still staying in Soto City, how could I send you a reply? What if it brought trouble upon you? Ning Rongrong covered her reddened forehead, stunned for a moment, and then felt a surge of joy in her heart. So he was worried about my safety. Once this thought appeared, the corners of her mouth couldn't help but turn up slightly, and the slight grievance in her heart vanished instantly. However, she didn't show it on her face. Instead, she put her hands on her hips, lifted her chin, and said proudly, I have Grandpa Sword and Grandpa Bone backing me up, so I'm not afraid of that guy. Thump. Lu Zan tapped her again. Ning Rongrong was really in pain this time. She covered her forehead tightly with both hands, puffed out her cheeks, and pouted, looking extremely cute. She said unhappily, why did you hit me again? Are you stupid? Lu Zan rolled his eyes at her, his tone carrying a hint of helplessness. Even if you have the 7 treasure glazed tile school to back you up, Tang Hao wouldn't care. As long as he cleans up the mess, no one would know who did it. After a pause, he added, besides, if Schoolmaster Ning knew about your thoughts, he would definitely force you back to the sect. Hearing this, Ning Rongrong realized immediately and smiled sheepishly. She had almost forgotten about that. Her father valued her safety the most. If he knew she had such adventurous thoughts, he would definitely lock her in the sect and not let her go anywhere. All right, I know. Ning Rongrong stuck out her tongue and obediently shut up. At this time, Zhu Zuqing from the side also walked up, her eyes showing a hint of concern, and she said softly, it's good that you are okay. Lu Zan nodded slightly to her, acknowledging her greeting. Ahem. Sun Buyu coughed twice, stepped forward a few steps, cupped his hands at Lu Zan, and said with a hint of awe in his tone. Your Excellency, why did you trespass into our academy? Although Lu Zan's way of appearing was somewhat shocking, Sun Buyu dared not show any disrespect. After all, judging by the strength Lu Zan had just displayed, this person was at least a spirit emperor or perhaps even higher. Most importantly, Lu Zan was simply too young, looking like he was only about 20 years old. To possess such strength at this age was simply unimaginable. I have business with the 3 committee members of the Heaven Do Imperial Academy. Entering through the main gate would have been too much of a waste of time, so I just flew in directly. Lu Zan explained simply. Hearing that the other party was here to see the 3 committee members, Sun Buyu couldn't help but ponder secretly. Could this person be wanting to teach here? On the surface, Qinming was already the second youngest spirit emperor on the continent, but he had only broken through to spirit emperor after the age of 30, whereas Lu Zan was only 20. The difference between the two was too great. If this person were willing to join the Heaven Do Imperial Academy, perhaps they could have one more titled Douluo powerhouse in the future. Thinking of this, Sun Buyu immediately made up his mind. Your Excellency, I will take you to see the 3 committee members. While speaking, Sun Buyu turned to look at Flender and the others, and said apologetically, sorry, I cannot attend to you all, please wait here for a moment, or feel free to walk around. Flender and the others' expressions darkened. This differential treatment made them very unhappy. They had arrived first, so why should Lu Zan enjoy preferential treatment while they were left on the sidelines? At this time, Yu Xiaogang stepped forward 2 steps, hands behind his back, and said righteously, we also want to see the 3 committee members, why don't we go together? Sun Buyu frowned. A mere spirit grandmaster was actually ordering him around. However, out of respect for Teacher Qin, Sun Buyu held it back and looked at Lu Zan to ask, Your Excellency, what is your opinion? Sure. Lu Zan nodded, looking at Flender and the others with a half smile, and said meaningfully, it just so happens that I want to catch up with them. As soon as these words were spoken, Flender's body trembled slightly. He remembered that he still owed Lu Zan 50,000 gold coins, and he had delayed for 2 months. He didn't know if he would be hassled for it. Seeing that both sides seemed to have a conflict, Sun Buyu pretended not to see it. It was not appropriate for him to interfere in other people's business. The group, each harboring their own thoughts, walked towards the direction of the committee. Walking on the road, Lu Zan walked to Flender's side and said in an irrefutable tone, you are limited to 3 days to hand over the 50,000 gold coins, otherwise, you will be responsible for the consequences. Flender's heart trembled. He immediately looked up at Lu Zan, only to see the cold glint in the other's eyes. Not seen for a while, it seemed Lu Zan was even more ruthless than before. He dared not think too much and could only nod repeatedly. After Lu Zan walked away, Yu Xiaogang leaned over and lowered his voice. Boss Flender, there is no need to pay this money at all. Flender was stunned. What do you mean? A glint of cunning flashed in Yu Xiaogang's eyes, and he sneered. Once we join the Heaven Do Imperial Academy, we will have a backer and there will be no need to worry about Lu Zan's extortion. Flender's eyes lit up immediately. This was indeed a way. No matter how strong Lu Zan was, it was impossible to shake the Heaven Do Imperial Academy. After all, this was an academy founded by the Heaven Do Empire royal family, with the entire empire standing behind it. A moment later, Flender suddenly thought of something and said worriedly, Lu Zan's talent is so strong, what if he gets heavily valued by the 3 committee members? HMPH. Yu Xiaogang snorted coldly and said dismissively, so what if his talent is strong? We have 3 spirit saints, and Xiaoxin is an even rarer food system spirit saint. The academy will definitely know the weight of things. Even taking a step back, Lu Zan's demand for compensation is essentially robbery, and we should ask for the previous 50,000 gold coins back. Flender nodded, a gratified smile appearing on his face. Xiaogang, your brain turns so fast. In this way, coming to the Heaven Do Imperial Academy is a good choice. Hearing Flender's praise, Yu Xiaogang smiled confidently. A mere Lu Zan, in front of his world-shocking wisdom, was nothing. Chapter 38, the youngest spirit saint, shocking the 3 committee members. Led by Sun Buyu, the group finally arrived at the committee office. This was the tallest building within the Heaven Do Imperial Academy, with carved beams and painted rafters, everywhere manifesting the deep heritage of the Royal Academy. Everyone, the 3 committee members will be here shortly. After entering the hall, Sun Buyu invited everyone to take their seats, then turned and left. Not long after, 3 old men walked in from outside. All 3 old men were wearing black robes with strange patterns embroidered in golden thread, symbolizing their status as being at or above the spirit Douluo level. Without a doubt, they were the 3 committee members of the Heaven Do Imperial Academy. They were, in order, Committee Member Meng Chenji, Bai Baoshan, and Jilin. I am Flender, Spirit Owl, Agility Attack System Level 78 Battle Spirit Saint. Greetings to the 3 seniors. Flender hurriedly stepped forward, bowing respectfully to pay his respects. Seeing this, Committee Member Meng Chenji merely nodded in acknowledgement, his gaze fixed straight ahead. Who is Lu Zan? Committee Member Meng Chenji asked straightforwardly. According to what Sun Buyu had said, Lu Zan was an extremely young powerhouse whose talent was far above that of Qinming. If they could win over this peerless genius, the academy might one day possess a title Douluo powerhouse. Flender felt very awkward about Committee Member Meng Chenji's perfunctory attitude, but there was nothing he could do. A moment later, Lu Zan stepped forward a few paces and cupped his hands, saying, I am Lu Zan, greetings to the 3 committee members. Committee Member Meng Chenji's pupils constricted. He actually could not see through this person's cultivation level. It was not just him, the other two committee members were the same. They looked at Luzon with shocked expressions. How on earth did this guy manage to be immune to mental probing at the Spirit Douluo level? I am afraid it is far more than just Spirit Emperor level. Committee member Meng Chenji was the first to recover, hurriedly asking, might I ask, young friend, what is your cultivation level? Just level 74, not comparable to the three committee members, Luzon said nonchalantly. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present was stunned. A 20-year-old Spirit Saint powerhouse. This was a bit too exaggerated. Flender and the others were even more incredulous. Clearly, Luzon was only a Spirit Emperor a few months ago, how could he have broken through to Spirit Saint so quickly? Even if he broke through to Spirit Saint, shouldn't it be level 71? How did he jump straight to level 74? Is this reasonable? It is well known that the further a Spirit Master cultivates, the harder it becomes, especially after level 70, where increasing by even one level requires a vast amount of time. Looking at Luzon, on the other hand. In just 2 months, he soared from a 6-ring Spirit Emperor to level 74. This simply defies common sense. At this moment, Yu Xiaogang sneered, stood up abruptly from his seat, and questioned. 3 committee members, Luzon was a Spirit Emperor just a few months ago, it is absolutely impossible for him to have reached level 74 so quickly. There must be something wrong here. Xiaogang, just because you are a piece of trash yourself, do you think everyone else is as useless as you? The way Luzon looked at Yu Xiaogang was no different from looking at a clown. These words pierced Yu Xiaogang's heart like a sharp sword. Although he was used to being looked down upon, Luzon's words still made him extremely embarrassed, especially in front of so many people. Yu Xiaogang's eyes were bloodshot, he was panting like an ox, and his cheeks were flushed red like pig liver. Luzon, unless you reveal your 7 spirit rings, no one will believe your nonsense. Yu Xiaogang was already at his breaking point, he had to make Luzon lose face. Seeing the confrontation between the two, the 3 committee members did not stop them, they also had some disbelief in their hearts. Such a young Spirit Saint was simply unheard of to them. Generally speaking, being able to cultivate to Spirit Ancestor by age 20 was already a genius, and reaching Spirit King was a peerless genius. A Spirit Emperor was barely acceptable, but a Spirit Saint was simply too outrageous. Xiaogang, open your dog eyes and watch carefully. Luzon's mouth curled into a mocking arc. Under everyone's gaze, one spirit ring after another spiraled up from his feet in sequence. The first yellow spirit ring was normal enough, but the second purple spirit ring already showed the beginnings of something unusual. 1,000-year second spirit ring. Even though the 3 committee members were knowledgeable and experienced, they had never seen any Spirit Master possess a 1,000-year second spirit ring. Before they could catch their breath, the 3rd and 4th spirit rings appeared one after another, being purple and black respectively. In an instant, the 3 committee members all gasped. A 10,000-year spirit ring. They had thought the previous 1,000-year second spirit ring was an exception, but they didn't expect the 4th spirit ring to also exceed the limit, and by more than double. What kind of monster is this, to be able to absorb spirit rings above his level so casually? Immediately following, the 5th and 6th spirit rings were also black. 3 10,000-year spirit rings slowly rotated around Luzon, emitting a suffocating sense of oppression. Generally speaking, for a Spirit Master's 5th spirit ring to reach the 10,000-year level was already a top-tier configuration. Even Qinming, known as the 2nd youngest Spirit Emperor on the continent, only had a 1,000-year level 5th spirit ring. Besides Qinming, there was also Snake Lance Douluo from the Spirit Hall, who was the same. Even if Luzon did not have a 7th spirit ring, just based on this astonishing spirit ring configuration, he was worth them doing their utmost to win over. However, this was not the end. The moment the 7th spirit ring appeared, a brilliant red light entered everyone's eyes. A 100,000-year spirit ring. A Spirit Master possessing a 100,000-year spirit ring would inevitably stand at the very pinnacle of the entire continent in the future. How is this possible? A 100,000-year spirit ring. The 7th spirit ring is 100,000 year. Almost at the same time, everyone exclaimed in shock in unison. In an instant, everyone was stunned, staring dumbfounded at Luzon's last spirit ring. This was the first time they had seen a 100,000-year spirit ring with their own eyes. It actually appeared on a 20-year-old young man, and it was only his 7th spirit ring. All of this was too shocking. Flender's pupils shook, his face full of disbelief. He had not expected that Luzon had actually broken through to Spirit Saint, and had even absorbed a 100,000-year spirit ring. At this moment, he really wanted to slap himself in the face. Let alone the fact that they only had 3 Spirit Saints, even if 30 Spirit Saints were added together, their value could not compare to Luzon. After all, when Luzon only had Spirit Emperor cultivation, he had already completely crushed them. Now with an extra 100,000-year spirit ring, his strength had absolutely skyrocketed, and I am afraid that most Spirit Douluo were no longer his match. Dai Mubai's face was pale, his heart filled with terror, and there was also a trace of regret. If he had not provoked Luzon before, and had even befriended him, perhaps he would still have a chance to defeat Dai Wuxi. Yu Xiaogang was even more ashen-faced, he really wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl into. This was truly too embarrassing. Just a moment ago, he had been adamant that Luzon was lying, only to be slapped in the face in the blink of an eye. Xiaogang, you are trash for a day, you are trash for a lifetime. Luzon raised his eyes to look at Yu Xiaogang, speaking mercilessly. Yu Xiaogang's face flushed red, his lips trembled for a long time, but he could not refute the other party's words. What else could he say? The facts were right before his eyes, if he argued further, it would only be more shameful. After a long while, committee member Meng Chenji finally regained his senses, hurriedly stepped forward, and said with a smile on his face. Young friend, are you willing to come and teach at our academy? We can offer the highest treatment. If you have any other conditions, we can agree to them as well. What the hell? Luzon was stunned for a moment, and said in astonishment, 3 committee members, when did I say I wanted to come and be a teacher? I came to talk business with you. As soon as these words were spoken, the 3 committee members were instantly dumbfounded. According to Sun Baiyu's meaning, Luzon was here to apply for a teaching position. Could it be that they had made a huge mistake? Chapter 39 Yu Xiaogang feels envious, Shrek Academy leaves in disgrace. Young friend, what exactly do you mean by business? Committee member Meng Chenji stroked his beard and asked somewhat awkwardly. Upon hearing this, Luzon unhurriedly took out 3 items, a soul power pill, a martial soul enhancement scroll, and a skill book. As for the Pokeball, Luzon did not take it out, mainly because few people were willing to spend that much money. It was likely that only after they realized the power of the Pokemon would they fight over them frantically. As Luzon finished introducing the 3 items, the 3 committee members looked at each other, their eyes filled with shock and disbelief. Can such miraculous treasures actually exist in this world? Martial soul evolution, how is this possible? I have lived for so many years and have never heard of anything that can cause a martial soul to evolve. After a long while, committee member Meng Shenji finally recovered from his shock, staring intently at the items in Luzon's hands. If what Luzon said was true, then these 3 items were indeed worth the price. Most importantly, Luzon looked to be only around 20 years old yet had already cultivated to the level of a spirit saint. This was likely inseparable from these 3 items. Not only the 3 committee members, but Flender, Yu Xiaogang, and the others were also equally shocked. They had previously only known that Luzon sold Pokeballs, and as for Ning Rongrong's martial soul evolution, it was mostly speculation. Now it seemed certain that Ning Rongrong must have used a martial soul enhancement scroll. To them, these 3 items were not at all inferior to a spirit bone, and perhaps even superior. Especially Yu Xiaogang, he had already locked his gaze onto the 3 items in Luzon's hands, his eyes filled with greed and longing. If he could obtain a martial soul enhancement scroll, he might just be able to change his destiny. His martial soul, Luo Sanpao, was the product of a failed mutation. If it could be enhanced a few times, perhaps it could revert to a blue lightning tyrant dragon martial soul. When that time came, he would no longer need to rely on others and could prove himself to the world. However, the price of 1 million gold coins forced Yu Xiaogang to face reality. Even if he worked hard for his entire life, he could never earn that much money. Let alone 1 million gold coins, even the soul power pill worth 300,000 gold coins was an extravagant hope. Inside the hall, after careful consideration, the 3 committee members finally decided on 1 skill book and 7 soul power pills. As for why they did not buy the martial soul enhancement scroll, there were 2 main reasons. On one hand, Yu Tianong's blue lightning tyrant dragon was already a top-tier martial soul and did not need enhancement for the time being. As for the other students, 1 martial soul enhancement scroll was not enough to go around. Moreover, they were not clear on the effects of the martial soul enhancement scroll, and it would likely be difficult to elevate a high-tier martial soul to a top-tier one. 1 million gold coins was not a small amount, so it was better not to take the risk. On the other hand, Yu Tianong, Du Guyan, Yi Lingling, and the others all had backgrounds and could completely figure it out for themselves. As for the soul power pills, the price of 300,000 gold coins was relatively acceptable. Needless to say, the skill book represented a self-created spirit ability that could be passed down, which was very important for the academy. In reality, apart from the user who could fully master it, it was difficult for others to unleash its full power. With the same skill, the user could unleash the power of a 10,000-year spirit ability, while others could at most unleash the power of a 1,000-year spirit ability. Therefore, Luzon was not worried about future sales. As long as they realized the value of these items, they would definitely purchase more in the future. After the transaction was completed, a satisfied smile appeared on Luzon's face. He had previously sold 13 items in Element City, deducting the 4 lottery chances used, it was equivalent to 1 extra item. Adding the martial soul enhancement scroll sold to Dugubo and the 8 items now. As long as he sold 2 more items, he could obtain 4 more lottery chances. Next, the 3 committee members sent someone to notify the Wangdu team. Not long after, Qin led a group of people into the hall and bowed to the 3 committee members. Soon, the gazes of Yu Tianong and the others fell upon Luzon. As for Qin, he walked over to Flender and the others and began to chat with them. Yu Tianong, your spirit power is currently at level 39. Here's a soul power pill for you. It can help you break through to level 40. Committee member Meng Shenji beckoned Yu Tianong forward and handed him a soul power pill. Looking at the pill in his hand, Yu Tianong was stunned for a moment, his eyes filled with a hint of doubt. Could this pill really help him break through the bottleneck? However, since committee member Meng Shenji had said so, it should not be a problem. A moment later, Yu Tianong put the pill into his mouth. The pill dissolved upon contact, and a warm current surged into his body, spreading along his meridians to his limbs and bones. Yu Tianong shuddered, he could feel the spirit power within his body surging significantly. I have broken through to level 40. Yu Tianong opened his eyes, his face full of surprise and disbelief. A mere pill had actually helped him break through to level 40, saving him quite a bit of cultivation time. Yu Tianong suddenly thought of something, and his gaze landed on Luzon. Could this pill have come from him? Seeing the attitude of the 3 committee members toward him, which seemed to carry a trace of respect, it must have been because of the soul power pill. Seeing Yu Tianong successfully break through, the 3 committee members all revealed satisfied smiles. Immediately, they looked at the other members of the Wangdu team and said, work hard on your cultivation, if you perform well enough, you will also receive a soul power pill. Upon hearing this, everyone in the Wangdu team was very excited. Yu Tianong secretly made up his mind that he must inform his family about this soul power pill was too important. Compared to the others, Du Guyan was relatively calm. Although the effect of the soul power pill was strong, she wanted to buy a Pokeball even more, so that she could wash away her shame against Ning Rongrong. After everything was settled, Luzon cupped his hands toward the 3 committee members and said, committee members, I have other matters to attend to, so I will take my leave now. Young friend, the Heaven Do Imperial Academy welcomes your arrival at any time. Committee member Meng Shenji hurriedly stood up to see him off, and the other 2 committee members followed closely behind, obviously holding Luzon in high regard. Just shortly after Luzon left, a discordant voice came from outside. Imperial uncle, it is them. These guys broke into the academy and even hid me. Shui Bang covered his face and walked into the hall angrily, followed by an old man dressed in fine clothing. The old man had an extraordinary bearing, and his brows were somewhat similar to Shui Bang's. It was precisely Prince Shui Xing of the Heaven Do Empire. Oh. Prince Shui Xing swept a glance over Flender and the others, a trace of contempt flashing in his eyes as he said sarcastically, based on the likes of you, you think you are qualified to join our Heaven Do Imperial Academy. Flender and the others' expressions were extremely ugly, but they dared not talk back to him. At this moment, committee member Meng Shenji stepped forward and explained, Prince Shui Xing, the talents of these students are quite good, and I intend to let them serve as substitutes for the Wangdu team. Say no more. Prince Shui Xing interrupted him and said coldly, they attack the 4th prince, they must never be allowed to join. Upon hearing this, the 3 committee members looked at each other. Committee member Meng Shenji tried to persuade him again, Prince Shui Xing, these teachers are at least spirit emperors, if they join, they can improve the overall strength of the Heaven Do Imperial Academy. Chief committee member Meng Shenji, I do not wish to say it a second time. Prince Shui Xing said with a cold face. Seeing the situation becoming increasingly awkward, Flender took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, since we are not welcome, then we shall leave. Dean Flender. Committee member Meng Shenji reached out wanting to persuade them to stay, but then withdrew his hand. Although Shrek Academy was generally quite good, it was not worth falling out with Prince Shuixing over this. It would be better to focus on winning over Luzon. Chapter 40, The Master Ball, an artifact. The Heaven Do royal family wants to recruit Luzon. Inside the hotel room, Luzon moved a chair to the balcony, then sat on it and began the lottery. As his will moved, a huge turntable appeared before his eyes. The pointer spun rapidly, finally slowing to a stop. Common Spirit Power Pill. After consumption by a Spirit Master below level 60, it can increase Spirit Power by 1 to 2 levels. Luzon's mouth twitched. This thing was already useless to him, he was now at level 74, so consuming a Common Spirit Power Pill would be a complete waste. However, although it was of no use to him, he could give it away to others. Better than nothing, I suppose. Luzon put the Soul Power Pill into his storage spirit tool and continued with the second draw. The pointer spun again, finally stopping on a spherical object. Master Ball. Can capture any Pokemon, Spirit Beast with a 100% success rate, ignoring the opponent's level. Can this thing also be drawn? Luzon's pupils dilated, and a look of astonishment appeared on his face. This was a conceptual artifact. As long as it hits the target, no matter how high the opponent's level is, it captures them 100%. This meant that as long as Luzon dared to imagine it, he could go to the Stardew Great Forest to capture a 100,000-year Spirit Beast, or even subdue the Silver Dragon King without issue. Furthermore, the Silver Dragon King was in a severely injured state, so it was not impossible to hit her. If he put her inside the Master Ball, he might even be able to help her recover from her injuries. However, with Luzon's current strength, he couldn't even deal with a single fierce beast, let alone subdue the Silver Dragon King. In fact, there was a choice right in front of him. That was the Blue Silver Emperor, Ayin. If he were to take Ayin as a pet, then Tang Hao would be so angry he'd cough up blood. Just thinking about it was satisfying. Luzon suppressed the excitement in his heart and began the third draw. After the pointer spun a few times, it stopped on an ancient book. Mountain Crushing Fist. Known for its rigidity and ferocity, when cultivated to perfection, one punch can collapse a mountain. Luzon nodded with satisfaction. Although it didn't compare to the previous two rewards, the Mountain Crushing Fist was still good and increased his strength once more. Meanwhile, the Heaven Do Imperial Palace. Committee member Meng Shenji walked quickly into the main hall and bowed to Emperor Shuiyi, who was sitting at the head. Your Majesty, this old subject has an important matter to report. Emperor Shuiyi put down the memorial in his hand, looked up at committee member Meng Shenji, and said gently, Chief Committee member Meng Shenji, what is so urgent? Your Majesty, this old subject has witnessed a peerless genius who has cultivated to a level 74 Spirit Saint at only 20 years old, and his 7th Spirit Ring is as high as 100,000 years. As soon as these words were spoken, Emperor Shuiyi stood up abruptly from his seat. What did you say? A 20-year-old Spirit Saint? Emperor Shuiyi's pupils dilated, his face full of shock and disbelief. He had been emperor for so many years and had seen many proud sons of heaven, but never had anyone reach this level. To be precise, no one could even see his back. It is absolutely true. Committee member Meng Shenji said respectfully, this old subject saw it with his own eyes. Luzon not only possesses a 1,000-year 2nd Spirit Ring and a 10,000-year 4th Spirit Ring, but his final 7th Spirit Ring is a blinding scarlet red. Emperor Shuiyi took a deep breath, trying to calm the shock in his heart. After a moment, he said in a deep voice, where is this person? I want to see him personally. Your Majesty, this old subject does not know his whereabouts, but can be certain that he should still be in Heaven Do City. Committee member Meng Shenji answered truthfully. Just then, a figure strode in from outside the hall. It was Prince Shuixing. Greetings, Your Majesty. Prince Shuixing bowed respectfully, a glimmer of light flashing in his eyes as he said, since this person's talent is so outstanding, it would be best for him to be used by our Heaven Do Empire. Why not let me go and recruit him? Emperor Shuiyi pondered for a moment and finally nodded. That would be good. This matter is left to you. Your Majesty, rest assured, I will do my utmost to make Luzon submit. Prince Shuixing patted his chest and guaranteed. Having Prince Shuixing cut in, committee member Meng Shenji's expression was somewhat ugly. He knew Prince Shuixing's purpose very well. Doing this was nothing more than wanting to pave the way for Shui Bang. If he had Luzon's support, Shui Bang might have a chance to vie for the throne. However, compared to the dissolute Shui Bang, committee member Meng Shenji was more willing to support Crown Prince Shuiqing. On one hand, Shuiqing was the crown prince, and it was rightfully his to inherit the throne in the future. On the other hand, Shuiqing was gentle and elegant, far better than the dissolute-looking Shui Bang. After leaving the main hall, committee member Meng Shenji immediately walked towards the crown prince's bedchamber. Chief committee member Meng Shenji, what wind blew you here? Seeing committee member Meng Shenji's sudden visit, Shuiqing stepped forward to welcome him personally, a gentle smile on his face that gave people the feeling of a spring breeze. Your Highness, I have an important matter to report. Speak freely. Next, committee member Meng Shenji recounted the matter of Luzon once again. Shuiqing's eyes flashed, and he immediately became interested. A spirit saint around 20 years old, this talent was much stronger than his own. Although he had delayed his cultivation due to government affairs, even if he had devoted himself entirely to cultivation, it would be impossible to cultivate to a spirit saint at 20. How did this person do it? Shuiqing suppressed the doubts in his heart, a look of shock appearing on his face, and asked hurriedly, Chief, do you have a way to contact him? I have no way either. Committee member Meng Shenji shook his head, then changed the subject. However, he has many treasures in his possession and seems to be in a hurry to sell them. There should be news about him soon. Treasures. For example, pills that increase spirit power, books containing self-created spirit abilities, and even items that strengthen spirits. The specific effects are currently unclear. Oh, there are such miraculous treasures. Shuiqing could no longer maintain his composure, a look of shock on his face, and he became increasingly curious about Luzon. On the other side, Flender and the others wandered around and arrived at Lamba Academy. Boss Flender, why are you here? A crisp female voice came from inside, and immediately after, a tall woman walked out quickly. She looked to be about 30 years old, with a beautiful face, black hair draped over her shoulders, and an aura of heroism about her. It was the dean of Lamba Academy, Lu Erlong. Erlong. Flender squeezed out a smile and explained their purpose for coming. Regarding this, Lu Erlong agreed without hesitation. That evening, Lu Erlong hosted a banquet to treat everyone. At the banquet, Flender recounted the events at the Heaven Do Imperial Academy, focusing on those treasures of Luzon. Boss Flender, are those things really as miraculous as you say? Lu Erlong expressed doubt. Of course it's true, I saw it with my own eyes. Flender glanced at the expressionless Yu Xiaogang to the side and continued, if Xiaogang consumed a soul power pill, perhaps he could break through to level 30. As the big brother, Flender tried his best to play matchmaker for Luo Long and Yu Xiaogang. Although doing this was a bit painful, as long as Erlong was happy, he would be satisfied. With Flender's hint, Luo Long immediately reacted, sat down next to Yu Xiaogang, and said softly, Xiaogang, don't worry, I will find a way to buy you a soul power pill. Hearing this, Yu Xiaogang remained silent. Although he didn't want to rely on a woman's charity, this concerned a long-standing heart disease of his, and he couldn't bring himself to refuse. Chapter 41. Selfish Yu Xiaogang, planning a large auction. Seeing Yu Xiaogang remain silent, Luo Long felt not a trace of dissatisfaction, but rather, she felt extremely happy. As long as Xiaogang did not avoid her, she was already content. At this moment, Ma Hongjun suddenly thought of something. He immediately put down the chicken leg in his hand, looked up at Flender, a hint of longing in his eyes. Dean, if I had a martial soul enhancement scroll, would that solve the evil fire? As soon as these words were spoken, Flender's eyes lit up. How had he not thought of that? Although Ma Hongjun's spirit was a benign mutation possessing extremely strong attack capabilities, it had left behind a side effect. If the evil fire could be completely resolved, Ma Hongjun could become a true Fire Phoenix Spirit Master. His future would be limitless. As Ma Hongjun's teacher, Flender naturally would not sit idly by. But he simply could not come up with that much money, not to mention he still owed Luzon 50,000 gold coins, which had to be repaid within 3 days. A moment later, Flender looked up at Luo Erlong and asked, Erlong, does the academy have any extra money? About 2 or 3 million gold coins, I suppose. I haven't counted exactly. Luo Erlong waved her hand and said very generously, Boss Flender, since I have already given the academy to you, the academy's finances should naturally be managed by you. Upon hearing this, Flender was deeply moved. It was clear that Erlong had not forgotten her big brother, and his efforts to bring the two together had not been in vain. However, a hint of dissatisfaction appeared on Yu Xiaogang's face. In the past, he did not care about money, but now that this money could allow him to defy the heavens and change his fate, how could he watch idly as so much money fell into Flender's hands? This was all his money. Boss Flender, this is all Erlong's money, how can you have the nerve to keep it all to yourself? Yu Xiaogang said, his words shocking. As soon as these words were spoken, the smile on Flender's face instantly froze. As the big brother, he had already made many sacrifices, voluntarily giving up Erlong. Was it excessive to take some money? Moreover, Flender had treated Yu Xiaogang with complete sincerity. To help Yu Xiaogang obtain a soul power pill, he had not hesitated to rob Luzon, ultimately saddling himself with a debt of 100,000 gold coins. Under such circumstances, Yu Xiaogang was actually unwilling to let him manage the finances. What was hardest to accept was that he had never thought of embezzling the funds. At most, he would have helped Ma Hongjun buy a martial soul enhancement scroll. Yet, Yu Xiaogang did not trust him at all. This truly chilled his heart. At this moment, Luo Erlong also realized something, but her heart was set on Yu Xiaogang, so she naturally stood on his side. Boss Flender, it is better to let Xiaogang manage the finances, he is smarter than you. This. Flender opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. At this moment, he realized he was more like an outsider, and their past friendship meant nothing at all. Fine. Flender sighed and agreed helplessly. Although Yu Xiaogang's distress made him very uncomfortable, for Erlong's sake, he did not want to sour the relationship. Seeing this, a smug smile curled the corners of Yu Xiaogang's mouth. Bang. Ma Hongjun slammed the table, then slowly stood up, glared fiercely at Yu Xiaogang, and left the hall without looking back. What kind of bullshit grandmaster was this Yu Xiaogang, actually using a woman to bully them, master and disciple? ... The next morning. Luzon walked out of his room and stretched his limbs slightly. It is time to attend to business. After leaving the inn, Luzon went straight to the Heaven-Do City auction house. As the largest auction house in Heaven-Do City, it could spread information the fastest, which was beneficial for Luzon to sell more items. As long as he operated properly, he could even sell them at higher prices. After all, the system's marked price only set a floor price, it did not restrict how they were sold. Not long after, Luzon arrived at the Heaven-Do City auction house. Sir, may I ask if you are here to participate in the auction or if you need to consign goods for auction? A well-dressed attendant came forward and asked kindly. I want to see the person in charge of your auction house. Luzon said, his words surprising. Upon hearing this, the attendant was stunned for a moment and looked Luzon up and down. The person before her was only in his early 20s, and his clothing was not expensive, he didn't look like a big shot in any way. However, she did not show any abnormality and maintained her smile, saying, Sir, you need to state your identity or bring out sufficiently precious items to consign. Is that so? Luzon's gaze narrowed, and an aura suddenly pressed down on the attendant. In just an instant, cold sweat broke out on the attendant's forehead, and her whole body trembled uncontrollably. I will go report this right away, please wait a moment. The attendant dared not delay any longer and hurriedly turned to walk into the interior of the auction house. Not long after, a burly middle-aged man walked out from inside with big strides. I am the person in charge of this auction house. May I ask how to address you? The middle-aged man cupped his hands toward Luzon. His gaze swept over Luzon, and a flash of surprise crossed his eyes. With his cultivation as a spirit Douluo, he was actually unable to perceive this young man's cultivation. I am Luzon. I came here because I want to make use of your auction house, Luzon said, getting straight to the point. Upon hearing this, the middle-aged man was stunned for a moment, unable to react immediately. Generally speaking, if a spirit master wanted to consign goods, they just had to leave them there. There was no need for anything like what Luzon was doing. However, the middle-aged man did not refute him immediately but instead led Luzon to a reception room. Inside the room, the middle-aged man picked up his teacup and took a small sip, then asked calmly, Mr. Lu, I wonder what you need us to do. I need you to promote something for me. As he spoke, Luzon produced 2 items out of thin air and placed them on the table. This is a soul power pill. After consumption by a spirit master below level 60, it can increase their spirit power by 1 to 2 levels. This is a martial soul enhancement scroll. After use, it can enhance a spirit, with a certain chance of causing the spirit to evolve. Upon hearing this, the middle-aged man was shocked, and the teacup in his hand almost fell to the ground. He stood up abruptly, his eyes fixed on the 3 items on the table, his face full of shock and disbelief. As the person in charge of the Heaven-Do auction house, he had seen countless rare treasures, but he had never heard of such heaven-defying things. How can you prove that these 2 items are authentic and effective? I wonder if this is enough. Lu Zhan stood up from his seat, then took 2 steps forward, and 7 spirit rings swirled up from his feet in sequence. 1 yellow, 2 purple, 3 black, and 1 red. The moment that brilliant red spirit ring appeared, the middle-aged man froze completely. 100,000-year spirit ring. This person looked only about 20 years old, yet he was actually a spirit saint powerhouse, and he even possessed a 100,000-year spirit ring. A moment later, Lu Zhan calmly retracted his spirit rings and said indifferently, "Now, do you still think these things are fake?" The middle-aged man took a deep breath, trying to calm the shock in his heart, and the way he looked at Lu Zhan changed completely. His original skepticism vanished completely, replaced by awe. Although he was a spirit Douluo, if they really fought, he was afraid he would not be this person's match. "Mr. Lu, I apologize for my earlier offense, please forgive me." The middle-aged man bowed deeply, his tone unprecedentedly respectful. "Please rest assured, our auction house will definitely use all our strength to promote this, we will absolutely not let you down." "Very good." Lu Zhan nodded with satisfaction. "I plan to hold the auction in 7 days. I will trouble you during this period, I will not treat you unfairly." Although 7 days is a bit rushed, it should be enough. The middle-aged man pondered for a moment, then patted his chest and guaranteed, "Leave this matter to me." Chapter 42, Tang Hao's resentment, various factions gather. In just 1 day, the Heaven-Do City auction house spread the news throughout the entire city, and it spread to surrounding cities at an extremely fast speed. "Have you heard? The Heaven-Do auction house is holding a large auction in 7 days. Isn't it just an auction? What's so strange about that? What do you know? The items being auctioned this time are extraordinary. It is said that there are pills that can increase spirit power, and scrolls that can evolve one's spirit." "Are you kidding? How can such things exist in this world?" "Why would I lie to you? This is news released by the Heaven-Do City auction house. Given their reputation, they shouldn't be faking it, right?" In various places within Heaven-Do City, many spirit masters were already discussing the auction plan by Lu Zhan. Some were skeptical, some scoffed, and others were full of anticipation. Regardless, this news certainly caused quite a sensation. Besides this, the Heaven-Do royal family, the 7 treasure glazed tile school, the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan, and other factions received the news. Unlike other spirit masters, they had more or less reliable information, were very clear about the value of these items, and had already decided to attend this auction. Meanwhile, inside a remote and outside Heaven-Do City, Tang Hao and the other 2 were hiding there. Heaven-Do City was very far from Spirit City, making it relatively safe. That brat actually ran to Heaven-Do City. I had better not let him escape me. Tang Hao's face was extremely gloomy, and he clenched his fists tightly. In his view, he had lived in seclusion for so many years, Spirit Hall would never suddenly send 3 titled Douluo to hunt him down, especially with BB Dong acting personally. There was only one possibility, Spirit Hall knew the exact information. As for the source of the information, without a doubt, it was Lu Zhan who informed Spirit Hall. Except for Yu Xiaogang, only Lu Zhan had seen him in person. Being schemed against to such a state by a junior, endless anger surged in Tang Hao's heart, and he wished he could tear Lu Zhan to pieces. "Dad, should we attend this auction?" Tang San's eyes carried a hint of anticipation, he was very interested in those treasures, especially the martial soul enhancement scroll. If he could evolve his blue-silver grass spirit, his strength would definitely increase significantly. "Of course we must attend. This is crucial for your future cultivation." Tang Hao's eyes flashed with a sharp light, and he said in a determined tone. Once he obtained enough martial soul enhancement scrolls, he would enhance the clear sky hammer, and then go rob Lu Zhan again. "But we can't come up with that much money." Tang San smiled bitterly. Although he could manufacture hidden weapons, he couldn't scrape together that much money in a short time. "Don't worry, I have a way." Tang Hao's eyes twinkled with the light of wisdom, and he said meaningfully, "We don't need to show our faces ourselves to get the items." He planned to go find Titan of the Strength Clan. Years ago, Titan acknowledged him as his master, now is the perfect time to make use of him. He figured the Strength Clan should have quite a bit of money. Seeing his father's confident appearance, Tang San nodded, and his heart began to fill with anticipation. Beside them, Xiao Wu remained silent, her eyes filled with a hint of fear as she looked at Tang Hao. Ever since she learned that Tang Hao was a titled Douluo, she had been walking on eggshells. With Tang Hao's strength, he could definitely see through her true form, yet he insisted on keeping her by his side, his purpose was self-evident. "Xiao Wu, don't be afraid." Tang San noticed Xiao Wu's abnormality, gently held her hand, and whispered, "With me here, I won't let anyone hurt you." Xiao Wu forced a smile and nodded. Tang Hao glanced at Xiao Wu without saying anything. In his eyes, this 100,000-year spirit beast still had utility value, so he wouldn't move against her for the time being. "Little San, cultivate well these few days and strive to increase your strength a bit more." Tang Hao instructed, "The auction. I will find a way. You 2 stay here obediently." "Okay, Dad." 7 days later, the auction held by Lu Zhan arrived as scheduled. In addition to the spirit masters gathering from all directions, the Heaven-Do royal family sent Prince Shuiqing, Crown Prince Shuiqing, and 3 members of the education committee. The 7 treasure glazed tile school was represented by Ning Fengji and Bone Douluo. Schoolmaster Ning, Shuiqing pays his respects. Shuiqing took the initiative to greet him and bowed with cupped hands. Although the 2 had a teacher-student relationship, Shuiqing did not directly address him as teacher in public. "Your Highness the Crown Prince is too polite." Ning Fengji smiled slightly, and the 2 exchanged a few pleasantries. Not long after, people from the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan also arrived, led by Yu Luomian. Immediately after, the 4 elements academies, the lower 4 sects, and other factions also arrived. The entire auction venue was packed, and the atmosphere was extremely heated. Another quarter of an hour passed, and the auction officially began. On the auction stage, Lu Zhan walked up slowly. He was not wearing the formal attire of an auctioneer, but a simple tight-fitting outfit, yet it did not look out of place at all. The eyes of the entire audience fell upon him. Lu Zhan scanned the audience below. He did not give a long opening speech like other auctioneers, but got straight to the point. "The first item for auction today is the Soul Power Pill." As he spoke, he took out 10 Soul Power Pills from thin air and placed them neatly on the auction stage. The pills were round and smooth, emitting a faint fluorescence. The Soul Power Pill. After consumption, a spirit master below level 60 can increase their spirit power by 1 to 2 levels. There are 10 in total, divided into 5 options. The starting price is 600,000 gold coins, with a minimum increment of 10,000 gold coins per bid. As soon as he finished speaking, the whole venue was in an uproar. 600,000 gold coins. That's too expensive. Exactly, who can afford that? If you can't afford it, don't buy it, and don't make a fool of yourself here. Although many people complained that the price was too high, more people had eyes full of burning desire. One level of spirit power might not seem like much, but if a Spirit King consumes one, it could save at least half a year of time, or even more. If a level 59 Spirit King consumes it, they could break through to level 60 in one go and become a powerful Spirit Emperor. This temptation was simply too great. The earlier one breaks through to Spirit Emperor, the higher their future achievements would be, which was equivalent to increasing the probability of reaching title Douluo. 610,000. A middle-aged Spirit Master bid first. 620,000. 650,000. 700,000. The price skyrocketed all the way, quickly breaking the 700,000 mark. Flender, Luo Long, and Yu Xiaogang, sitting in the back row, looked at the scene of frantic bidding in front of them with ugly expressions. Xiaogang, why haven't you bid yet? Luo Long urged, her eyes full of anxiety. Yu Xiaogang, however, showed a confident smile and said firmly, these people are bidding crazily now, they will definitely drive the price up. We will wait until later to buy at a lower price. Xiaogang, you are so smart. Luo Long's eyes lit up, and she immediately praised him. In her eyes, Xiaogang was the wisest person in the whole world. Seeing this, Flender couldn't help but roll his eyes. That's not wisdom at all. If you can think of it, won't others think of it too? Didn't you see that those big factions weren't in a hurry to make a move? Clearly, they also intended to wait and see. Chapter 43, Yu Xiaogang, the heavens are always targeting me.